Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Robo Celestial here with a new video for you. Welcome to What If Deku Was a Saiyan, the complete series. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. What if Deku was a Saiyan? Well, the first question that comes to mind is if Saiyan DNA is considered a quirk here. Which, for our purposes, it is. An immediate follow-up is whether or not he's full-blooded. For this inquiry, let's say his dad was a Saiyan and his mother was a human. In this situation, Deku woke up one morning with a tail, which was noticed only after discovering he had grown 3 inches overnight. In a panicked frenzy, Izuku called his mom to see if she knew anything. Inko knew that her husband's quirk was kicking in. Remembering back to the day he left when he explained to Mama Midoriya that her DNA would postpone his own quirk's effects within their son. At a certain age, he would sprout a tail, among other noticeable features appearing seemingly instantaneously. One warning from him echoed within Inko's mind, though. He told her to do everything within her power to never let Izuku see a full moon. Concerned and ever watchful, Deku's mother kept a close watch over him, ensuring to follow the advice given by her former lover. Unfortunately, the fighting spirit inherent within her husband wasn't so easily quelled, and as a young child, Izuku continued to get into fights everywhere, be it at school, in the nearby park, or even in the marketplace. Though Inko did have to admit, the fact that he only picked a fight with those who deserved it was something of a relief to her. There was one child she always kept a close eye on, though. Katsuki Bakugo, the boy who would adore antagonizing Deku and showing him up at every possible opportunity. During some skirmishes that left Izuku far more upset than he should have been, she recalled having to calm him down for hours before he'd finally, albeit reluctantly, sleep it off. One particular incident, however, caused Inko to nearly harm Bakugo herself. It was a slightly overcast day, and much like he usually did, Izuku was standing up for one of the kids who Katsuki's cronies frequently targeted for cruel tricks. Unlike normal, however, it was beginning to grow late. The confrontation, as anyone would expect, ended with Bakugo pinning Izuku to the ground, victorious. His fighting spirit wasn't quelled by any means, but his body simply couldn't keep up any further. Seeing the clouds brush past the dark sky and revealing a nearly full moon, Katsuki decided to give his rival a scare. Hey, Deku, you're always saying you can't look at a full moon, right? Your dad said so. His grin broadening sinisterly, he continued, well, he isn't here, and neither is your mom, so I want to see what happens when you see it, pointing to the celestial body with one hand and grabbing Izuku's head with the other. He forced the boy's eyelids open and refused to let his neck move. He gestured for his cronies to help, and with their help, he pinned Izuku to the ground in a position which made it impossible to turn away. Look at how pathetic you are, Deku. You're gonna break a rule your mom and dad set, and you can't even bring yourself to move. What's the matter with? Amidst his gloating, Bakugo turned to face Deku. His eyes weren't aimed at the moon. Instead, they were locked onto his tormentor. Izuku's eyes were flaring and roiling with animalistic rage, and for a moment, just a moment, Bakugo felt true fear creep into his mind. He took a step back and, without a second thought, waved away his posse. Let him go. Get him out of here. Confused, his groupies stood with blank faces until their leader screamed again. Now, let him go now. Immediately, the goons released Izuku, who began fervently running home, tears streaking down his face. Katsuki himself was sweating profusely, merely standing stark straight while watching the boy run away. After a few minutes, his cronies got up and walked away, not wanting to get into trouble, but Bakugo didn't move. He stared onwards, in the direction Deku ran, and internalized this feeling: fear, isolation, weakness. It made his blood boil. With a yell, the young boy let loose an explosion that rocked the playground, swings looping around their bars and structures creaking as they shifted with the shockwaves. He would never allow such a thing to happen again, not on his life. Izuku, milling over his own emotions, decided he never wanted anyone to look that way when regarding him again. He wanted to cheer people up, not traumatize them. Looking around mildly paranoid before entering his home, Deku took a shaky breath before running up and hugging his mom tightly. It didn't take long for the events of that night to reach Inko. She refused to let Izuku stay out late after that, which the boy didn't complain about once. Besides, it gave him ample time to uncover all of his latent abilities. Over the course of several years, Midoriya had shown his classmates both his quirk and his aspirations to become a hero. He'd helped out here and there between school work and his home life, which was typically just anything he saw on his way to or from school. At this point, his crowning achievement was stopping a bank robbery a couple of blocks away. Izuku had discovered long before this that physical training to the extreme gave him far greater gains than it would a normal person. So he had been training every day in his room. His holiday gifts were rich with punching bags, treadmills and bench presses, of course, all of which were All Might themed. His body had been honed incredibly well for his age even now, which had allowed a single blow to fell the criminal trying to bolt away with unearned funds. After appearing in the news as a helpful bystander, Inko's motherly pride flourished. The debut of Mount Lady even involved her greeting and posing with Deku, who had rushed over to the event once he'd spotted it out of the corner of his eye. The press, needless to say, ate it up. However, not all villain encounters would be so joyous for the growing teen. While walking home and talking to himself about an updated workout routine, he passed by a sewer grate whose cover erupted from its resting place. Honey is a free browser add-on available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari. If it's a browser, it is Honey. Honey automatically saves you money when you check out on sites like Amazon, Papa John's, Kohl's. Wherever you shop, it's a good chance that Honey can save you money. All you have to do when you're checking out at these major sites, click that little orange button and it will scan the entire internet and find discount codes for you. It takes 2 clicks to install Honey. Now anytime you check out, Honey will scan the entire internet and find coupon codes for you. If there is a coupon code, they will find it. And if there's not a coupon code, you can rest assured that you are getting the best price possible, and there literally is not one available on the internet. If you install Honey right now, you can save like $50 to $100 on your shopping, doing nothing. There's literally no reason not to install Honey. It takes 2 clicks, 10 million people use it, 100,000 5-star reviews. Unless you hate money, you should install Honey. Out of the pit crawled a vile villain whose body consisted of a viscous slime. Without pause, it engulfed Midoriya, forcing its way down his throat. You'll make for a perfect vessel, kid. Completely inconspicuous. Glancing down for a moment, the sinister sludge snickered. Well, all except for that tail. But we'll cut that off later. After feeling his mind going blank and his body screaming in pain, something within Izuku snapped. His eyes rolled back in his head, and with a guttural screech, he bit down with all of his strength. This caused the viscous villain to stumble backwards, shocked and in pain. Looking at his lost piece, then back to the boy, he grumbled, his eyes locked with Deku's, who had begun vomiting up the motionless goo. Kid, I got good news and bad news. Good news: I ain't stealing your body. Bad news: I'm straight up gonna kill you. As the maniacal mudman was about to strike, an unexpected thud resounded through the area. Looking up, the ghastly Grime stuttered out a single name before a haymaker sent him splattering across the surrounding architecture. The All Might, with a brave laugh and a bright smile, the number 1 hero turned to face the half-conscious Midoriya, helping to steady the boy. Say, you did pretty well there. I admire your. Briefly interrupted as a portion of the slime was spewed from the boy's mouth yet again. All Might cleared his throat before continuing. I admire your spunk, kid. I'm glad to see the next generation of heroes is coming along so well. A shaky thumbs up was all Deku could muster. Then, everything went black, awoken by the not-so-gentle shaking of All Might. Izuku looked around, gradually recalling the events. Then the realization kicked in as he gawked at All Might, dumb grin spreading over his face. Before he was able to ask, Deku saw the soda bottle containing the sludge villain inside of All Might's pants pocket. Thinking quickly before the opportunity evaded him, Midoriya whipped a notebook and pen out of his bag, opening it to the first page, only to find the autograph he wanted already reciting there. All Might, you're incredible. You're here, me, and you. At this, All Might simply laughed, patting Izuku. Don't worry, I know what you mean. Unfortunately, I've got no time left. Gotta go. With a salute and a mighty leap, the symbol of peace glided through the air, enjoying the feeling of the breeze. Only after he passed by the glass of a building did he briefly see the green-haired teen clinging onto his leg for dear life. In a short rush of panic, All Might attempted to push Izuku off his leg, before the latter reminded him that it would most likely kill him. At this, the hero gave in, sighing before scouting out a rooftop to land on. A brief cough and a drop of blood informed the number 1 hero that this wouldn't be a fun day. Upon landing, Izuku began rummaging through his backpack, trying to find every piece of memorabilia he could of the hero in an attempt for some more signatures. I have been your biggest fan for a while. I've got, let's see here. Oh, this figurine, and maybe this pen could be signed too. That'd be interesting, for sure. Or maybe this. Sorry for the intrusion. The words caught in Midoriya's throat. Before him was not the sterling figure of All Might. Mighty and muscular. Before him was a small, frail man, definitely older looking, who wore an excruciatingly baggy All Might suit around himself. The sunken eyes and wildly ragged hair didn't fit the symbol of peace. Not in the slightest. But who else could this be? He would have heard All Might leap away if he'd just left. And the door definitely didn't open. This had to be All Might. But, what? Asked Midoriya. Who? How? The only response he got for some time was a sigh. Right, from the beginning. Then, over the course of several minutes, All Might explained how he had been gravely injured in a fight with a villain some years back, and how seriously damaged his internal organs were where the nearly fatal blow had landed. How this meant he could only fight crime for a limited amount of time each day or risk showing this form off to the public. Izuku didn't need anyone to explain to him how that would be bad. So you can't fight like you used to? Inquired Deku. That's right, kid. I have no way of knowing if this condition'll just keep getting worse, or if I'm at rock bottom now. Guess I'll just have to keep forging onwards. Looking up with a grin, Toshinori nodded to his admirer. But people like you're gonna be able to take over where I can't. You'll be more than capable of defending this world from the sorts of villains who did this to me. You especially. I see a spark in you, one I've been looking for a long time. Smiling to himself and slowly standing up, All Might buffed up yet again. Keep on training, kid. Train until you feel like you can't move your body. Then train a bit more. Never stop improving. Scratching his chin, he thought for a moment. Unfortunately, you'll need to ask the people inside to let you down. The door up here is usually unlocked, but if it isn't, just knock. Someone'll get you down. Looking back briefly, he added, and please don't tell anyone about what you saw here. Okay, Midoriya nodded. I won't. With yet another mighty leap, the symbol of peace rocketed away, leaving Izuku with his own thoughts. His hero saw something in him, and that was more than enough to redouble his focus on training. He wouldn't let anyone down, especially not All Might. He would find that spark and turn it into an inferno. While finding his way home, Deku heard a distant commotion. He checked the clock, noting it was a little late, but considering it was barely a waxing half-moon today, he wasn't very concerned. He sent Inko a brief text, saying he'll be getting home a little late due to a villain roadblock before hurrying towards the action. He had no idea how right he was. After dashing several blocks, Midoriya finally arrived at the massive crowd being held off by several pro-heroes. Their forces were spread thin between managing the crowd and the flaming wreckage around the quarantine zone. It was at this moment where Deku felt his heart drop. The moment he saw the villain being contained. The slime villain. It had escaped its plastic prison and was easily repelling everything the pros could throw at him. Within his grasp was a teenage blonde, about Izuku's height, even sporting his school's uniform. Kaken, Midoriya cried, outstretching a hand before being pulled back by the pros. Kaken, he bellowed, forcing another pro to help the first couple properly hold him back. With a frenzied series of flailing, the teen manages to escape the grasp of the crowd control and bolt towards his injured friend, looking to the sludge villain's face with the same glare he recalled giving Kaken all those years ago. Deku let out a primal scream, something deep within him erupting in response. A reserve of power, an urge to fight, an instinct for combat. In a fluid motion, Midoriya slashed a hand through the sludge villain, which seemingly did nothing. The sentient slime had turned from fearful to mocking in just a few moments. You realize my body is a liquid, right, kid? You're not gonna stop me that easily. The moment the villain's mouth closed around those last words, he saw the boy, tail twitching and eyes blazing with a livid inferno, leaping straight towards his face. Time seemed to slow for the pair, and although the malicious muck tried to intercept the blow, Deku was faster. His fist landed hard against the eye of the villain, who let out an agonized yelp. Perception returning to normal, Izuku began trying to dig Kaken out of the villain, who had stopped his progression. After a few seconds of frantic tugging, Bakugo was finally freed of the sludge villain long enough to breathe. Back the hell off. Deku, I don't need your help, he sputtered, shaking his head with tears staining his cheeks and a shaky smile spread across his face. Izuku began pulling his ally free. I'm going to help, Kaken. I don't know how, but I'm going to help you. This gave the explosive teen a moment of pause, unsure of how to process this new feeling of relief. Katsuki decided to free an arm and blast Deku away. Get out of here already. Deku, you'll get caught up too. You idiot. Think Bakugo was cut off by a crack and a wave of slop blocking his mouth. In a flash, the overwhelming ooze had regained his grip, staring at Izuku with one eye closed. You're next, brat. Just wait until I get my hands on you. Detroit Smash. The yell shook the crowd, who almost immediately altered their moods from frantic to ecstatic, with a mighty shock wave. All Might landed in front of the sludge villain, fist already cocked and ready, with a single thrust and bellowing of the familiar phrase. The wind in the area crashed into the villain, who stood no chance of holding himself together. He was spread clear across the containment area, leaving nothing but the two boys on the ground, one shaking and the other unconscious. The number one hero carried both over to the paramedics called to the scene, who quickly tended to their wounds. Once treated, the pair were sent home, both silent, unsure of the other's feelings. Just before turning onto his house's street, Deku mumbling to himself about what more he could have done. A massive form careened into the street in front of him. Once the dust settled, a bulked-up All Might stood proudly before a shocked and excited Midoriya. "I am here," he bellowed mightily. Not a second later, his body deflated itself as he coughed up a not-so-healthy portion of blood. Deku trying to steady his hero. "Young man, you've shown such great promise today, and I wanted to thank you. What's your name?" "And my name is Izuku M. Midoriya." "But thank me for what?" pondered the green-haired teen. "You see, young Midoriya, noticing you running out there despite everyone trying to stop you in an attempt to rescue that teen when nobody else could, that's a seriously cool move. Reckless for sure, but admirable." Shaking his head and growing more serious, he continued, "But that isn't the only reason why I came here. Clearly you know the secret of my form, but there's another fact I've been hiding. The real reason I've been staying in this city is to find my successor, someone worthy of inheriting my power." This caused Midoriya to stagger. Inheriting? You mean your quirk? Is that even possible?" "That'd mean everything we know about quirks so far is." He was interrupted with a loud cough from All Might. "Sorry," he yelped, bowing to the symbol of peace. "No worries. And yes, it is my quirk. My power is one derived from many other users, each one gaining more power than the last. I had this power bestowed upon me, and now I want to pass it on to you, young Midoriya." I couldn't imagine a better candidate for the next number one hero. Frozen in place, tears streaming down his face, Deku shook as he looked up into All Might's sunken, determined eyes. This was real. All of this was real. He began, but then paused. He looked down at his hands, then his tail, which snuck into his periphery. His head sank low. "I cannot thank you enough, All Might, but I can't accept your quirk." All Might looked quite puzzled, staring at Midoriya. "Are you sure? It could be the thing this world needs." "With all due respect, All Might, this isn't right," Izuku explained, "because someone out there far better than I do has got to exist. Someone who doesn't already have a quirk. I was lucky with the ability that I got. It makes me really proficient in hand-to-hand combat. If someone else who's quirkless has the same traits as me, I want them to have it." At this, the number one hero just grinned even wider before scratching the back of his head. "Geez, kid, you got me there. I did hear you mumbling about training. Can I at least help you out with that as a way to say thanks for motivating me back there?" Before Deku could respond, Tashinori held up a hand. "Yes, I'm sure it wouldn't be a hindrance or waste my patrol time. I can train you in between those sessions of proper heroics." "Now," he asked, holding out a hand, "what do you say?" Pausing for a moment, even more tears cascading from his face, Midoriya could only reach out a hand and take it. Why, yeah, I can't thank you enough, All Might," he cried. "No problem, kid. Now don't make a scene. Just meet me at the Takoba Municipal Beach Park tomorrow morning. We'll start out with that and have you in tip-top shape in no time." With a final salute and a smile, All Might puffed up again and launched away, leaving the tearfully joyous Deku to walk home in anticipation of the next day. After explaining the situation to his equally tearful mother, she agreed to let him hang out until sundown with the number one hero as long as he could get Izuku back home by the time the moon would come out. The following day, an eager Midoriya tentatively jogged onto the beach, looking around. "Yep, this beach used to be gorgeous," chuckled All Might, which scared Deku half to death. Grinning and patting him on the back, the symbol of peace gestured around them. Then all sorts of people decided that this would be an easier way to dispose of unwanted waste, and all manner of appliances are stacked up around here. Turning to face his protege, All Might stood straight and smiled. "Your training will consist of you cleaning this entire beach by the time the UA entrance exams happen." At this, Deku's jaw dropped, looking around at the numerous broken-down cars, rusted fridges and busted washing machines. He swallowed hard. This wasn't going to be easy. Deku walks home and runs into All Might. All Might greets him, deflating back into his skinny form. "I saw what you did back there. I wanted to thank you." Deku replies, "What? I didn't do anything. You're the one who saved Bakugo and I." He looks at him with no. Your actions inspired me to act. Your willingness to sacrifice yourself for another person is the reason I could save Bakugo. Izuku looks at him with teary eyes. Young man, I believe that you too can be a hero. All Might smile at him. You have a ton of potential. Keep training and reach your dreams by working hard. I'll be teaching at UA soon. Pass the exam to start your goal. Keep looking forward to your dream and you'll achieve it. Young man. All Might put 2 fingers to his head and points them towards the sky. Deku questions what is he pointing at. All Might interrupt his thought by saying farewell young Midoriya. After this, Izuku walks home and knocks out on his bed. He reflects on what happened today. He wakes up the next morning determined to train. Since it was the weekend, he thought he would start today. He started to look through the internet for a good workout routine and found out that a beach nearby was beautiful, but because of all the pollution it became a wasteland. Izuku began to move the rubble with no effort, but after a few hours, he started to feel pain primarily in his bones and arms. He decided to turn off his muscle enhancement. He was very sore and went home. When he got home, he settled down and turned on the TV. His favorite show came to Izuku's attention and decided he would watch it later. Deku falls asleep and wakes up at 4 p.m. Deku wakes up about 3 hours later. He was still a bit sore but decided to keep training, but before that, he had to study for his test on Wednesday. So about an hour and a half later, he finished studying and his homework. He watched a hero training his body. He used weighted clothing and he decided to try that method of training, so he went to the store. Deku got 4 10-pound weights and ate 5 pounds. The first thing he did was put 1 10 pounds and 1 5 on his wrist. They were pretty heavy, so Deku started to practice martial arts by tutorials on HeroTube. About 6 months passed and the whole beach was cleaned by him and Mirio. Now all Izuku had to worry about was his classwork while Mirio was training on the beach just for All Might to be completely sure he was ready for one for all. So for the last few months, Izuku would train with 40-pound weights and go to martial arts classes while watching a bit of All Might videos here and there. He would end up knowing how to use small little blasts and a large energy wave, but he had an idea what he should call it. Tokyo Blast. He came up with this cause he thought about how All Might name his moves after states. He would name his after cities in Japan, and before Izuku knew it, it was time for the UA entrance exams. When he got there, he was more confident yet nervous. He still trips and gets saved by Uraraka. Izuku stood up and Uraraka asked if he was alright. She continued to say how he is so nerve-wracking. While talking to her, he noticed he had to look down to talk to her. He just now noticed he had grown 3 more inches. He was surprised he had grown so much. After this, they both walked in and separated. Izuku found out what city he was going to test in and stood in front of the gates as President Mike said go. Izuku ran into the crowd and got ahead of everyone in an instant. He racked up points as if it was nothing. 20, 40, 70. They were going up faster and faster. It seemed as if they weren't going to be any left for anyone else. A huge robot appears. Everyone's scared by this and runs away, but Izuku just continues to get points. Then Deku hears someone asking for help. He turned around and saw the girl that helped him in the front was going to be killed, so he started running toward him. He couldn't control his body. It was as if his body was moving on his own. When he jumped, he got up to the robot's hand and started to run up its arm. He started to charge up the Tokyo Blast. While charging it, he jumped off to the side from the robot's shoulder and blasted it, almost obliterating the whole top half. Everyone watched in amazement as they all saw at how powerful he was. Once he landed on the ground, he created a crater, and the timer ended. After this, he walks away confident that he passed while everyone else is in shock by the sheer amount of power this kid had. In the next week, he easily got accepted into UA. Next day, Deku walks into class and everyone looks at him and are all thinking, hey, that's the kid that scored number 1 in this timeline. Uraraka is madly in love with Deku but doesn't know how to express it because of his heroic act. Aizawa gets out of his sleeping bag and says it took you 8 seconds to shut up. That won't do. Rational students would know that. Deku questions, if this is my teacher, why was he in a sleeping bag? He introduces himself and tells everyone to put on their P clothes for a quick assessment. Same order as in the anime. Bakago gets 705.2 meters. Then he explains to the class the person who's last gets expelled. The same thing as the anime. Bakugo and Deku start to race. Deku speed blitzes Bakugo, and instead of getting 7.51 seconds, he gets 5 seconds. Aizawa is surprised by him able to do a 50 meters sprint in 0.5 seconds but says speed isn't only going to save him. Bakugo is screaming, damn nerd, how can that monkey be faster than me? Grip test, he gets 56.0 kilograms in the anime, but this time his power and training would come to play and increase his grip strength to 2,903.5 kg or about 6,401.1 pounds. Then the final challenge, the ball throw. Deku thinks about his mom cheering for him and All Might saying, young man, you too can become a hero. He uses some of his power and yells Fukuyama smash. The ball shoots up to the sky to the point where it burns up by just the sheer speed it was going. Aizawa shows the distance of 5,500 m before the ball was burnt into crisps. All might be impressed by this score. Everyone else is shocked. And Bakago is shouting himself, how can this monkey boy be greater than me? I am the #1 student here. The test went on and Deku was #1 in all of them except for the ball throw since Uraraka was infinite. Since in the original Aizawa didn't expel Deku because of the potential he had but minded he would be expelled. Deku gets the same hero suit and fast forwards towards to the first training. Same team as in the anime and matchups is still the same too. Everything's the same until we see Deku and Uraraka versus Bakugo and Idea. Bakugo tries to jump Deku but Deku reacts. It hits him with a small weak blast trying not to hurt him. But it sent him flying towards the wall. In a desperate manner, he rushes back and yells, damn monkey boy, I won't lose to a nerd like you. I am the #1 student here. Deku tells Uraraka to go towards the missile as planned, and he'll catch up to her once possible. He tries and tries again. Deku reaction speed and fighting speed is simply too much for him. He dodges and counters Bakugo blow after blow. Bakugo gets mad and starts forgetting about the environment destroying the building. Deku realizes he needs to knock him out to stop him. So, he waits for Bakugo to charge and then he jumps on his head with a fraction of his power. So he doesn't kill him, which launches him through the roof, reaching Idea and knocking out Bakago. Uraraka is hiding waiting for Deku to arrive. But Idea notices her and tells her to come out. I know you're there, in a villain's voice. Suddenly, a loud bam comes straight from below. It was Deku. This surprised Idea and caught him off guard. Deku exploits this and then yells Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash. Deku launches a punch that sends a sharpshooting airwave, which hits Idea in the stomach, launching him away from the rocket that lets Tima get the rocket. Everyone shocked again by his mere power being able to knock out Bakugo. Rest of the matchup and results is the same. Bakugo later asks what simply be that quirk. Deku say he simply doesn't know. Early in the morning, All Might call Deku in for a quick meeting with Mirio. All Might say thank you for coming. All Might say, I believe you are the best person. I could tell this because of your heroic action of saving that boy. I felt like you probably were wondering why Mirio was training on the beach with me. All Might say, when I do you must keep it a secret or else this whole world and you can be in danger. Are you up for the task? Deku says yes, I am. All Might start explains I'm quirkless. And my quirk called One for All was given to me. Deku says how that's impossible. There's no way a quirk can be passed down like that. All Might reply yes, it might sound exotic, but please let me finish. You see, the origins of this was long ago, a man with a quirk that could steal quirks and give them away forcibly gave his seemingly quirkless little brother a quirk that allowed him to stockpile power in his body. However, the little brother already had a quirk with no effect other than that it could be transferred to others. The little brother's quirk and the quirk given to him by his older brother merged and became one for all. The little brother somehow discovered this. He had a strong sense of justice, and he tried to defeat all first, but given the huge difference in their abilities, the brother failed. The little brother decided to entrust the quirk to future generations of heroes, hoping that they would cultivate One for All in one day complete All for One. Few knew the truth about One for All. The quirk was passed down through 9 generations, growing stronger with time. Currently, One for All is one of the most powerful quirks in existence, although it is quite difficult to master. I passed down my quirk to Mirio since he has amazing potential. I was thinking about giving it to you since the power you displayed, but I realized I already had my successor chosen, and also I was afraid your body wasn't built for it and it would take too long for it to be built for it. Deku is sad and disappointed that he could have been the potential successor of All Might. All Might see this and says no need to threat. You have great potential. You destroyed that reboot and was temporarily able to handle that sludge villain. Keep training and lighting up because a hero can't become a hero if they don't smile. Deku says thank you and walks out the door. As much happens as in the anime with the news outlets swarming UA because All Might teach there. Deku and Uraraka learning about Ida family. Deku tells both them this, you must not tell this to anyone, but if I look at a full moon with my tail I'll turn into a big ape, and I have no control over it. Both noticed that they were scared. He says there is a way to stop me if that happens, to cut off my tail at least. That's what my mom says. The mob of the crowd happens like in the anime with Ida stopping it. Again, same thing as the anime, nothing much. Deku is not a class rep and Ida is instead. All Might see kids being in arms hold by a villain and yells Missouri smash and then heads off clearing 7 crimes in an hour. Klasa goes off to the USJ site with All Might having to stay behind because he used too much of his time. A strange black-purplish portal pops up with the League of Villains showing up. Aizawa starts fighting villains that are trying attacking the students. Another black portal appears. Everyone gets split up as normally accepted for no invisible girl. Deku, Froppy, And Might to perform the same combo move as the last Deku uses Kyoto Blast, he sends a big green wave which hits the water making a whirlpool, then Minta throws his balls sticking them. As they land froppy, Deku and Minta see Aizawa bleeding and his skin cracking because of this. Deku powers up, green energy is around him and jumps in with a punch to help, but then the Namu comes and tanks the hit with little no damage and shock. The Namu punches Deku in the stomach sending him flying. Deku could take this hit well because he was training his abs this month with the weighted clothing and supernatural durability. He lands on the ground and charges right back, simply pure strength. He punches the Namu with all his might. The Nomu tanks the hit, but then Deku charges a Tokyo Blast which blows up right in the Nomu face. Deku gets launched back by the sheer waves. The smoke clears up, the Nomu lower body is gone but then regenerates. Deku is shocked by even with that blast he could still keep on going even with the regeneration. The Namu charges and about to strike another blow. Deku tries to react to it but he is too injured to, but suddenly All Might dash in and blocks the punch easily and jabs the Namu in the sides, no effect. All Might says, I'm almost out of time, but I got to stop these guys because I am the world's symbol of peace and justice. All Might and the Namu go toe-to-toe with each other, exchanging punches. Every punch were more powerful and precise. Everyone is getting blown back by simply the sheer winds of their fight. All Might is not looking so good even with his effort. The Nomu jabs him in his injury spot. All Might gets sent flight to the ground and quickly gets up. Nomu gives him no time in rushing in but gets blown back by Deku's Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash. All Might shout nice one and then says give me backup fire. Deku says okay. All Might keep exchanging punches with the Nomu. As the Nomu about to land a punch, All Might jump away and shouts now. Deku launches another Kai Blast pushing it back. All Might say like that keeps on going. With the combo of Deku blasts and All Might fists, Nomu start to wear down but it's not over yet. Nomu roars slapping All Might out of how and tries punch Deku but All Might block it with his arm. That's enough. All Might kick the name away. And they start exchanging fist again. Trees are breaking, the ground is shaking and cracking. All Might scream, if you're made to fight against me, if you're able to withstand 100% of my power, then I'll have to go beyond that and force you to surrender. The remaining class see this and gets Ida to run over and get the heroes. Fight rages on with All Might turn the tables with breaking his limits. Each punch is more than 100% of his power. The Nomu charges back. All Might start hitting the Namu in mid-air, punch after punch, launching it into the air. He jumps up, beating it more and more. Finally, he grabs the Nomu legs and slams it towards the ground and says, now for a lesson. You may have heard of these words before. Go beyond plus ultra. Namu gets sent flying into the sky like Team Rockets. The mere shock waves from this attack send everyone flying, destroying almost the site except for the entrance. This game-ending final blow by All Might starts to drain All Might and his from starts to wear off with steam coming everywhere. He uses this to scare the villains to leave, working until the Tamura says hey, he looks like he is getting weaker. Deku wakes up from the blow and sees what's going on. He feels enraged, stressed about everyone knowing about All Might's secret, and filled with emotions he rages out with an amazing rage boost thanks to his Saiyan biology. He feels some energy bursting, throws his body aren't his quirk. He's engulfed by rage, fear, and sadness. He sparks up with green energy that is lighting around his body. It's Kai. He rushes and charging a powerful green blast in hands. He yells to Wakaio Blast. The energy from his hand shoots out into a large ball, engulfs Tamura and Kurogiri. The ball slams into a wall and exploding. All Might take this opportunity and tells the other students to run away and get everyone. The heroes still haven't arrived yet. 10 villains realize he's a threat and charge at him all at once. Deku powers up another blast in his hand with his green aura growing more fiercely. He shouts Kyoto Blast. This wave hits all 10 villains, launching them away with another big explosion. 10 more come. Deku sees all and runs faster than the speed of sound, punching all 10 villains in less than 0.5 seconds. Deku aura gets smaller, and he faints. Kurogiri and Tamura see this. They know they can't win but try to get Deku since he is knocked out and use him as a hostage, but the heroes arrive. Snipe arrives and shoots all the villains, fighting Kyoka, Momo, and Denki, and another 2 bullets at Tamura. Tamura screams in pain by being shot in the arm by the speed and power of the bullet. The heroes tell the rest of the students to get Deku and Eraserhead and run. They do so. Since heroes were too focused on saving the students, Tamura and Kurogiri teleported away with the rest of the little villains getting captured and arrested. Deku is in the nurse room with All Might and sees him. He asked if he is alright. All Might say yes, and asked Deku a question, what was that power back? Then, Deku replies with, I don't know, it felt like I had some sort of hidden power inside of me. All Might think to himself, could it be part of the quirk? No, it shouldn't be. He thinks that might be a hidden quirk that he never unlocked. It might have to do something with his tail. All Might say to himself, no time to question, I'll ask him later. My powers are slowly fading away. So how do I tell this to Deku? Deku gets the same hero suit and fast forwards towards to the first training. Same team as in the anime, and matchups is still the same too. Everything's the same until we see Deku and Uraraka versus Bakugo and Ida. Bakugo tries to jump Deku, but Deku reacts. It hits him with a small weak blast, trying not to hurt him, but it sent him flying towards to wall. In a desperate manner, he rushes back and yells, "Damn monkey boy, I won't lose to a nerd like you. I am the #1 student here." Deku tells Uraraka to go towards the missile as planned, and he'll catch up to her once possible. He tries and tries again. Deku reaction speed and fighting speed is simply too much for him. He dodges and counters Bakugo blow after blow. Bakugo gets mad and starts forgetting about the environment, destroying the building. Deku realizes he needs to knock him out to stop him. So, he waits for Bakugo to charge, and then he jumps on his head with a fraction of his power, so he doesn't kill him, which launches him through the roof, reaching Ida and knocking out Bakugo. Uraraka is hiding, waiting for Deku to arrive, but Ida notices her and tells her to come out. "I know you're there," in a villain's voice. Suddenly, a loud bam comes straight from below. It was Deku. This surprised Ida and caught him off guard. Deku exploits this and then yells, "Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash." Deku launches a punch that sends a sharpshooting airwave, which hits Ida in the stomach, launching him away from the rocket that lets Tima get the rocket. Everyone shocked again by his mere power being able to knock out Bakugo. Rest of the matchup and results is the same. Bakugo later asks what simply be that quirk. Deku say he simply doesn't know. Early in the morning, All Might call Deku in for a quick meeting with Mirio. All Might say, "Thank you for coming." All Might say, "I believe you are the best person. I could tell this because of your heroic action of saving that boy. I felt like you probably were wondering why Mirio was training on the beach with me." All Might say, "When I do, you must keep it a secret or else this whole world and you can be in danger. Are you up for the task?" Deku says, "Yes, I am." All Might start explains, "I'm quirkless, and my quirk called One for All was given to me." Deku says, "How? That's impossible. There's no way a quirk can be passed down like that." All Might reply, "Yes, it might sound exotic, but please let me finish. You see, the origins of this was long ago. A man with a quirk that could steal quirks and give them away forcibly gave his seemingly quirkless little brother a quirk that allowed him to stockpile power in his body. However, the little brother already had a quirk with no effect other than that it could be transferred to others. The little brother's quirk and the quirk given to him by his older brother merged and became one for all. The little brother somehow discovered this. He had a strong sense of justice, and he tried to defeat all first, but given the huge difference in their abilities, the brother failed. The little brother decided to entrust the quirk to future generations of heroes, hoping that they would cultivate One for All in one day complete All for One. Few knew the truth about One for All. The quirk was passed down through 9 generations, growing stronger with time. Currently, One for All is one of the most powerful quirks in existence, although it is quite difficult to master. I passed down my quirk to Mirio since he has amazing potential. I was thinking about giving it to you since the power you displayed, but I realized I already had my successor chosen, and also I was afraid your body wasn't built for it and it would take too long for it to be built for it." Deku is sad and disappointed that he could have been the potential successor of All Might. All Might see this and says, "No need to threat. You have great potential. You destroyed that reboot and was temporarily able to handle that sludge villain. Keep training and lighting up because a hero can't become a hero if they don't smile." Deku says thank you and walks out the door. As much happens as in the anime with the news outlets swarming UA because All Might teach there. Deku and Uraraka learning about Ida family. Deku tells both them this, "You must not tell this to anyone, but if I look at a full moon with my tail, I'll turn into a big ape, and I have no control over it." Both noticed that they were scared. He says, "There is a way to stop me if that happens, to cut off my tail at least. That's what my mom says." The mob of the crowd happens like in the anime with Ida stopping it. Again, same thing as the anime, nothing much. Deku is not a class rep and Ida is instead. All Might see kids being in arms hold by a villain and yells Missouri smash and then heads off, clearing 7 crimes in an hour. Klasa goes off to the USJ site with All Might having to stay behind because he used too much of his time. A strange black-purplish portal pops up with the League of Villains showing up. Aizawa starts fighting villains that are trying attacking the students. Another black portal appears. Everyone gets split up as normally accepted for no invisible girl. Deku, Froppy, and Minda perform the same combo move as the last. Deku uses Kyoto Blast. He sends a big green wave which hits the water making a whirlpool, then Minda throws his balls sticking them. As they land, Froppy, Deku and Minda see Aizawa bleeding and his skin cracking because of this. Deku powers up, green energy is around him and jumps in with a punch to help, but then the Namu comes and tanks the hit with little no damage and shock. The Namu punches Deku in the stomach, sending him flying. Deku could take this hit well because he was training his abs this month with the weighted clothing and supernatural durability. He lands on the ground and charges right back, simply pure strength. He punches the Namu with all his might. The Nomu tanks the hit, but then Deku charges a Tokyo Blast which blows up right in the Nomu face. Deku gets launched back by the sheer waves. The smoke clears up, the Nomu lower body is gone but then regenerates. Deku is shocked by even with that blast he could still keep on going even with the regeneration. The Namu charges and about to strike another blow. Deku tries to react to it but he is too injured to. But suddenly All Might dash in and blocks the punch easily and jabs the Namu in the sides. No effect. All Might says, "I'm almost out of time, but I got to stop these guys because I am the world's symbol of peace and justice." All Might and the Namu go toe-to-toe with each other, exchanging punches. Every punch were more powerful and precise. Everyone is getting blown back by simply the sheer winds of their fight. All Might is not looking so good even with his effort. The Nomu jabs him in his injury spot. All Might gets sent flight to the ground and quickly gets up. Nomu gives him no time and rushing in but gets blown back by Deku's Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash. All Might shout "nice one" and then says, "Give me backup fire." Deku says okay. All Might keep exchanging punches with the Nomu. As the Nomu about to land a punch, All Might jump away and shouts now. Deku launches another Kai Blast pushing it back. All Might say like that keeps on going. With the combo of Deku blasts and All Might fists, Nomu start to wear down but it's not over yet. Nomu roars, slapping All Might out of how and tries punch Deku but All Might block it with his arm. That's enough. All Might kick the name away. And they start exchanging fist again. Trees are breaking, the ground is shaking and cracking. All Might scream, "If you're made to fight against me, if you're able to withstand 100% of my power, then I'll have to go beyond that and force you to surrender." The remaining class see this and gets Ida to run over and get the heroes. Fight rages on with All Might turn the tables with breaking his limits. Each punch is more than 100% of his power. The Nomu charges back. All Might start hitting the Namu in mid-air, punch after punch, launching it into the air. He jumps up, beating it more and more. Finally, he grabs the Nomu legs and slams it towards the ground and says, "Now for a lesson. You may have heard of these words before. Go beyond plus ultra." Namu gets sent flying into the sky like Team Rockets. The mere shock waves from this attack send everyone flying, destroying almost the site except for the entrance. This game-ending final blow by All Might starts to drain All Might, and his form starts to wear off with steam coming everywhere. He uses this to scare the villains to leave, working until the Tamura says, "Hey, he looks like he is getting weaker." Deku wakes up from the blow and sees what's going on. He feels enraged, stressed about everyone knowing about All Might's secret, and filled with emotions, he rages out with an amazing rage boost thanks to his Saiyan biology. He feels some energy bursting, throws his body aren't his quirk. He's engulfed by rage, fear, and sadness. He sparks up with green energy that is lighting around his body. It's Kai. He rushes and charging a powerful green blast in hands. He yells to Wakaio Blast. The energy from his hand shoots out into a large ball, engulfs Tamura and Kurogiri. The ball slams into a wall and exploding. All Might take this opportunity and tells the other students to run away and get everyone. The heroes still haven't arrived yet. 10 villains realize he's a threat and charge at him all at once. Deku powers up another blast in his hand with his green aura growing more fiercely. He shouts Kaio to blast. This wave hits all 10 villains, launching them away with another big explosion. 10 more come. Deku sees all and runs faster than the speed of sound, punching all 10 villains in less than 0.5 seconds. Deku aura gets smaller, and he faints. Kurogiri and Tamura see this. They know they can't win but try to get Deku since he is knocked out and use him as a hostage, but the heroes arrive. Snipe arrives and shoots all the villains, fighting Kyoka, Momo, and Denki, and another 2 bullets at Tamura. Tamura screams in pain by being shot in the arm by the speed and power of the bullet. The heroes tell the rest of the students to get Deku and Eraserhead and run. They do so. Since heroes were too focused on saving the students, Tamura and Kurogiri teleported away with the rest of the little villains getting captured and arrested. Deku is in the nurse room with All Might and sees him. He asked if he is alright. All Might say yes, and asked Deku a question: what was that power back then? Deku replies with, "I don't know, it felt like I had some sort of hidden power inside of me." All Might think to himself, could it be part of the quirk? No, it shouldn't be. He thinks that might be a hidden quirk that he never unlocked. It might have to do something with his tail. All Might say to himself, "No time to question, I'll ask him later. My powers are slowly fading away. So how do I tell this to Deku?" It's been a few weeks ever since the Usch attack and all the commotion has started to settle down. Izuku was very pleased of how useful he was fighting the Namu after all. He could destroy a portion of the Namu, but that had happened a while ago, and he thinks he should go back to training. But before he could finish his thought, he was interrupted by his teacher. He explained that the sports festival's coming up and that they should all train her hardest this next 2 weeks. If they wanted to reach the top, they must win. Everybody started jumping with excitement, knowing that this is the one chance they had to show what they had. After this class ended, and the day went as normal, they all went home. Deku put on his weighted clothing and started to work out. Everyone else trained hard for the next 2 weeks. He learned a way to amp his strength, speed, Kai, and everything about him by a multiplier, but he finds out these wear him down a ton. He calls this technique the Jasu Jujutsu. Then, the festival came. They all walked into the stadium, and Present Mike announced that the first challenge would be a race, and on his mark, it would start 3-2 Uni go. Everyone went through the same tunnel, but Izuku improvised. He jumped over the building and gained. Also, he kept running and didn't stop. Then, he got to the rope and started to hop to each platform, leading him to the explosive mine section. He ran so fast that once he got to the end, all the mines went off at the same time. Idia did the same, but barely pulled it off. Todoroki came in second and Bakugo in third. The second event was announced. It would be a horse race. It would be a team of 4 with 1 rider and 3 horse. Izuku knew exactly who to choose. He immediately went for Tomoyami, and Shoji Tokoyami would protect the horses with Dark Shadow because he could monitor 350 degrees, and Shoji would make it impossible to take the flag. Ochako would be the rider and Izuku would be in the back. Ochako would then use her quirk on all. They would easily avoid everyone. But the problem would come up to Todoroki, but no matter how much they would try, they wouldn't prevail Izuku and the others. Izuku groups ended up being number 1 then. The final event would begin. The first match would be Izuku versus Shinzui. Present Mike says the first one that's unable to fight or is out of the white line loses. Ready, set, go. Shinzui says, "Hi. My name is Shinzui, what's yours?" Deku replies with, "I am Izuku Midoriya and I will defeat you right here." Shinzu smirks. Izuku questions what's he smirking about, but then Izuku's body starts moving on its own towards the line. The crowd is confused on what's going on, and Present Mike yells, "It seems Izuku is walking out of the ring. Why is he doing that, Aizawa?" Aizawa says it's probably the other kid's quirk. Izuku is panicking and trying to stop, but it isn't working. Izuku is getting closer to the line when suddenly he accidentally trips over his tail and facepalms on the area, snapping him out of the mind control. Shinsu is surprised that he manages to get out of his mind control. Izuku gets up wondering what happens, but then realizes it was the kid's the quirk. As Shinsu tries to make Izuku speak again, but this time it doesn't work. Izuku thinks to himself, how is he able to do this? Well, since I don't know how his quirk works, I the best simply finish here. Deku runs to Shinsu so fast that he looks like a blur and punches Shinsu in the stomach, launching him out of the ring. The crowd and everyone watching are shocked by what simply happened. Present Mike yells, "Well, what simply happened? What was that speed?" Well, the winner of the first round goes to Izuku Midori. The crowd cheers Izuku, Izuku, Izuku in amazement of the match. Izuku smiles because of this and walks out of the arena. All Might sees this and shocked and starts to regret giving his quirk to Myro. Rest of the matches goes the same as in the anime. Before the second match, Izuku runs into Endeavor and looks at Izuku and says, "I see your strength, don't restrain on Shadow, make him use his fire." Izuku replies, "No, Todoroki isn't a tool, he's your son." He walks past him. He's onto the match. Present Mike says, "On the right side we got the number 2 heroes kid, half hot half cold temperature, Shoto Todoroki. And on the left side, we got the kid that has a monkey tail that's number 1 in everything in this sports festival so far, Izuku Midoriya." Between him and Shadow, Izuki and Todoroki both walk onto the arena, and Todoroki says, "Let's get this over with," and he makes a giant iceberg. Everyone think the match is over, then they hear Tokoyo blast. He destroys the iceberg and his muscles start to bulge. Green energy starts to grow viscously. Izuku powers up and yells, "Jasu Jujutsu ×2. Todoroki launches another large ice attack. Izuku yells, "Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash." He punches, launching a huge narrow airwave, shattering the ice and hitting Todoroki in the cheeks, launching him. Izuku powers down. Because he doesn't want to waste stamina this early, he runs towards Todoroki. Todoroki sees this and tries to slow him down with ice, but Deku simply runs through the ice, breaking it. Izuku is up close and ready to hit Todoroki, but Todoroki jumps away and starts making a trail of ice and ice skating around. He thinks to himself and says, "It looks like he only has close range attacks. If I can keep my distance and wear him out, I'll win." Deku tries to chase after him, but slips on the ice. Todoroki takes the chance and slams him with ice. Izuku gets up and powers up, flying towards Todoroki so fast that Todoroki can't see him. He slams Todoroki, launching him sideways, and then fires 5 Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash, each punching him in the guts, sending him flying. Todoroki is on the ground, clutching his stomach, trying to get up. Izuku says, "Look at you, your denial of your father is holding you back." Shoto says, "Shut up, you have nothing to do with me." Izuku says, "It's your quirk, not his. You know how many people try to get in here, but people like you don't appreciate it when you get in." Suddenly, a giant burst of fire engulfed the stadium. Shoto says, how much did Endeavor pay you to get me to use my fire side? Izuku says, he never paid me, I'm just disappointed that you're denying your own power. As Hodo says, I'll never become what my father is. Izuku yells back, that quirk is yours, not his, and if you don't expect that, I'll defeat you here and now. Izuku charges forward for a finishing blow. Shoto thinks about his past and what Izuku said. Shoto launches a hot fire and then ice and then fire back to back. A big explosion happens and the crowd is shocked by the words the two boys were giving and thinking Izuku was done for. Todoroki says, thank you, Izuku. The green light comes from the gray clouds and starts to shoot up into the air. It's Izuku. Everyone's surprised because they didn't know he can fly. Also because of this, they start thinking he has 3 quirks. Deku bluff and yells, I'll use my full power on this one. You might want to try this time or else you lose. Deku powers up and spreads his arms out and starts charging 2 big green energy balls in his hand and brings his hand and energy together, making 1 big energy blast. Todoroki says to himself, I won't lose to a person like him. He starts using his fire into the beam and launches it towards Deku. Deku yells, Sapporo Buru Blast. The teacher starts asking, should we stop this? And the principal says no. Present Mike yells, whoa, their super moves are about to collide, take cover. The huge energy shoots out from Deku hands, colliding with Todoroki's blast. The beams struggle to cause a cool flash of colors and strong winds throughout the area. Suddenly, Todoroki beam gets pushed back. Todoroki yells, Nanny. Deku says, you tried, but this is the end, and yells, max power. The beam pushing Todoroki blasts quickly and hits the arena and starts to expand in a big sphere, and then explodes. The fierce explosion causing massive winds that are displacing everyone, and the arena is shaking like an earthquake. The wind from the blast and the shaking stops, then everyone sees from the dust Todoroki knocked out while Deku is standing. Present Mike says, oh my goodness. Would you look at these folks? Todoroki is unable to battle, which means Izuku is the winner. Deku walks to Todoroki and gives his hand to him. Todoroki takes it and Deku pulls him up, saying, good match. Todoroki says the same and faints. The medics get him to the nurse. Present Mike says because of their power super moves, the arena is destroyed. It will take about 3 hours to repair, so we'll be on a break. It's been a few weeks ever since the Ust attack and all the commotion has started to settle down. Izuku was very pleased of how useful he was fighting the Namu after all. He could destroy a portion of the Namu, but that had happened a while ago, and he thinks he should go back to training, but before he could finish his thought, he was interrupted by his teacher. He explained that the sports festival's coming up and that they should all train their hardest this next 2 weeks. If they wanted to reach the top, they must win. Everybody started jumping with excitement, knowing that this is the one chance they had to show what they had. After this class ended, and the day went as normal, they all went home. Deku put on his weighted clothing and started to work out. Everyone else trained hard for the next 2 weeks. He learned a way to amp his strength, speed, Kai, and everything about him by a multiplier, but he finds out these wear him down a ton. He calls this technique the Jasu Jujutsu. Then, the festival came. They all walked into the stadium and Present Mike announced that the first challenge would be a race, and on his mark, it would start 3, 2, uni, go. Everyone went through the same tunnel, but Izuku improvised. He jumped over the building and gained. Also, he kept running and didn't stop. Then, he got to the rope and started to hop to each platform, leading him to the explosive mine section. He ran so fast that once he got to the end, all the mines went off at the same time. Idia did the same, but barely pulled it off. Todoroki came in second and Bakugo in third. The second event was announced. It would be a horse race. It would be a team of 4 with 1 rider and 3 horse. Izuku knew exactly who to choose. He immediately went for Tomoyami, and Shoji Tokoyami would protect the horses with Dark Shadow because he could monitor 350 degrees, and Shoji would make it impossible to take the flag. Achako would be the rider and Izuku would be in the back. Achako would then use her quirk on all. They would easily avoid everyone. But the problem would come up to Todoroki, but no matter how much they would try, they wouldn't prevail Izuku and the others. Izuku groups ended up being number 1 then. The final event would begin. The first match would be Izuku versus Shinzui. Present Mike says the first one that's unable to fight or is out of the white line loses. Ready, set, go. Shinzui says, hi. My name is Shinzui, what's yours? Deku replies with, I am Izuku Midoriya and I will defeat you right here. Shinzu smirks. Izuku questions what's he smirking about, but then Izuku's body starts moving on its own towards the line. The crowd is confused on what's going on and Present Mike yells, it seems Izuku is walking out of the ring. Why is he doing that, Aizawa? Aizawa says it's probably the other kid's quirk. Izuku is panicking and trying to stop, but it isn't working. Izuku is getting closer to the line when suddenly he accidentally trips over his tail and facepalms on the area, snapping him out of the mind control. Shinsu is surprised that he manages to get out of his mind control. Izuku gets up wondering what happens, but then realizes it was the kid's the quirk. As Shinsu tries to make Izuku speak again, but this time it doesn't work. Izuku thinks to himself, how is he able to do this? Well, since I don't know how his quirk works, I the best simply finish here. Deku runs to Shinsu so fast that he looks like a blur and punches Shinsu in the stomach, launching him out of the ring. The crowd and everyone watching are shocked by what simply happened. Present Mike yells, "Well, what simply happened? What was that speed?" Well, the winner of the first round goes to Izuku Midori. The crowd cheers Izuku in amazement of the match. Izuku smiles because of this and walks out of the arena. All Might sees this and shocked and starts to regret giving his quirk to Myro. Rest of the matches goes the same as in the anime. Before the second match, Izuku runs into Endeavor and looks at Izuku and says, "I see your strength, don't restrain on Shadow, make him use his fire." Izuku replies, "No, Todoroki isn't a tool, he's your son." He walks past him. He's onto the match. Present Mike says, "On the right side we got the number 2 heroes kid, half hot half cold temperature, Shoto Todoroki. And on the left side, we got the kid that has a monkey tail that's number 1 in everything in this sports festival so far, Izuku Midoriya." Between him and Shadow, Izuki and Todoroki both walk onto the arena and Todoroki says, "Let's get this over with," and he makes a giant iceberg. Everyone think the match is over, then they hear Tokoyo blast. He destroys the iceberg and his muscles start to bulge. Green energy starts to grow viscously. Izuku powers up and yells, "Jasu Jujutsu ×2. Todoroki launches another large ice attack. Izuku yells, "Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash." He punches, launching a huge narrow airwave, shattering the ice and hitting Todoroki in the cheeks, launching him. Izuku powers down. Because he doesn't want to waste stamina this early, he runs towards Todoroki. Todoroki sees this and tries to slow him down with ice, but Deku simply runs through the ice, breaking it. Izuku is up close and ready to hit Todoroki, but Todoroki jumps away and starts making a trail of ice and ice skating around. He thinks to himself and says, "It looks like he only has close range attacks. If I can keep my distance and wear him out, I'll win." Deku tries to chase after him, but slips on the ice. Todoroki takes the chance and slams him with ice. Izuku gets up and powers up, flying towards Todoroki so fast that Todoroki can't see him. He slams Todoroki, launching him sideways, and then fires 5 Kitakyushu Windy Vortex Smash, each punching him in the guts, sending him flying. Todoroki is on the ground, clutching his stomach, trying to get up. Izuku says, "Look at you, your denial of your father is holding you back." Shoto says, "Shut up, you have nothing to do with me." Izuku says, "It's your quirk, not his. You know how many people try to get in here, but people like you don't appreciate it when you get in." Suddenly, a giant burst of fire engulfed the stadium. Shoto says, "How much did Endeavor pay you to get me to use my fireside?" Izuku says, "He never paid me, I'm just disappointed that you're denying your own power." Shoto says, "I'll never become what my father is." Izuku yells back, "That quirk is yours, not his, and if you don't expect that, I'll defeat you here and now." Izuku charges forward for a finishing blow. Shoto thinks about his past and what Izuku said. Shoto launches a hot fire and then ice and then fire back to back. A big explosion happens and the crowd is shocked by the words the two boys were giving and thinking Izuku was done for. Todoroki says, "Thank you, Izuku." The green light comes from the gray clouds and starts to shoot up into the air. It's Izuku. Everyone's surprised because they didn't know he can fly. Also because of this, they start thinking he has 3 quirks. Deku bluff and yells, "I'll use my full power on this one. You might want to try this time or else you lose." Deku powers up and spreads his arms out and starts charging 2 big green energy balls in his hand and brings his hand and energy together, making 1 big energy blast. Todoroki says to himself, "I won't lose to a person like him." He starts using his fire into a beam and launches it towards Deku. Deku yells, "Sapporo Buru Blast." The teacher starts asking, "Should we stop this?" And the principal says no. Present Mike yells, "Whoa, their super moves are about to collide, take cover." A huge energy shoots out from Deku hands, colliding with Todoroki's blast. The beams struggle to cause a cool flash of colors and strong winds throughout the area. Suddenly, Todoroki beam gets pushed back. Todoroki yells, "Nanny." Deku says, "You tried, but this is the end," and yells, "Max power." The beam pushing Todoroki blasts quickly and hits the arena and starts to expand in a big sphere, and then explodes. The fierce explosion causing massive winds that are displacing everyone, and the arena is shaking like an earthquake. The wind from the blast and the shaking stops, then everyone sees from the dust Todoroki knocked out while Deku is standing. Present Mike says, "Oh my goodness. Would you look at these folks?" Todoroki is unable to battle, which means Izuku is the winner. Deku walks to Todoroki and gives his hand to him. Todoroki takes it and Deku pulls him up, saying, "Good match." Todoroki says the same and faints. The medics get him to the nurse. Present Mike says because of their power super moves, the arena is destroyed. It will take about 3 hours to repair, so we'll be on a break. After the stadium was prepared, all the fights would go to like in the anime, but Izuku would be the one to fight Ida. They both walk onto the stage. Izuku bows and gets into his fighting stance. Ida does the same and says, I hope one of us wins. I care which one, we have both tried our hardest to get here. Izuku nods and Present Mike says go. Idiot rushes towards Izuku with a RESEPRO burst and tries to push him off. But Izuku dodges this, surprised the whole crowd since the Recepro burst was so fast. How could Izuku have moved faster? Izuku then says, "Sorry, but I want to be number one." The last words he heard before being knocked out were Kitakyushu Windy Vortex. Present Mike announces moved the crowd that Izuku win and the next few battles would go by fast, and then the battle of Bakugo and Izuku begins. Bakugo doesn't feel afraid. He thinks he can easily destroy Deku. After this fight they will need to take you to the Izuku grins and replies, "I doubt it. If anything, you would have to retire early cause of this fight." Bakugo is confused and thinks if this is the Izuku he has known for most of their childhood. Present Mike starts to narrate and scream go. Bakugo charges and for an explosion prepares himself to take the hit, but Bakugo blasts himself up to get behind Izuku and blast him, sending him flying. Deku lands on his feet and wipes the blood off his nose and says that we're pretty good now, I'm all warmed up. Bakugo says in rage and confusion, "Damn you monkey." He charges and for a punch Deku moves his head and dodges. Bakugo tries again and again, but all of his attempts are failures. Bakugo tries to go in for an explosion, but Deku pushes his arm away and slams him in the chest that sends him flying into the ground. Bakugo tries to get up, but barely can't. He asks Deku, "How did you get this much power? A powerless monkey like you shouldn't have this much powers." Deku replies with, "Well, you see, you're not dealing with the average powerless Deku anymore. I trained and trained to reach this level to surpass you, and I'll go beyond my limits and become the number one hero." This pisses Bakugo off, and he says, "Impossible, I'm supposed to be the best, not you. Grr, I'll win right here, right now." Bakugo gets up and grin. Deku gets ready for an attack. Bakugo charges forward. Deku launches 3 Kyoto Blast at him. Bakugo dodges them and gets right up close. Deku tries to dodge, but Bakugo lets out a huge explosion, blasting Deku back. He uses the smoke from the explosion to sneak up on Deku. Deku sends his present and throws punch, but nothing there. Bakugo comes from behind with another explosion larger than before, launching Deku again. Bakugo charges at Deku to stop him for recovering from the attack, but Deku counters this and flies up into the sky. Deku thinks to himself, "He can't reach me from here." Bakugo shouts, "Stop being a scared monkey or else I'll come up there to bring you down." Deku thinks he is bluffing, but Bakugo starts using his explosions to fly up towards Deku. Deku launches a ton of tiny Kai blasts to stop Bakugo, but Bakugo maneuvers around them pretty well while getting hit by a few. Bakugo goes up close for another explosion. Deku stops this by elbowing him in the stomach and then spins around and kicks him in the side, sending him back to the ground. Bakugo still isn't giving out. He flies back up and try again. Deku does the same thing as last, but Bakugo sees through this and says, "You forgot about my left hand," and launching an explosion, badly injuring Deku. Bakugo says, "I'm not done." Yet he rushes forward towards Deku to stop him for flying around and lands several punches. Then he throws Deku towards the ground with an explosion, causing a big cloud of smoke and dust to cover the arena. Deku thinks to himself, "If I can distract him and somehow get behind him, then how?" Then suddenly Deku thinks of an idea. Bakugo still in the air, using his explosion to keep him up and saying, "Pathetic monkey, it was fun while it lasted, but I'll always be number one." Thinks he's won, and so does Present Mike. Present Mike says, "Will we have?" And when a blast comes up, Bakugo dodges it. But then another one comes up, and he dodges that one too. Bakugo says, "Is that all you got?" Deku yells no, and powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X4. Deku flies down and kick Bakugo before he can react and launch him outside of the ring, knockout and in very bad condition. Present Mike yells the winner of the sports festival is Deku. The medic comes and takes him away to treat him. Deku body may be strained from the Jasu Jujutsu, but he's quite happy that he's won the sports festival. Deku stands on the first podium with excitement and joy, with Bakugo in second being so angry they had to chain him up, and Todoroki in third with no words at all. All Might jump down and give Deku the first place medal, saying, "Great job, young Meteora, you showed your strength, attitude, and will in this sports festival. You deserve this medal, congrats." All Might move the Bakugo and says, "Young Bakugo, you are strong, but the way you speak and you're angry needs to be controlled better." Bakugo shouts back, "Screw you," and tries to get out of the chains. All Might sees this, quickly puts the medal on this neck, and then leaves quickly to Todoroki. All Might says, "Todoroki, you may be strong, but you are too cocky. With some training, I see some great potential in you." The next day, everyone in class and Aizawa says, "We're choosing hero names and Midnight will be helping you guys with that." Idea asks, "Why not you?" Aizawa lies with, "Because I don't care," but secretly it's because he not good at names. Everybody names themselves the same, but when it's Bakugo's turn, everyone is speechless. Deku is horrified by the name. Bakugo shouts, "My name is King Explosion Monkey Murder." Midnight says, That's a terrible name. Bakago rewrites it and yells Lord King Explosion Monkey Murder, which makes the class and Deku in even more shock and fear. Midnight says that's not a good name again. Bakago shouts back, why the hell not? Midnight says, that name makes you sound like a villain and it's targeted to one specific person too. Bakago replies with, oh yeah, I'll make a new name out of you. He's about to attack Midnight, but she puts him to sleep and bring him back to this desk. Everyone is speechless because of this. Aniawa walks back in and says, thank you Midnight, I'll take it from here. Aniawa sees Bakago sleeping on his desk and slaps him with his cloth, waking him up. Bakago says, which one of you bastards did that? So I can blow you up. Aniawa deletes his quirk and wraps his cloth around his mouth and says, shut up kid, you shouldn't be so rowdy. Now we'll look at the offers you got from the hero agencies. In this Deku got the most offers out of everyone in the class. Everyone is amazed by this beside Bakago, which he coughs this off. Anazawa says, you guys got until today to choose your agencies. Deku has so many options what to choose. The bell rings and Idea, Uraraka, and Deku are walking down the hall. Idea asks both of them which hero agencies they are going to. Uraraka says she's doing Gunhead's office. Ida says he's going with his brother. Then they both ask Deku what hero agency is he going to. Deku says, I don't know too many of them to choose from. Suddenly All Might runs in and says, I am here. Young Midoriya, care to have lunch with me? Deku sits down with All Might and tells him he wants to give you something to repay you for me not giving you my quirk. Deku says, it's okay, but what is it? All Might says, young Midoriya, 4 have gotten a call with Gran Torino, my old trainer. Deku says, you were trained by Gran Torino. All Might says yes, and if he wants, he can intern with Gran Torino. Deku takes the offer and the next day he heads towards Gran Torino, and when he walks in he sees an old man covered in red liquid. Deku thinks he's dead, but Gran Torino pops up and say, hello, I split my tomato juice. Gran Torino says, so you're the boy who All Might is talking about? Interesting. Gran Torino says, well, get to training, and Deku says, we're training already, I'll hold back so I don't hurt your old body. Gran Torino says, there's no need to hold back, and runs towards Deku and disappears. Deku is shocked as he that fast and try to sense where he is. He feels him from behind, so he throws a punch and Gran Torino says, to slow, and hits Deku in the hips. Gran Torino says, now don't hold back because I'm only using 10% of my power. Deku is shocked and says, only 10%. Gran Torino says, I saw how you fight. You might have power in close and long range attacks, but your speed lacks a lot. Also, that technique you used against Bakago, I could tell you weren't ready to use that yet. I specialize in speed SP. This will help you. Now come at me. Deku runs and disappears too. Gran Torino starts to move even faster than before, enabling him to catch up to Deku and overpower him. Deku doesn't give up and increase his speed more. Gran Torino does the same too. There are just noises and waves coming from every attack they throw. Deku lands a good hit on Gran Torino, sending him flying towards his fridge. Gran Torino quickly rebounds back with even more and kicks Deku in the stomach, sending him into the ground. Gran Torino says to himself, this kid has some potential. Why didn't All Might give his quirk to him instead of Myra? Gran Torino says that, for now, let's have some lunch. After the stadium was prepared, all the fights would go to like in the anime, but Izuku would be the one to fight Ida. They both walk onto the stage. Izuku bows and gets into his fighting stance. Ida does the same and says, I hope one of us wins. I care which one, we have both tried our hardest to get here. Izuku nods and Present Mike says go. Idir rushes towards Izuku with a RESEPRO burst and tries to push him off. But Izuku dodges this, surprised the whole crowd since the Resepro burst was so fast. How could Izuku have moved faster? Izuku then says, sorry, but I want to be number 1. The last words he heard before being knocked out were Kitakyushu Windy Vortex. Present Mike announces moved the crowd that Izuku win, and the next few battles would go by fast, and then the battle of Bakugo and Izuku begins. Bakugo doesn't feel afraid. He thinks he can easily destroy Deku. After this fight they will need to take you to the Izuku grins and replies, I doubt it. If anything, you would have to retire early cause of this fight. Bakugo is confused and thinks if this is the Izuku he has known for most of their childhood. Present Mike starts to narrate and scream go. Bakago charges in for an explosion, prepares himself to take the hit, but Bakugo blasts himself up to get behind Izuku and blast him, sending him flying. Deku lands on his feet and wipes the blood off his nose and says that we're pretty good now, I'm all warmed up. Bakago says in rage and confusion, damn you monkey. He charges in for a punch. Deku moves his head and dodges. Bakago tries again and again, but all of his attempts are failures. Bakago tries to go in for an explosion, but Deku pushes his arm away and slam him in the chest that sends him flying into the ground. Bakago tries to get up, But barely can't he ask Deku, how did you get this much power? A powerless monkey like you shouldn't have this much powers. Deku replies with, well, you see, you're not dealing with the average powerless Deku anymore. I trained and trained to reach this level to surpass you, and I'll go beyond my limits and become the #1 hero. This pisses Bakago off. And he says, impossible, I'm supposed to be the best, not you. Grr, I'll win right here, right now. Bakago gets up, and Grin Deku gets ready for an attack. Bakago charges forward. Deku launches 3 Kyoto Blast at him. Bakago dodges them and gets right up close. Deku tries to dodge, but Bakago lets out a huge explosion, blasting Deku back. He uses the smoke from the explosion to sneak up on Deku. Deku senses present and throws punch, but nothing there. Bakago comes from behind with another explosion larger than before. Launching Deku again, Bakago charges at Deku to stop him for recovering from the attack, but Deku counters this and flies up into the sky. Deku thinks to himself, he can't reach me from here. Bakago shouts, stop being a scared monkey or else I'll come up there to bring you down. Deku thinks he is bluffing, but Bakago starts using his explosions to fly up towards Deku. Deku launches a ton of tiny Kai blasts to stop Bakago, but Bakago maneuvers around them pretty well while getting hit by a few. Bakago goes up close for another explosion. Deku stops this by elbowing him in the stomach and then spins around and kicks him in the side, sending him back to the ground. Bakago still isn't giving out. He flies back up and try again. Deku does the same thing as last, but Bakago sees through this and says, you forgot about my left hand, and launching an explosion, badly injuring Deku. Bakago says, I'm not done. Yet he rushes forward towards Deku to stop him for flying around and lands several punches. Then he throws Deku towards the ground with an explosion, causing a big cloud of smoke and dust to cover the arena. Deku thinks to himself, if I can distract him and somehow get behind him, then how? Then suddenly Deku thinks of an idea. Bakago still in the air, using his explosion to keep him up and saying, pathetic monkey, it was fun while it lasted, but I'll always be #1. Thinks he's won, and so does Present Mike. Present Mike says, will we have? And when a blast comes up, Bakago dodges it. But then another one comes up, and he dodges that one too. Bakago says, is that all you got? Deku yells no, and powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X4. Deku flies down and kick Bakago before he can react and launch him outside of the ring, knockout and in very bad condition. Present Mike yells the winner of the sports festival is Deku. The medic comes and takes him away to treat him. Deku body may be strained from the Jasu Jujutsu, but he's quite happy that he's won the sports festival. Deku stands on the first podium with excitement and joy, with Bakago in second being so angry they had to chain him up, and Todoroki in third with no words at all. All Might jump down and give Deku the first place medal, saying, great job, young Meteora, you showed your strength, attitude, and will in this sports festival. You deserve this medal, congrats. All Might move the Bakago and says, young Bakago, you are strong, but the way you speak and you're angry needs to be controlled better. Bakago shouts back, screw you, and tries to get out of the chains. All Might sees this and quickly puts the medal on this neck, and then leaves quickly to Todoroki. All Might says, Todoroki, you may be strong, but you are too cocky. With some training, I see some great potential in you. The next day, everyone in class and Aizawa says, we're choosing hero names and Midnight will be helping you guys with that. Idea asks, why not you? Aniawa lies with, because I don't care, but secretly it's because he not good at names. Everybody names themselves the same, but when it's Bakago's turn, everyone is speechless. Deku is horrified by the name. Bakago shouts, my name is King Explosion Monkey Murder. Midnight says, that's a terrible name. Bakago rewrites it and yells, Lord King Explosion Monkey Murder, which makes the class and Deku in even more shock and fear. Midnight says, that's not a good name again. Bakago shouts back, why the hell not? Midnight says, that name makes you sound like a villain and it's targeted to one specific person too. Bakago replies with, oh yeah, I'll make a new name out of you. He's about to attack Midnight, but she puts him to sleep and bring him back to this desk. Everyone is speechless because of this. Aniawa walks back in and says, thank you, Midnight, I'll take it from here. Aniawa sees Bakago sleeping on his desk and slaps him with his cloth, waking him up. Bakago says, which one of you bastards did that? So I can blow you up. Aniawa deletes his quirk and wraps his cloth around his mouth and says, shut up, kid, you shouldn't be so rowdy. Now we'll look at the offers you got from the hero agencies. In this, Deku got the most offers out of everyone in the class. Everyone is amazed by this beside Bakago, which he coughs this off. Anazawa says, you guys got until today to choose your agencies. Deku has so many options what to choose. The bell rings and Idea, Uraraka, and Deku are walking down the hall. Idea asks both of them which hero agencies they are going to. Uraraka says she's doing Gunhead's office. Ida says he's going with his brother. Then they both ask Deku what hero agency is he going to. Deku says, I don't know too many of them to choose from. Suddenly All Might runs in and says, I am here. Young Midoriya, care to have lunch with me? Deku sits down with All Might and tells him he wants to give you something to repay you for me not giving you my quirk. Deku says, it's okay, but what is it? All Might says, young Midoriya, 4 have gotten a call with Gran Torino, my old trainer. Deku says, you were trained by Gran Torino. All Might says yes, and if he wants, he can intern with Gran Torino. Deku takes the offer, and the next day he heads towards Gran Torino, and when he walks in he sees an old man covered in red liquid. Deku thinks he's dead, but Gran Torino pops up and say, hello, I split my tomato juice. Gran Torino says, so you're the boy who All Might is talking about? Interesting. Gran Torino says, well, get to training, and Deku says, we're training already, I'll hold back so I don't hurt your old body. Gran Torino says, there's no need to hold back, and runs towards Deku and disappears. Deku is shocked, is he that fast? And try to sense where he is. He feels him from behind, so he throws a punch, and Gran Torino says, to slow, and hits Deku in the hips. Gran Torino says, now don't hold back because I'm only using 10% of my power. Deku is shocked and says, only 10%. Gran Torino says, I saw how you fight. You might have power in close and long range attacks, but your speed lacks a lot. Also, that technique you used against Bakago, I could tell you weren't ready to use that yet. I specialize in speed SP. This will help you now. Come at me. Deku runs and disappears too. Gran Torino starts to move even faster than before, enabling him to catch up to Deku and overpower him. Deku doesn't give up and increase his speed more. Gran Torino does the same too. There are just noises and waves coming from every attack they throw. Deku lands a good hit on Gran Torino, sending him flying towards his fridge. Gran Torino quickly rebounds back with even more and kicks Deku in the stomach, sending him into the ground. Gran Torino says to himself, this kid has some potential. Why didn't All Might give his quirk to him instead of Myra? Gran Torino says, that, for now, let's have some lunch. Gran Torino smells something burning and runs to the kitchen and sees Deku burning his food. Gran Torino yells at Deku, what the hell are you doing, Deku? You're burning my food. Hasn't anyone taught you how to cook? Deku replies and says, no, I tried, but I've never been good at it. Gran Torino smacks his face and says in disappointment, good grief, I'll just order pizza. After the pizza, Gran Torino says, all right, time for training number 2. Deku asks what is the training was going to do. Gran Torino says, I saw you use that special move of yours, the Joss Jujutsu. Deku repeats, no, it's called the Josu Jujutsu. Gran Torino says, whatever, I saw how your body was after using it. You seemed tense, so we're doing some mediating to help your body to relax while using it. Gran Torino asks Deku to sit down and explain how the Josu Jujutsu works to make sure this will help. Gran Torino tells Deku to use the Josu Jujutsu while sitting. As Deku powers up, winds blow from him, blowing away papers and the table. Gran Torino is shocked and thinks to himself, just by powering up he causes winds like this. Damn that All Might, he's a blind fool for not choosing him as his successor. Gran Torino says, now close your eyes and try to relax and focus your power throughout your body while using it. Deku does as so. Deku body feels so calm and relaxes, he thinks to himself, why haven't I thought of this? Gran Torino says, now try increasing your power, but wait every minute between each power up, while doing the same thing to see how far you can go. Deku powers up to Josu Jujutsu X3 feeling fine, then X4 feeling kinda tense, then X5 feeling even tenser than before but still can go on. Gran Torino watches and observes how he's doing while trying not to get blown away. Then Deku goes into Josu Jujutsu X6 and that's his breaking point. He powers down and struggles to get up. Gran Torino says him, that's pretty good, looks like you can go up to 5 times your power, not bad, but let's do it again but with more time per power. Deku surprised and groans, he does the same but breaks at 6 again. They try and finally after 6 hours with breaks in between he's able to go into X6 for 30 seconds, X5 for 45 seconds, X4 1 minute, X3 1 minute and a half, X2 2.5 minutes. After hours of break, Gran Torino says, alright, for our final training before you head back we will go to Shinjuku to fight some villains. Deku replies, villains? Isn't that a bit too much? We just started training on my basic abilities. Gran Torino laughs and says, why are you so shocked? You were attacked by villains before, you should be used to it now. Besides, this will train your abilities by fighting people who won't hold back. Deku says, okay, that make a lot of sense. They head towards the train and take a ride to Shinjuku. As they are on the train, a Nomu breaks into the train and throws an injured hero. Deku catches him and sees if he's okay. The hero isn't responded and Deku shout, call for help. Gran Torino sees the Nomu about to attack passengers on the train. He says, get down, kid. He jets over and kicks the Nomu and chases after it. The injured hero gets some aid and Deku runs out of the train to chase after them. He runs and then starts to fly, then he sees a bunch of hero fighting off a bunch of Nomius with fire everywhere. One local hero breaks open a fire hydrant and says to Idia, brother, quick spray the water on the fire. He says out loud, damn it, Ida, why do you have to go running off at a time like this? Deku hears this and wonders where he went and then runs off trying to find him. Idia says to Stain, remember my name for as long as you live. I, the brother of Ingenuine that you almost killed, will stop you in your place. Stain replies, I only let your brother live so the media can shine the light on me. Idia says, how dare you. Idia speeds up for a kick. Stain dodges it and steps on his shoulder with his spiky boots, pinning Idia to the ground, then licks his blood. I can't move, is this his quirk? Damn it. Stain stands up top of Idia saying, you're a waste of a hero, you're weak and pathetic. Running over here just to fight me for revenge, you're like the rest of the heroes, you only care about yourselves, now prepare to die. Stain grabs his sword about to stab Idia, but then suddenly, Deku runs in and punches Stain, sending him flying into a wall. Lita says, what are you doing here, Midoriya? How did you find me? Deku said, I searched and found you just on time right before you were about to get killed. Also that from my research, 60% of the Stain killer's kills were in areas where no one was around. So I went away from the commotion and found you. Lita says, Midoriya, stop it, this isn't your fight. Stain says, your friend comes to save you, that's a great line, isn't it? But I have a duty to kill him. If we clash, of course the weaker will be culled. Deku is in shock and gets a flashback at the USJ of All Might saying, the eyes of white-collar criminals like you burn silently. He's different from the guys at USJ. His eyes are those of a killer. Deku has his phone behind his back and sends his location to everyone in class, wanted to see if anyone's nearby for help. Deku also sees another hero down. He thinks to himself, I should have brought a pro hero with me, there's no way I could save both of them and stall for time for myself. Guess I'll just have to fight. Idia against says, I can't get up, I think it's his quirk. Stop, this isn't your battle. Deku says, shut up if you say that. Then heroes can't do anything. Like All Might said, meddling when you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. Deku charges forward, Stain swings his blade, Deku ducks and shoots a Kai blast at Stain, blinding him. Stain keeps on guard and focuses, he yells there. Stain wings his sword but nothing there. Deku yells from above, over here, and punches him in the head. He lands on his feet and says, did it work? Stain licks his sword and Deku falls to the ground saying, why can't I move? A cut like that shouldn't have stunned me. He sees Stain killer walk by and sees the blood on his sword. Deku says to himself, that's it, it's blood that makes people unable to move. Stain walks up to Idia saying, making a smoke screen so I can't see, so you could hide and land a hit on me. You're worth keeping alive, you're not all talk like these other guys over here. Stain walks up to Lita and picks up his sword and says, die. Deku says stop and launches a Kitakyushu windy vortex, jabbing Stain in the back. Stain yells and walks over to Deku, just for that I changed my mind, I'll kill you first. Lita says stop. Flames come from an alleyway. Stain sees this and jumps away from the fire. Todoroki appears and says, you need to put more info when you're sending stuff like this, you delayed me but I got your message, you're not the type of person to send a message with no info, so I knew something was up. Todoroki freezes the ground and pushes the injured hero, Deku, and Lita up while trying to attack the Stain killer. Stain jumps away from the ice. Todoroki launches another fire blast saying, don't worry, the pros will also get here in a few minutes. Now let me carry your burden. Todoroki launches some ice. Stain jumps from the side of the alley walls and then jumps up throwing sharp knives. Todoroki tries to burn them with his fire, but it's just too fast and it cuts Todoroki in the face. Stain dashes in trying to lick the blood on his face. Deku says, look out, his quirk, don't let him lick you. Todoroki uses his fire and ignites half of his body to prevent the Stain from licking his face. Stain gets hit by the flames, pushing him away, burning him a little bit. Stain gets angry and says, damn it, can't even kill one guy without another guy trying to get in my way. You're next on the list and I'll make sure no one comes to get in my way. He charges at Todoroki max speed. Todoroki tries to counter but then Stain gets kicked in the stomach by Idia and Deku, sending him flying into a garbage can. Todoroki says, how I thought you guys couldn't move, how did you guys move? Deku says, I and Idia are able to me but Native isn't able to for some reason. Wait, I know it's his quirk since I'm typo and Idia is typing, that means his ability timer depending on the blood type. Stain gets out of the trash and says, looks like you figured out my quirk. Deku says, IDIA, and I will go up close. Todoroki, you stay back to support us, now let's go. Stain gets on guard. Lita charges while Deku is jumping from wall to wall. Idia goes in for a kick with his left. Stain turns his head, dodging it. Stain says, that's not going work twice on me. Idia replies with same here and kicks Stain in the face with his right foot. Todoroki launches a fire blast. Stain sees this and jumps into the air and throws 3 knives at Idia. Todoroki melts the knives with his fire. Idia tries to use his motors but it doesn't work. He says, damn it, my booster is out, it's all up to you, Izuku. Stain turns around to seize Deku above him. He says, damn, I can T-dodge. When he is this close, I'm going to have to block it. Deku powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X3 and throws a punch. Stain tries to block it with his swords, but The sword couldn't block Deku's attack and the sword shatters into pieces. Deku's punch hits Stain in the face, sending him flying into the ground, making a big dust cloud. The Stain is out cold and Native is finally able to move. Todoroki tells Idia to find some rope to tie up Stain. Deku also suggests they move out of this alley towards the open so the pro heroes are able to find them easier. They tie up Stain and head out to the street. Todoroki says, "Oh wow, it's a full blood moon tonight." Everyone looks up, including Deku, forgetting about what his mom told him. He starts to shake with his hands on his head. Todoroki asks if he's okay. Deku tells them to run, something bad about to happen, in a deep primate voice. They ask what, no response from Deku, but Deku starts to grow bigger and taller. His clothes break. They see this and take Stain and start to run. They go just far enough not to be crushed by the big ape. Todoroki and Native say, "What the hell is that? Is that Deku?" Idia says in fear, "Deku told me and Yurikaka that if he looks at full moon he'll turn into a big ape." While all they were fighting, Stain Gran Torino was with Endeavor fighting a Nomu, and they both see the big ape. Endeavor says, "Is that another Nomu or something else? It's huge. How could they have a monster like that around?" Gran Torino says, "Either way it's big trouble. Let's finish this Nomu up and head towards that beast." Great Ape Deku slams his right arm into a building and his left into another one. Then he kicks the ground, sending large cement and dust flying everywhere. Great Ape Deku pounds his chest, then fires a green Kai blast, destroying 2 city blocks and streets. Everyone is shocked. Todoroki says, "If we don't do anything soon, this whole city will be destroyed." Native says, "How the hell are we supposed to beat it? We stand no chance if it can break cement just by walking." Idia says, "He did tell me that we just got to cut off his tail and he'll revert back." Todoroki says, "How will able to even get close to him and even or cut off his tail?" Native says, "More importantly, he's coming right towards us. We need to take cover." They are lucky near another alleyway and duck for cover in there. Stain wakes up and breaks out of the rope. He grabs Native by the neck with his mini knife. Stain says, "Take one step further and your friend here dies." Todoroki says, "Stop, we need your help. There's a beast running around destroying the city." Asking a villain for help, that's hilarious. Even then I wouldn't help heroes such as you, and I could care less about this city. All I could know, you could be lying to me. I could kill all of you here if I wanted to. A big roar is heard from afar in the alleyway they are in, getting destroyed by Deku throwing a shop at the wall. The debris hits Stain and some of the shop, covering him up and Native in the rubble. Stain gets out of the rubble with Native. Todoroki says, "How about a deal?" Idia says, "Are you out of your mind making a deal with the Stain Killer?" Stain Killer says, "What's the deal?" Todoroki says, "You help us with the beast and give back Native and we will let you go and won't report about you or send people after you." Idia says, "No way in hell we're getting help or even making a deal with the one who injured my brother." Native also says, "Plus it's not a hero like to get help from a villain. I don't like the second part either." Todoroki says, "It's a truce. Let's set aside our differences and beliefs for now and solve the problem at hand." Idia and Native agree grudgingly. Stain says, "Okay. But if you break your side, I'll kill all of you." Native and Idia are scared from this comment, but Todoroki says, "Deal." Todoroki says, "The plan to defeat the ape." Native, "You head the opposite way of the ape to see if you can find those pro heroes and get them over here to help." Idia, "You'll come with me. We will distract it and then I'll shoot my fire in the air to signal Stain to cut his tail. Make sure you get on the high ground, Stain." They all say right. Native heads down the street. Stain goes onto the roofs and Todoroki and Idia go after the monster. They see the monster destroying a large portion of the city. Todoroki uses his ice and gets its attention. Deku starts to chase them. They start running away with Stain following them on the roof. Idia saying, "He's getting closer and my booster still isn't working." He says, "Todoroki, use your ice to slow down the beast." Todoroki makes a big ice wall, but Deku walks right through it. Idia panics, "We're going to die, we're going to die." Todoroki says, "No, we're close to a corner. Let's split from there and I'll launch the signal." Deku gets closer and closer and is about to step on both of them, but they barely make it to the corner and they split. Todoroki launches the fire, signaling Stain to go in to cut the tail. Stain jumps down and cuts Deku's tail. Deku falls over and lands on the Stain Killer, growing smaller and smaller to his normal size. Idia and Todoroki look at a crippled, almost dead Stain Killer and naked Deku unconscious. Idia asks, "So, you got any clothes for him?" Todoroki says no. "But there's a clothing shop right over there that's been destroyed and might have some clothes." Idia and Todoroki search in the shop and find some. Then Idia asks Todoroki, "So, who's going to put it on him?" Todoroki replies, "Not me." Idia says, "Damn it. You would pull something sneaky like that. Fine." Idia dresses up Deku. Idia tells Todoroki that we must keep this transformation a secret because if they find out it was Deku, it would make the world unsafe and damage UA representation. They come up with a fake story to cover up what actually happens. Todoroki burns the big tail on the floor to ashes, saying best to get rid of this so they don't have evidence. Idia asks, "So, what are we going to do with the Stain Killer? We said we would let me go, but I don't see how he would run." Todoroki says, "Well, let's just tie him up and turn him in. We'll be safe because he'll probably be sent to a prison somewhere else." They tie up the Stain Killer and Native runs back with the pro heroes. Gran Torino, An endeavor. Todoroki launches some ice. Stain jumps from the side of the alley walls and then jumps up throwing sharp knives. Todoroki tries to burn them with his fire, but it's just too fast and it cuts Todoroki in the face. Stain dashes in trying to lick the blood on his face. Deku says look out his quirk, don't let him lick you. Todoroki uses his fire and ignites half of his body to prevent the Stain from licking his face. Stain gets hit by the flames pushing him away, burning him a little bit. Stain gets angry and says damn it, can't even kill one guy without another guy trying to get in my way. You're next on the list and I'll make sure no one comes to get in my way. He charges at Todoroki max speed. Todoroki tries to counter but then Stain gets kicked in the stomach by Idia and Deku, sending him flying into a garbage can. Todoroki says how I thought you guys couldn't move, how did you guys move? Deku says I and Idia are able to me but Native isn't able to for some reason. Wait, I know it's his quirk since I'm type O and Idia is typing A, that means his ability timer depending on the blood type. Stain gets out of the trash and says looks like you figured out my quirk. Deku says IDIA and I will go up close. Todoroki, you stay back to support us, now let's go. Stain gets on guard. Lita charges while Deku is jumping from wall to wall. Idia goes in for a kick with his left. Stain turns his head dodging it. Stain says that's not going work twice on me. Idia replies with same here and kicks Stain in the face with his right foot. Todoroki launches a fire blast. Stain sees this and jumps into the air and throws 3 knives at Idia. Todoroki melts the knives with his fire. Idia tries to use his motors but it doesn't work. He says damn it, my booster is out, it's all up to you Izuku. Stain turns around to seize Deku above him. He says damn, I can T-dodge when he is this close, I'm going to have to block it. Deku powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X3 and throws a punch. Stain tries to block it with his swords but the sword couldn't block Deku's attack and the sword shatters into pieces. Deku's punch hits Stain in the face, sending him flying into the ground, making a big dust cloud. The Stain is out cold and Native is finally able to move. Todoroki tells Idia to find some rope to tie up Stain. Deku also suggests they move out of this alley towards the open so the pro heroes are able to find them easier. They tie up Stain and head out to the street. Todoroki says oh wow, it's a full blood moon tonight. Everyone looks up including Deku, forgetting about what his mom told him. He starts to shake with his hands on his head. Todoroki asks if he's okay. Deku tells them to run, something bad about to happen in a deep primate voice. They ask what, no response from Deku, but Deku starts to grow bigger and taller, his clothes break. They see this and take Stain and start to run. They go just far enough not to be crushed by the big ape. Todoroki and Native say what the hell is that Deku? Idia says in fear, Deku told me and Yurikaka that if he looks at full moon he'll turn into a big ape. While all they were fighting, Stain Gran Torino was with Endeavor fighting a Nomu and they both see the big ape. Endeavor says is that another Nomu or something else? It's huge, how could they have a monster like that around? Gran Torino says either way it's big trouble, let's finish this Nomu up and head towards that beast. Great Ape Deku slams his right arm into a building and his left into another one, then he kicks the ground sending large cement and dust flying everywhere. Great Ape Deku pounds his chest, then fires a green Kai blast destroying 2 city blocks and streets. Everyone is shocked. Todoroki says if we don't do anything soon this whole city will be destroyed. Native says how the hell are we supposed to beat it? We stand no chance if it can break cement just by walking. Idia says he did tell me that we just got to cut off his tail and he'll revert back. Todoroki says how we'll able to even get close to him and even or cut off his tail. Native says more importantly he's coming right towards us, we need to take cover. They are lucky near another alleyway and duck for cover in there. Stain wakes up and breaks out of the rope. He grabs Native by the neck with his mini knife. Stain says take one step further and your friend here dies. Todoroki says stop, we need your help, there's a beast running around destroying the city. Asking a villain for help, that's hilarious, even then I wouldn't help heroes such as you and I could care less about this city. All I could know, you could be lying to me. I could kill all of you here if I wanted to. A big roar is heard from afar and the alleyway they are in getting destroyed by Deku throwing a shop at the wall. The debris hits Stain and some of the shop, covering him up and Native in the rubble. Stain gets out of the rubble with Native. Todoroki says how about a deal? Idia says are you out of your mind making a deal with the Stain Killer? Stain Killer says what's the deal? Todoroki says you help us with the beast and give back Native and we will let you go and won't report about you or send people after you. Idia says no way in hell we're getting help or even making a deal with the one who injured my brother. Native also says plus it's not a hero like to get help from a villain, I don't like the second part either. Todoroki says it's a truce, let's set aside our differences and beliefs for now and solve the problem at hand. Idia and Native agree grudgingly. Stain says okay. But if you break your side I'll kill all of you. Native and Idia are scared from this comment but Todoroki says deal. Todoroki says the plan to defeat the ape. Native, you head the opposite way of the ape to see if you can find those pro heroes and get them over here to help. Idia, you'll come with me, we will distract it and then I'll shoot my fire in the air to signal Stain to cut his tail. Make sure you get on the high ground, Stain. They all say right. Native heads down the street. Stain goes onto the roofs and Todoroki and Idia go after the monster. They see the monster destroying a large portion of the city. Todoroki uses his ice and gets its attention. Deku starts to chase them. They start running away with Stain following them on the roof. Idia saying he's getting closer and my booster still isn't working. He says, Todoroki, use your ice to slow down the beast. Todoroki makes a big ice wall, but Deku walks right through it. Idia panics, we're going to die. Todoroki says, no, we're close to a corner, let's split from there and I'll launch the signal. Deku gets closer and closer and is about to step on both of them, but they barely make it to the corner and they split. Todoroki launches the fire, signaling Stain to go in to cut the tail. Stain jumps down and cuts Deku's tail. Deku falls over and lands on the Stain killer, growing smaller and smaller to his normal size. Idia and Todoroki look at a crippled, almost dead Stain killer and naked Deku unconscious. Idia asks, so, you got any clothes for him? Todoroki says no. But there's a clothing shop right over there that's been destroyed and might have some clothes. Idia and Todoroki search in the shop and find some. Then Idia asks Todoroki, so, who's going to put it on him? Todoroki replies, not me. Idia says, damn it. You would pull something sneaky like that, fine. Idia dresses up Deku. Idia tells Todoroki that we must keep this transformation a secret because if they find out it was Deku, it would make the world unsafe and damage UA representation. They come up with a fake story to cover up what actually happens. Todoroki burns the big tail on the floor to ashes, saying best to get rid of this so they don't have evidence. Idia asks, so, what are we going to do with the Stain killer? We said we would let me go, but I don't see how he would run. Todoroki says, well, let's just tie him up and turn him in. We'll be safe because he'll probably be sent to a prison somewhere else. They tie up the Stain killer and Native runs back with the pro heroes, Gran Torino and Endeavor. Deku wakes up on a hospital bed feeling stronger, like after the Usch attack. He is with Todoroki and Idia. He asks what happened. They said you were unconscious from transforming, but we stop you from doing that by cutting off your tail. Deku looks at his behind in shock and sees no tail and then asks, did people see me go ape? Todoroki says only a few, but we made up a story about the ape attacking the city to keep you and you safe. Deku asks what's the cover-up. Todoroki replies that we said it was one of the Leagues of Villains Nomias. Kenji Tsurigami says you guys shouldn't have used your quirks back there. Todoroki says the Stain killer was trying to kill us and there was a big monster destroying the city. What you wanted us to watch the city burn and be destroyed while losing our lives. Kenji Tsurigami says yes, you're right, if it weren't for you guys that would have happened, but next time be careful, okay? Kenji Tsurigami walks out of the room. The next day everyone's back from their internships. Ochoko, knowing the story, asked Deku, Idia, and Todoroki saying, are you guys okay from fighting Stain and that beast? Kirishima says, what happens to your tail? Zero says, yeah, last time we saw you with your tail is before you left for your internship. The monster had a tail to him. Everyone in class 1 is curious to except for and are suspicious on what happened to his tail. Not Bakago, though he was thinking to himself, I was right, he is a monkey after all. Deku lies and says, oh, while we were fighting the Stain killer he cut off my tail and licked my blood so I couldn't move, but it will come back. The class believes except for Earjack and stops questioning him. Deku asks, how do you know what happens in the city? Kirishima shows Deku his phone about the situation and says this whole news story is blown up on the news and TV. You guys injured the hero killer so badly that when he tried to escape, other heroes found him and arrested him. Before they could ask more, All Might dashes in and shouts, GOODMO ring, your teacher is here now, sit down. All Might says, today we will be doing basic hero training, which is a race. Everyone says in confusion, a race. All Might says yes. Now gear up and follow me towards the field so we can get started. Everyone goes to the field and All Might says you'll be racing against each other on field Gamma to test how much you learned at your internships. Your goal is to get around the obstacles and rescue me. All Might says the first group will be Deku, Lita, Zero, Ajiro, and Ishido. When I send the signal, you go. Everyone else will stand back and watch until it's your turn. Ajiro says, who you think's going to win? I think it's Deku with his speed and strength. Bakago coughs and says that weakling will get the last, I'm sure of it. Denkai says, yeah, that's true, but Zero is practically made for this obstacle course. Minda says, you're both wrong, Ishido will win because she's athletic. As they all get to their places, All Might sends the signal and they go. Zero, Lita, and Ajiro are getting a good head start, until everyone sees a green blur fly by, which makes Zero and Gyro fall, but it's Deku. Bakago sees this in a rage. He thinks to himself, damn it, how can he be that fast? I was playing a pretty boy at my internship while that monkey keeps surpassing me. Deku makes it to All Might in mere seconds with Lita in second, Ajiro in third, Zero in fourth, and Ishido in fifth. All Might says, well done all, you've had greatly improve ever since you started here. To keep this up and prepare for your final exam, which is tomorrow. The next day they do their written exams and then Eraserhead says for them to suit up and follow him. They meet up and Eraserhead says, guess what's for our final exams? Sora says robots like the entrance exams, right? Eraserhead grins and says no. You will be fighting the teachers of UA in groups of 1 or 2 depending on grades, relationships, and your quirks. Everyone's in shock about this. Momo says, isn't that a little bit overboard? We're no match against the teachers, and why aren't we using robots? Eraserhead replies, the reason why we use robots because it's easier and fewer people complain about getting injuries. But it isn't challenging the world, changing fast with villains, and we need to prepare you all. Besides, you've all been in a villain attack once. Eraserhead explains the rules. The teachers will be the villains, which will not hold back, and you guys are the heroes. The goal is to run and find a hero suited better for this villain or capture the teacher with these handcuffs. We will also use weights made by the support course to make us use more energy and stamina. Eraserhead says, I also forgot to mention, if you fail this you won't be able to go to training camp in the woods. This shocks everyone and makes them try their very best. Now let's get the matchup started. Eraserhead reads a list. The Principal versus Denki and Mina. No. 13 versus Yuga and Ochako. Present Mike versus Koji and Kyoka. Ectoplasm versus Fumikage and Tsuyu. Midnight versus Hanta and Minoru. Snipe versus Toru. Cementos versus Rikito and Ijiro, and Power Loader versus Tenya and Mashurao. And finally Deku and Bakago versus All Might. All Might jumps from the sky making a big dust cloud. He says, young Midoriya and Bakago, you better do your best, try to give a good fight, that if you make alive, aha. Bakago is in shock. He's thinking to himself that he has to fight as an idol and with the monkey. The principal says, first up is Isui and Fumikage, rest of you come up with a plan or watch. Deku says, let's make a plan. Bakago says, I don't plan with monkeys. Catch, and this is not the time for being ignorant. We have to make a plan if you want to defeat All Might. Bakugo, surprised at Izuku talking back, responded, S. Shut up, you will always just be a quirkless loser. Izuku says, you stuttered a bit there. All Might jump in front of them, and he punches Izuku in the gut. To his surprise, Izuku didn't go flying, but he was on the ground gasping for air. Bakugo swings at All Might, but he dodges it. All Might then tries to punch Bakugo while saying, is that all you have got her? His sentence and attack were interrupted by a punch to the face by Midoriya. Is that all you got? He says, still exhausted. All Might says, you hit pretty hard, kid. At this moment, All Might recalled the time when young Midoriya tried to save Bakugo from the slug villain and remembered that Midoriya always had the spirit of a hero. All Might still regret to this day not giving young Midoriya one for all. All Might towards Izuku and noticed a smiling face on him. He's interrupted again by an explosion. Run, you damn monkey. Kachin says. Izuku clenches his fist and says, first I have to save you. With a determined face, Izuku tells All Might, I'm sorry, All Might. Smash. Izuku punches All Might in his weak spot. He remembers this from the Usch attack. All Might is on the ground coughing up blood. The announcer then states, Izuku, Midoriya, and Katsuki Bakugo pass as the final exams close. The class 1 students plan to go shopping for summer camp. Meanwhile, Tamura is getting pissed off everyone carrying about Stain Killer's ideology. He gets so mad that he tries to attack Toga and Dabai, but they prepare themselves for the attack. Kurogiri opens up portals, stopping everyone's attacks. He moves his head towards Tamura and says, because of Stain we're in the light right now, we can use this to hire more people. Tamura storms off, wanting to take his anger on someone he hates. The first person he thinks of is that little brat from the USJ attack, grins and starts laughing. Deku and everyone decide where they go and storm off. Deku asks Ochako what she's getting. She says bug spray. Deku says, well, I'm getting more weights, and walks off. Tamura walks up and says, a student from UA, can I get an autograph? He grabs Deku in a headlock and moves him over and starts blabbing away about Stain Killer, etc., etc. Tamura says to Deku, I could easily kill you here. All I need is 5 fingers and you're dead. Deku says, even if you do, heroes will come and get you. Tamura replies, laughing, I could easily kill 20 to 30 people before they caught me. He takes him over to a corner and starts asking Deku, what is the difference between Stain and me? Deku says, I don't understand or agree on who you are, but Stain I don't agree with, but understand him. The Stain Killer didn't go around destroying things for no reason. Tamura says, that's it, I figured out why you anyone me and Stain, it's because of All Mig. Deku takes this chance and elbows Tamura in the stomach, taking his hands off his neck. Tamura yells, damn you pest, and tries to grab Deku, but Deku jumps over him, landing behind him. Deku goes for a punch, but Tamura grabs his arms and grins and says, you tried, but now you're going to decay away. He tries, but then quickly takes his hands off and screams in pain. People in the mall are starting to wonder what's going on and call the police. Tamura says, impossible, why didn't it work? Deku says, because you're weak and because I made a barrier to protect myself from you. Tamura says, you're lying, no one can withstand or block my decay. Deku interrupts and goes into powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X3, punching him in the gut, knocking him on the floor. Tamura tries to get up, but he can't. Deku walks up to him when a black portal appears from below, trying to get Deku, but he He notices this and quickly files up and sees Tamura fade away into the portal. Tamura says before he gets sucked in, next time we meet I'll kill you. Tamura comes back to his lair demanding what happened and asking how did Kurogiri find him. Kurogiri says I knew what you were after and felt where you were, but more importantly, you look injured. Tamura frowns and says it's because of that damn boy. Kurogiri asks which one boy. Tamura says the boy with the green hair named Midoriya that we saw with All Might at the USJ. I believe he's All Might's successor. He has to be it because his speed and power is unimaginable. He even was able to stop my quirk. Kurogiri is taken back a little by this and says well there's no need to work up over it, we'll find a way or someone to deal with him. Tamura says yeah, you're right. Shortly after the police come and search the whole mall but nothing is found. Deku says he witnessed it and was a victim. They take him back to the police department. Deku explains what happened to Naomasa. He says thank you Deku, but you shouldn't have fought him because they could have caused more victims, but luckily that didn't happen. Please try not to do that again. They walk outside and see All Might. All Might says thank goodness you're okay, sorry I couldn't save you. Deku's mom appears and says I can't take this anymore, and Naomasa prepares them a ride back to their house. As they go off, Naomasa says as the light grows stronger, that light grows the greater the darkness. Yue should take measure because their encounter wasn't planned, but who knows what other students they'll go for besides him. Let's make sure we take out All for one this time. All Might. All Might nod and looks into the starry night sky. This is canon to the anime and manga, which has been confirmed by Kohei Horikoshi. It's connected to the manga and should take place between the start of Ep 1 of Season 3 and the ending of Season 2. As Deku wakes up with All Might for his epic dream and tells him that we're at the Article City with 100,000 scientists, he questions and says this is cool and all, but should I really be here? I'm not even your sucker. All Might says I got innovation which said I could bring a companion. I asked Myro first, but he was busy, so I came to you. Deku replies, but isn't that for a family? All Might says we may not be connected by blood, but we have a stronger and greater bond than that. They arrive at the island. Everyone swarms All Might asking for autographs. All Might says we'll be meeting a friend. I haven't told her about it because whoever knows the secret of One for All is now in danger too. They meet All Might's nephew Melissa and she starts to examine Deku similarly to how Meihatsu. A couple of villains who entered into the island start plotting a plan. This makes him uncomfortable thinking about that, and she is so close. All Might meets the professor and introduces Deku. Deku starts fanboying about how he made a Golden Age All Might hero custom and Young Age. Professor asks Melissa to show Deku around while All Might and he talks. She mentions there will be a party with the industry tonight and suggests he goes, but before that they check out the pavilion. As they look around in the pavilion, they run into Uraraka, Yaoyorozu, and Gyro. They all think they're on a date. Deku introduces Melissa and clears some things up and says it All Might's. Deku interrupts and says how about a drink? They all go outside for a drink. Deku, exhausted from that situation, gets a drink served from Kaminari. Deku asks what are you doing here? Kaminari replies saying the expo was low on staff so I applied, would have gone with Minta if he wasn't expelled. Kaminari sees all the girls at the table and looks at Melissa asking Deku where did you find that hottie? Lita dashes over running into Kaminari. Everyone shouts Lita. They hear a thump and they see a big dust cloud. Deku runs over to see what it is and it's Kirishima. Bakago walks from the below. Deku yells Kakin, the announcer yells go, and Bakago yells die, destroying all of the fake villains on the cliff, getting 15 seconds. Kirishima points out Deku is on the railing watching. Bakago jumps over and yelling says hey monkey, why are you up here? Kirishima says your guy's going to try it. Bakago yells don't bother, I'm better than you. Deku says we'll see and Uraraka says go Deku. Deku prepares himself and the announcer says go. He quickly flies towards each of the fake villains and destroying them in one punch and getting 4 seconds. Everyone shocked by this and the announcer says first place recorded. Melissa is surprised by his explosion and destructive power. Bakago yells impossible, what trickery did you use, a monkey? Todoroki goes up and freezes everything, getting 14 seconds, putting him in second and Bakugo in third. Bakugo with anger flies over to Todoroki and says, appearing suddenly, trying to make everyone think you're amazing, you bastard. All the guys try to calm down Bakugo while the girls except Melissa are embarrassed by this. The professor looks at All Might, see his quirk going down at a rapid rate, getting shocked by this and says if this keeps up we'll lose the symbol of peace, and how would we defend if another person like All for One came around? All Might says I can still go into my buff form for a few hours a day. The professor says yeah, but the only reason why Japan is at 6% crime rate is because of you, meanwhile other places have a 20%. Later everyone starts meeting up to go to the big event that's tonight. The villains from earlier start locking doors at the control panel, readying their attack since they know All Might will be there. The villains make the island go into lockdown mode, keeping everyone contained in the event and outside too. A bunch of men with guns start walking and turning the crowd into hostages. They show a screen of all the robots on the island ready to attack innocent people. The main guy shouts everyone on the island is now a hostage. He says that into the walkie-talkie to a bunch of blue stripe tie up all the heroes, making them unable to move. Deku asks Melissa if there's any way to get to the party. She says there are emergency stairs that will lead us close to it. The villain looks at Professor David's assistant and asks him to come along, but David waits. The guy says take him to David. Ask if I don't what will happen. He says someone will die. Deku and the rest are above the party using earphone jack to talk to All Might, filling him in on what's happening. Lydia says I think we should do what a teacher says and get out, but Deku refuses and says we are heroes so we can't back out now. Deku starts giving a well-thought-on agreement on which everyone agrees, and grudging Lydia agrees too. Melissa says if he can get to the top of the tower we can turn off the controls. They take stairs to avoid villains going up and up for a while. The villains see them going to the control center and start closing the 80th floor and sending men after them. The shutters are closing from both ends. Deku quickly shoots a Kai blast, breaking the shutter in front. Lydia goes through and kicks to door open to the 80th floor plant factory and says everyone follows. Gyro sees the elevator numbers going up and calls it out. Everyone realizes villains are coming, so they hide so they don't have to fight them. Kaminari asks if you can use the elevator to get out. Melissa says no, you got to be an authorized person and you can't destroy it either because it's as sturdy as a bomb shelter. The villains come out looking for them, everyone confused on what to do, until suddenly when Bakago and Kirishima show up confronting them. Bakago says, "What did you say, bastard?" Kirishima tries to ask if we're lost. The villains sees throw it and attacks Kirishima. Todoroki blocks the attack with the ice while Deku and the rest get lifting up by the ice to look for a place to get out. Todoroki, Bakago, and Kirishima start fighting the villains. Deku sees them below and shoots Kai a tiny beam, badly injuring the villain. Kirishima yells thanks for the save. Deku sees a vent and asks if we can go from up there. Melissa says no, it can only be opened from the inside. Deku says well, that shouldn't be a problem, and blasts the vent off. Melissa says that can take you to the outside to the control center. We just need someone who can get into the crammed vent and climb the outer wall. Deku says I'll go, I can fly. He flies into the vent, scaling the tower. He gets to the top, dropping ladder, and everyone climbs up. Todoroki, Kirishima, and Bakago finish off the villains, but the villains at the control center send robots to keep them in check. The boss tells them to send robots to floor 130 where they are heading. Deku and the rest run into them. Lydia says there are so many. How will we get past? Deku says I'll take care of them if he jumps out, launching a few Kitakyushu windy vortex. Then he powers up and charges a Tokyo blast, taking them all out. Everyone is surprised by the power he in just 2 moves. They make it to the 138th floor but run into even more robots. Lydia says we'll stall. Deku and Melissa go to the opposite route. They get to the wind power generator. Deku picks on Melissa and flies up towards the control tower. Bakugo, Todoroki, and Kirishima come to help Lydia and the rest with the robots. Deku breaks into the control tower and a guy comes from behind with a metal hand. Deku turns around, grabbing it, and crushes it with ease, and then elbows him in the stomach. He kicks him, sending him flying through the crack in the wall. More gunmen shows up at level 200. Deku rushes towards dodge the bullets, taking each one of them out with a single blow. They reach the central tower. They run into David on the top floor, wondering what he's doing. They try to save him. Melissa asks David, "Don't tell me you're behind all of this to get that device." He says yes, it is. His assistant says the professor is trying to get back what was stolen from him. This groundbreaking invention that mechanically amplifies quirks. Deku says, "What do you mean by amplifying quirks?" David says yes. It is still in testing, but with this device, unlike with drugs, quirks can be amplified without affecting the body. However, the sponsors confiscated this invention and research data. The research itself was frozen. If this was known to the world, then the structure of superhuman society would change drastically. David explains that he planned to get fake villains to stage it so he could get his inventions back. Deku realizes that David was scared that All Might would lose his power. The main guy walks when Deku sees him and powers up. The villain uses metal to pin towards the wall, but Deku breaks out, kicking him in the stomach. He's about to attack the villain when suddenly he shoots his assistant and demands him to give him the suitcase. Deku tells Melissa to take the door they busted down to the control room. She runs towards the door. The boss tries to stop her, but Deku gets in the way, giving her enough time to get to the door. He sends a metal pillar trying to trap Deku while his other guy tries to attack him. Deku easily dispatches the guy and breaks through the metal. T-Boss sends a ton of metal pillars, slowing down Deku, giving him enough time to grab the briefcase, and shoots David in the shoulder and take him too. Melissa shuts down the security system, saving everyone. All Might is smashing his way to the top too. The villains take David and the briefcase to the helicopter. Deku, lagging behind, speeds up to stop them, but the boss makes steel pillars. Deku jumps from pillar to pillar but gets hit by one, knocking him onto the floor. They start flying up. All Might sees this and jumps so high that he goes above the helicopter and says, "I am here," destroys it. Deku and Melissa look up and say, "All Might." Deku sees David falling, so He flies up to catch him, bringing him down. All Might comes down seeing if David is alright. David says All Might and then gets snatched by the boss metal control quirk. They turn around seeing a huge machine. All Might says crap, my time limit is running out. You just don't know when to give up. He jumps towards boss yelling Texas smash. The boss blocks it with a big metal block and punches All Might away with metal. He begins to start taking the metal around, come towards the machine and becoming one with it because of his amplified quirk. All Might hops up breaking, trying to break a big pillar, but he's struggling to do. The metal boss yells get crushed, sending metal pillars towards All Might, but then Todoroki freezes the metal pillars and Bakago sends explosions towards the villain. The villain blocks the explosion with a big metal pillar. Bakago shouts, how can you lose to a late boss, huh, All Might? Everyone else joins in to help, which inspires All Might to go beyond plus ultra. He starts running up the pillars, destroying some. To getting close, the metal villain sends 3 metal rods towards All Might. All Might yells Carolina smash, breaking it. He flies towards the villain, but the villain uses metal to bars to hold him back, choking him and grabbing him on his injured spot. Deku sees this and jumps up, powering up, clutching his fist with all his might, saying to Tirat smash, breaking All Might free. All Might asks if Deku if alright. He says, with that body of yours you're being too reckless. Deku smiles and says, like you're the one to talk. A hero has to save those in trouble. All Might smiles and laughs. He says, lend me a hand, Deku. Deku powers up. All Might says, let's go. The metal villain says, you worthless little brat, you're nothing better than trash. You don't know when to give up, and makes a bunch of metal cubes sending towards them. Bakugo says, you're the one who doesn't die, and shoots an explosion destroying all of them. He sends in more metal rods trying to stop Deku and All Might, but Todoroki uses his ice and blocks them. All Might runs dodging and destroying the metal, and so does Deku, kicking a metal cube open. All Might and Deku run on the metal pillar and sink. The metal boss makes an even bigger metal cube than before. Deku and All Might jump up, clenching their fist. All Might says, to overcome the crisis in front of you. Deku says, with everything you've got. Then All Might says, and save people. Deku finish off his sentence with everything that you've got. All Might says, that is what makes. Deku says, a hero. The metal villain launches the huge metal square at them. They both yell double Detriot smash. Deku and All Might screaming as the cube breaks. Everyone cheers on All Might and Deku. Deku yells Jasu Jujutsu X6 no. I need to go beyond the X10. Deku says go. All Might says beyond, and they both say in unison Plessa de Altar, destroying the villain, completely saving David and killing the villain. Everyone cheers for them beating the villain. Bakago scoffs and looks away. Todoroki says, what's the matter? A second ago you were smiling, that's rare. Bakago says, shut up. Anazawa explains to Class 1 students about the summer camp when Orikoko goes to Deku up close and talks about how they'll be going to the woods. Achayako gets a flashback to Yuga asking if she likes Deku. Her face turns red and starts doing a dance saying training camp. Mina and Denkai do the same dance as well. Class B is also there and they exchange greetings to Class Alita tells everyone to get on the bus in order. As they're on the bus, Anazawa tries to explain how long it will take. When he looks back and sees Class A goofing around, this shocks him, but he just it off. They arrive at a stop-off and question why they are here until they see a black car with a bunch of people wearing cat costumes. They announce they are the Pussycats. Deku starts fanboying as everyone's saying they're a 4-person hero team who set up a joint agency. They're a veteran team that specializes in mountain rescue. This year will be their 12th workin'. Ryuko grabs Deku face and says, I'm 18 at heart. They point far off U equals into the forest where they'll be staying. A lot of Class 1A think they'll take the bus there until they reveal they'll have to go through the forest to make it there. They start running to the bus until the blue cat mends the ground, making them fall into the forest. They run into the beast's forest. They see a rock monster which Koji tries to calm down, but it doesn't work because made out of dirt and it's not an animal. Deku sees this and says well good luck and flies over the forest heading to the base at top speed. Achoko grabs onto him knowing that she can skip it too and they fly off. The cats and Anazawa see something in the sky and wonder what it is. Anazawa realizes it's Deku and says well far game, he's using his quirk to defend himself by running. Ryuko and Shino are surprised by that he can fly. Bakago, damn it, that monkey always one step ahead of me. Then he realizes he can fly with his explosions and does the same. Everyone's shocked, but they got nothing else but to deal with the monsters. Deku gets to the camp and flies down and then notices Achoko behind him. He asks, how did you get here? Achoko says, I grabbed onto you before you left. Then they hear in the background Bakago flying saying, die, where's that monkey boy so I can square him up? Shortly after, Anazawa and the cats arrive and Anazawa says there really wasn't a rule about what and what can you do, but congrats, you 3 did it. You didn't really do the drill, but you did think outside the box and completed it. Since Class 1 was down 3, it took them an extra 2 hours. They all come out of the forest tired, pissed off at all 3 of them. They gather all the 1 student and say well that should have taken 3 hours. Class 1 shouts together 3 hours. The Pussycats say yes, that's how long it would take us, but you guys did it faster than I thought even though 3 people bailed on you. She looks at Bakago Deku and Achoko. Ryuko looks at Deku, Todoroki, Bakago, and Lydia and says you have a tail just like a cat, and says, and the rest of you acting without hesitating. You'll be fine in 3 years, I'll call dibs, and starts screaming Deku. Anazawa says, Mandalay, has she always been like that? She replies, she is a little bit desperate since she's around the suitable age for you know what. Deku says, speaking about a suitable age, he points to Koda and asks, whose a kid is that? Monotally says, that's not our kid, it's my cousin's kid. They say, come on Koda, greet them, you'll be with them for the next few weeks. The echoes of the interaction between them, Deku cuts off his tail so she wouldn't go after him, and realizing if it happens again, who knows what will happen. Deku introduces himself and Koda tries to punch him, but he doesn't flinch and hurts his knuckles. He says, I don't like heroes like you, crying a bit from his knuckle hurting from punching Deku. Next day you get training of all the class 1 student, and Deku is training with Yawara. Yawara says, give it all you got to come on, try to throw a punch. Deku throws a punch, but he bends his back over similar to a cat, dodging the attack, punching him back, but Deku is able to take it and punches him, sending him flying. He grips onto the ground and says, truly worthy indeed, now let's kick it up a notch. Later that night, Deku sees Koda walk away alone. He brings him some food, trying to talk to him, but then Koda explains that he is quirkless and his parents' death, and says nothing else. Deku is glad he finally coughed up some talk and heads back to camp. Meanwhile, the League of Villains is planning their attack on the forest. Next day, more training. Yawara walks up to Deku saying in a scary voice, where's your plus ultra? Deku sees this and says yes and runs. As the next night, they go into the forest. The wild pussycats start that Class B will be the scarers, and Class A will leave in pairs every 3 minutes. They say each of the Class A will be choosing numbers on paper to decide who's with who. Deku realizes someone will be alone. Everyone in the forest starts smelling a weird gas that's poisonous. One of the pussycats smells this and then sees blue fire on the mountain. Villains start popping out of the forest after each and every student. Anazawa takes the failing students to a room, but then gets an alert for all teachers to get to camp. Anazawa walks out and Dabai Sucker punches him with blue flames. Deku is back with the other Yawara. Ryuko and Shino deal with the 2 villains that injured Tomoko. Deku says, let us fight, who knows what the other students are in. The wild pussycats say yes and send a signal to everyone that they're able to use their quirks. Deku powers up Jasu Jujutsu X4 to quickly knock out both of the villains, which surprise the wild pussycats. The wild pussycats tend to Tomlinson. Then Deku, he realizes Koda might be in danger at the place he usually goes and dashes off back towards him. Koda encounters Muscular and he reveals that he killed his parents, which frighten and anger Koda. Muscular is about to attack, says, I'll end your life as I did to your parents, aha. But suddenly Deku jumps and grabs Koda from Muscular attack. Deku realizes that his phone broke from saving Koda, so now he has to deal with Muscular himself. He powers up and gets in a battle stance, saying everything will be alright, Koda. As Todoroki and Bakago are walking with a student, they see someone on the ground with a bloody arm next to him. He turns around, it's a villain. Todoroki gets his ice ready and Bakago smiles, saying, oh yeah, we can use our quirks, this will be great. Muscular realizes that's the kid Tamura said to kill. Muscular says, your kind show up everywhere, talking about justice. You're the one called Midoriya, right? This is perfect, we're told to kill you, show me your blood. He takes off his coat and quickly leaps to Deku. He punches Deku, but Deku blocks the attack with his arm, sending him flying into the side of the mountain. Muscular asks where Bakago is and Deku is wondering why they are after him. He says, I'll take that as I don't know, right? Well, I still got to do my job. He runs over to punch Deku, but Deku leaps away, but Muscular leaps towards Deku, kicking him. Deku blocks with both of his hands, which sends him and Muscular through the mountain, making a deep long hole in it. Muscular keeps kicking as they go through the other side of the mountain. Deku and Muscular are in midair. Deku falls and Muscular tries to attack again. Deku stops himself from falling and dodges Muscular attack, and then powers up to Jasu Jujutsu X5 and sends a Kai Blast, launching Muscular into the forest, which a huge green explosion. Deku flies back through the hole back to Koda. He thinks he's gone and lets his guard down. Muscular comes from behind and kicks Deku away. Deku asks, how were you able to survive that? Muscular said, anything is possible when you have an amazing quirk like me. Deku disappears and appears right in front of Muscular, punching him, but with little to no effect. Muscular says, is that all you got? I've seen better heroes do better than you did. Deku tires more and more attacks, but Muscular's muscle fibers are just too much. Deku begins to tire out. Muscular sees this and dodges Deku attack, then hits his arm badly, injuring it. With this he takes advantage and pummeling Deku with attacks. Deku on the ground covered in blood gets up and breaks his limits, powering up into Jasu Jujutsu, grabbing ×8, realizing that even ×6 wouldn't be enough. Muscular says, you finally taken this seriously, now this will be fun. Deku just appears right in front of Muscular, punching him with multiple punches, which sends him flying. Deku, knowing that this power won't last, launches multiple Kitakyushu windy vortexes with tiny Kai Blast. Muscular dodges them all running towards Deku. Deku fires off a Kyoto blast which Muscular runs through the large Kai and then slams into Deku, then hitting up into the air and then smacking him down to the ground with full force. Deku, badly injured and exhausted, Muscular grabs Deku by and lift him up, saying a speech and then about to land the finishing blow. Kota throws a rock and says leave him alone, which pisses him off. He drops Deku and grabs Kota. He walks near the ledge saying just for that I'll kill you first, just like your parents. Muscular throws Kota into the ledge saying well I guess my job is halfway done. Deku sees this, enraged and motivated. He feels a strange power in him. He gets up, which Muscular says well you're ready for round 2. Deku says yeah. I won't let you hurt any more people angry. Muscular says well you didn't do your job right because I just did. This enraged Deku and the power starts to overwhelm in him. Muscular sees this and thinks this brat is powering up, so he better stop him before he does. Muscular runs in for a punch with Deku wide open. As Muscular is about to land the finishing blow, he gets pushed back by sheer force of winds. Clouds beginning to form and lightning hit the forest. Everyone sees and hears the loud thunder, questioning what's happening. The pebbles on the ground near Deku rises. The whole forest shakes like an earthquake, with everyone still questioning what's going on. Todoroki notices this power similar to UA Sports Festival. He thinks to himself, saying this power is so familiar, where have I seen it before? His minds click and realize it's Deku. We say to Bakago, Bakago, I think that's Deku, let's defeat this villain quickly. Deku eyes disappear, his hair glow yellow, then green, then yellow, and then finally he yells out a loud "Ra." His eyes turn blue and his hair turns yellow, and the sky shines bright with yellow from his energy. Muscular is taken back by this, but says just because you powered up doesn't mean you'll still win, and charges at Deku. Kota is apparently alive and landing on a ledge, but unable to move. He hears what's going on. He wonders, why is he doing this for me? Deku just stares at Muscular, and Muscular gets hit by nothing, getting sent flying. He tries again to attack, but Deku swiftly dodges and elbows his hand, then punching him in the gut. Muscular backing off, clutching his gut, coughing out blood, asks just what are you? Deku says I am the hope of the people. I am the answer to all living things that cry out for peace. I am the protector of the innocent. I am the light in the darkness. I am the truth. I am and will be the #1 hero. I am Izuku Meteora. He charges at Muscular so fast he has no time to react and gets sent flying. Deku says you've done enough harm, now playtime's over. He charges up a Kyoto blast. Muscular is consumed in a green Kai wave which flies above the forest for everyone to see. Deku realizes he defeated Msukukeller, but at the cost of Kota cries, but he hears a voice. He looks towards the ledge as Kota. Kota says he's alive and he's his hero and to help him up. Deku smiles at this and comes down to grab Kota and flies back up towards the ledge. He says let's get you to Anazawa, okay? Deku flies at high speeds, meeting Anazawa, dropping off Kota and saying tell Mandalay what's there after he helps secure the two villains, Spinner and Kenji. Anazawa runs with Kota, wondering what's up with his hair. He runs off to find Bakago to ensure his safety. Tamura and the rest realize that Deku has killed one of their men, gets angry and says call off the Bakago kid, we're now getting a green-haired kid called Izuku Meteora. Mandalay sends a broadcast to everyone saying they're after Bakago and to protect him. He runs into Itsuka and Testu. They see him and say what's up with your hair, but most importantly they tell him not to breathe in the gas. Deku powers up, removing the gas from the area, dismantling the kid with the gas with ease and say stay safe, him off. He runs into Mizo and he tells him that Fumicage's dark shadow is out of control and what happens to his hair. Deku says never mind that and starts to think how he can control Dark Shadow. Then he realizes he needs light to calm it down. He increases his aura towards Dark Shadow, making him smaller and smaller to the point where Fumicage can contain him. Fumicage thanks him and Deku tells both of them we need to find Bakago and protect him when he gets back to camp. They run and find Todoroki and Bakago finish fighting the villains. They tell Bakago and Todoroki to follow them to the camp. As this is happening, Ochoko and Froppy are dealing with Toga when she suddenly disappears. They run into them explaining what's their plan. Froppy asks, you're protecting Bakago, where is he? They turn around and he's gone. They hear a voice and look towards a tree branch. To see a guy in the mask, they ask, who are you and where's Bakago? He says, I am Mr. Compressor, I took your friend with my magic, and shows them a blue marble in his hand. Side note, must say Mr. Compressor didn't get the news on time that they needed Deku, so he went after Bakago. Todoroki launches a big ice wall which Mr. Compressor jumps into the air. Mr. Compressor says, aha, you'll never get me. Deku says, you underestimate us. He flies so fast that no one sees him and punches Mr. Compressor, making him drop the marbles. He says, Todoroki catch. Todoroki wonders why they are two. Mr. Compressor says, damn you kid. He tries the same trick on Deku, but it does nothing because of Deku's Kai blocked it. He was taken back by this but then gets slammed to the ground by Deku, and Deku, still bloodthirsty, shoots a Kai blast, killing him. This scares them. He flies back down and says, I won't hurt you, but for some reason when I see a villain I lash out. Todoroki frees back Fago and Funkage explains to Balago what happens and they head to camp. Momo sees a Nomu and hides. She makes a tracking device and tells another student to use his quirk to attack it on it. Toga runs to Dabai and twice saying that she only got one and that she meets 2 friends and a boy that she loves. They see a large group of people in the forest thinking it's them, but it's the students. Dabai throws a fire attack at them which spreads them out, and Deku launches a Kai blast which hits the blast and explodes. Twice comes from behind, but Bakago blasts him away. Both the villains and the rest all get ready to fight. Toga tries to surprise attack with knives and blushing saying, "I'm Toga, give me your blood, Izuku." He snaps again and grabs Toga's arms and throws her against a tree, knocking her out. Dabai and Twice know they're out the match, so Dabai makes a firewall walling them in. Twice uses this and grabs Toga and retreats to the portal that opens out of thin air. Deku says, "Oh no you don't," and shoots a blast cutting of Dabai arms he grasps in pain, and they disappear through the portal. They all get the camp knowing that everyone's safe. Deku power fades and he falls unconscious. The last day of camps ends and everyone happy that everyone's safe. They return to the school. The class 1 teacher is having a meeting. The principal says thanks to Izuku he saved 2 students from harm but killed 2 villains in the process. He tells All Might, "You need to talk to Izuku because heroes shouldn't kill villains." All Might obliges and gets a phone call and says he must answer the call and walks out of the room taking it. He gets a call from Naomasa saying they found where the villains might be and they'll need his strength with other heroes. All Might buffs up and says, "I am here to counterattack." The news outlet report on this saying that no one was harmed but 2 students were captured, but a kid called Izuku Meteora saved them. Deku wakes up in bed with the class of 1 greeting him. They all talk, but then Kirishima runs into Todoroki later and asks, "What is he doing here?" Todoroki asks the same question back to him. All Might and Naomasa received the device that will track the Nomu that Momo made and say, "All Might says you really have grown truly hero worthy. But now, leave it to us." They later tell Lydia about it and Lydia says, "You're going to ask Momo to make another one of those so you can track them." Todoroki says, "What if it does mean that?" Lydia gets a flashback to his brother telling him not to cause trouble and leave it to the pro heroes. Lydia yells, "You fools, like All Might said, there are sometimes things we should leave to the pro heroes." Kirishima says, "Well, you're right, but me." Todoroki and Deku want to do more to help. Lydia says this is none of her matter, not even a student got captured, and we should leave it that way because we stand no chance against the League of Villains. Todoroki, Deku, and Kirishima all agree with Lydia logic because they got no one they can really save, so they don't go. All Might enter the room and asks for everyone to please get out. He wants to talk to Deku. All Might asks about the previous days and if he's okay. Deku says he's perfectly fine, which makes All Might happy, but All Might brings up about how he killed villains. Deku says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, when I powered up I couldn't control it against villains." All Might asks transformation. Deku says, "Yeah, I got really strong and my hair turned yellow." All Might says, "Can you show me it?" Deku says yes and powers up. All Might is taken back the power and realizes he should have given him one for all. He covers his grief about that and says, "I feel great power and you keep going and you'll definitely achieve your goal." Tamura clutches his fist and slams the table saying, "Damn it. We lost 2 kids, not to mention we lost 2 of our members and even more who got arrested." Tamura sees Dabai arm gun and asks what happened. Dabai said, "A boy with yellow hair who looked similar to the one you're also gauging over about cut my arm off before I could escape." Tamura then realizes and says, "It's that damn brat, he always foils our plans. Next time I see him, you kill him." After they take Tamura and All for One to jail, but sadly because of his head injury from All Might, All for One dies. Tamura later realizes he's dead and goes incensed and wants to kill. Deku runs into Itsuka and Testu. They see him and tell him not to breathe in the gas. Deku powers up, removing the gas from the area, dismantling the kid with the gas with ease and says, "Stay safe, I'm off." He runs into Mizo and he tells him that Fumicage's dark shadow is out of control. Deku, quick thinking, realizes he needs light to stop him, so he shines his bright yellow aura to control dark shadow to the point where Fumicage can control his dark shadow. Deku tells both of them, "We need to find Bakago and protect him when he gets back to camp." They run and find Todoroki and Bakago finish fighting the villains. They tell Bakago and Todoroki to follow them to the camp. As they continue the journey to the base camp, they run into Ochoko and Froppy telling them their plan, but Froppy asks them where's Bakago and Fumicage. A guy on a tree appears holding 2 marbles saying he is Mr. Compressor. He took Bakago instead of Deku because of the news of going for Deku didn't arrive on time. Compressor tries to fly away from Todoroki ice attack, but Deku flies towards him, hitting him, knocking the marbles out of his hand, and throws both of them to Todoroki. Compressor tries the same trick he did to Bakago and Fumicage, but Deku's Kai barrier blocks it and he hits him towards the ground, sending a Kai blast to finish him off. They continue to the base camp and run into Dabai, Toga, and Twice. Dabai launches a fire blast which Deku uses a Kai blast to counter, making a big smoke screen. Twice tries to go in for a sneak attack, but Bakago blasts him away. Toga also tries it too, but Deku quickly reacts and grabs her hand, throwing her against a tree, knocking her out. The villains know they are outnumbered, so Dabai makes a firewall to distract them, twice quickly grabs Toga, and they take the portal and leave. They return to the base camp, and after a couple of days of the event, the police tell All Might they might know where the League of Villains hideout is, and they are gathering a large number of pro heroes to help. The Class 1 students have a day off because of the events, and each one of them go home to relax. Meanwhile, the villains are talking about what's happening, and they hear a doorbell ring saying pizza here. Tamura looks around and asks who ordered a pizza. Everyone says not me, but Tamura says well, free pizza, and walks to the door when suddenly the whole front wall goes down. All Might smashes the brick wall and says I am here. Tamura sees this and tells Kigwari to use gate, but Kamui Wood uses his tree arms to stop it and tie up all the villains. Dabai uses his flames to try to burn the tree, but Gran Torino comes in and kicks Dabai in the face, knocking him out. The police and Endeavor are outside surrounding them, making sure they can't get out. Tamura says to bring in the Nomus, but Kigori says they aren't here. All Might smile and laugh, saying you underestimate everything, villains. The other heroes have taken down your Nomus. Now, where's your boss? Another hero shows up and puts Kujiri out cold. Tamura gets a flashback to when he's younger, and with All For One he then starts to summon some silver liquid that seems to make a portal. All Might sees this and yells smash, blowing the liquid, stopping it from making a portal, hitting Tamura, knocking him out. The heroes dealing with the Nomu find one for all. He realizes that all the Nomu are down and says I have nothing to do without, I just want to end All Might, and flies away. The liquids manage to teleport everyone but Tamura to All For One. All Might notices this and realizes it's All For One. He leaves Tamura to the rest of the hero. All Might goes to find All For One. Meanwhile, All For One is somewhere in a flat destroy area, saying looks like the portal didn't work out so well since Tamura is here. You must leave the villains to deny, but All For One takes Kujiro quirks and uses it to teleport the rest of the League of Villains away. All Might jump from the sky going for a punch. All For One blocks it, saying you seem stronger than the last time we met, you haven't found a successor. All Might headbutt him, then punching him into the concrete. He says I found one, but I told him not to use my quirk too much, and he carried it out pretty well. The fight carries on, and everyone watching it on TV because the TV reporting helicopter is recording it all. All For One notices this and got a plan to try to demoralize their symbol of peace in front of the whole world. Deku and everyone are at home or in cities cheering All Might on in this epic clash. All For One start to tire even with his strength and speed enhancement quirk, and so does All Might. All Might starts to go back to his original state. The crowd sees this as a shock. This makes All For One smile. All For One says yes, watch as your symbol of peace deflates and crumble. He gets interrupted by cheering from people saying All Might, All Might, All Might all around the city. It's an uproar. The citizens of the city know the whole world is still cheering All Might even if he's losing. This makes All For One angry and says you're a failure of teacher and a hero. I'll kill you and your successor, friends and family. He combines all his quirk, making a big giant arm, and charges in. No, I won't let you defeat me. I have to finish training young Mirio, and I have to see Izuku become a hero. All Might with his last bit of power goes full out. All Might dodged the punch, hitting All For One in the stomach with all he got. All For One is in the air. All Might says this is for the people of Japan that are on my side, know the whole world. All Might throw 50 punches, saying Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Smash. All For One gets sent flying back. All Might runs up to him and saying farewell, All For One. The United States of Smash, punching him in the head into the ground, breaking and badly damaging All For One a brain and head. Shockwave race across the whole city. It calms down and everyone cheers even louder before. All Might gets back in his buff form and puts his hands up, saying say it with me. Everyone, go beyond plus ultra. After they take All Might to hospital and One For All and Tamura to jail, but sadly All For One died because of his head injuries. Tamura, emotionally unstable, knows it was because of All Might and he wants to kill him even more. The rest of the League of Villains that make it out wonder who's the new leader since Tamura is gone. No one steps up except for Dabai. Dabai becomes the new leader of the League of Villains. The principal of UA tells Anazawa, All Might, and the Class B teacher to go out to all the students' parents about a waiver for dorms somewhere else. Because of all the danger and unease that's going around, All Might visit every house. Everything goes as the same as in the anime. after the students see their dorm room and get introduced around. Next day they head out to make their super moves. It was morning and it was about time for class. Everyone was so excited. They had been waiting all year to make special attacks. It was about time. Aizawa explained how they would do this and gave them an example from Idia's Recepro Burst. Most of the students had an idea what they wanted to do. Izuku had a bunch of ideas. He thought about a Kai sword and a whip, but there was one he really wanted to try. Izuku spreads his arms open and starts to charge Kai into the palm of both his hands. But before he does it, he asks Aizawa to clear a certain part of the training grounds. He agrees since he has seen what Izuku was capable of. Finally, Izuku put his palms together, merging the two spears. Then before he knew it, a gigantic beam blasted out of his hands, pushing him back into the wall and fracturing his arms. Aizawa sent him to the nurse's office. But before he left, he told Izuku, "I suggest you go get some support items to nullify the knockback, maybe shock absorption." "Right," Izuku replied. Recover Girl asked him how this happened, and he said, "It was a move I was trying to create. I imagine that Aizawa had already told you to not use this again." "Actually, he told me to go get support items to help nullify the recoil." Izuku said, a bit hesitant. "Ah yes, that is also a good idea. Now go, you're all healed, thank you." He ran out the door straight for the support room. Once he gets there, he sees Lita and Uraraka. They both walk towards him. They reach him and an explosion threw Izuku to the floor. Once the smoke cleared, he saw Mihatsumi lying on him. Insert fan service moment. They all ask her to make support items for them. Idea asks for something to cool down his engine. Uraraka asks for an item to reduce nausea, and Izuku asks for shock-absorbing gloves that reach all the way to his shoulders while Hatsume deals with Lee. Izuku continues to think for new attacks, then it hits him. He remembered Kirishima and how his quirk worked. Instead of going for flashy big attacks, he should go for strong concentrated attacks that deal massive damage. While in super or covering his body with Kai, he can concentrate all of it into his fist, creating a devastating weapon. Izuku then stands up and walks out of the room. He had decided he didn't need any support items, he could just train his body to handle the recoil. Izuku gets back to the training grounds, then sees All Might giving everyone advice. All Might smiles and greets Midoriya. "How are you doing with your super moves? I bet you have a lot of things to show me." Izuku nods. "Though I want to keep it a secret. I want you to see me use it during the licensing exam." He then heads back into the rubble. Distant grunts can be heard in the distance as Bakugo is creating his own move, AP shot, an explosion that is concentrated to one point, causing destructive damage. He finally pulls the move off, but a piece of the rock he struck started to chip off and a big chunk of it fell off. Bakugo saw that it was going to hit All Might. Aizawa did too. Then right when Eraserhead was about to pull All Might out of the way, a bright fist came out of smoke and struck the stone, completely destroying it. Once the smoke clears, it was revealed to be Izuku. It was surprising to both Bakugo and All Might, since up until now he would use huge shockwaves or blast. This attack brought a whole new variety of attack at his disposal. He called it Super Deku. Model, Harden. Kirishima turns to look at Deku since he had just screamed his quirk name, and everyone else watched in awe. All Might begins to recall the day he had saved Bakugo. He completely destroyed the monster with one blast. Yet no control over his quirk. He has come so far, he will definitely become the next symbol of peace. It has been about 2 days now. All the students are ready for the licensing exams, but nervous. When they arrive to the doors of the building, they meet the other students from the other schools. One of them greets them with respect and then sends a terrifying stare at Todoroki. Everyone walks in and is told the ground rules and what they will be doing for the first stage of the exam. The students will have to out on patches that have buttons that they put on their most vulnerable places, and the person attacking has to make a ball they are given to the button to score points. After the man finished explaining the walls of the room, they were in fall and everyone runs out. Next time on What If Deku Was a Saiyan. The students of Class 1 will have to face with the other schools. They are at a huge disadvantage because of the sports festival being broadcast across the world. Will our heroes pass the licensing exam? Find out next time on What If Deku Was a Saiyan. The hero MS. Joke begins to talk to Mr. Aizawa about the crushing of UA and how the sports festival has put them at a massive disadvantage. Aizawa proceeds to tell her that his students will be fine. He has seen what they are capable of, especially Izuku. Midoriya. Everyone runs out of the box and begins to clash. So most of the students at UA had stayed together, but Bakugo, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Todoroki had gone off by themselves. The class stays together in an odd formation. Izuku stays in the front. In a matter of seconds, dozens of balls fly at them but are quickly dealt with by Izuku and a Kai blast. The enemy schools were not surprised. They had thought this would happen. That was just a distraction. From under them, a tornado flings everyone away besides Izuku. A barrage of balls flies towards him, everyone confident that he couldn't destroy them all, but then Izuku expands his aura and makes the balls go back towards them. He had hit every single person there, but this didn't count for his score since they weren't thrown by him. Izuku goes off to look for others and stumbles across Uraraka. He lets his guard down. Uraraka tries to take him out, but before she knows it, she was knocked out by Izuku and she transformed back into Toga. He doesn't notice this though, he was too distracted by the girl being naked. He had just taken the points and left. He runs into the real Uraraka and Sero, the tape dude. Izuku keeps his guard up, suspicious of who they really are. He then explains to them about the girl that looked like Uraraka and turned naked. Sero and Uraraka freaked out and continued to ask Izuku questions. The two passes with flying colors thanks to Midoriya. But before he could grab his final points to pass, he sees a light in the distance and runs over. Leader runs around trying to group all of them and happens upon Aoyama hiding alone. Tenya tells Yuga he's been trying to help their classmates, and Yuga thinks it's funny that Tenya isn't worried about himself. Tenya explains that the needs of his classmates come first and this is his chance to act like his older brother and shape his dreams. Tenya says that he still wants to pass the exam and asks that Yuga help him. Yuga gets 2 of his 3 targets tagged and is confronted by a student. The student nearly eliminates Yuga, but Tenya grabs his classmate's cape and pulls him out of the way. Yuga says it'll be too hard to survive in this war zone with just the 2 of them, but Tenya refuses to give up. They're nearly hit with an explosion, but Tenya grabs Yuga's cape again and runs away quickly. The other 2 groups are pinned down by the chaos and only 10 spots remain for them to pass. Yuga is inspired by Tenya's sacrifice and tries to help him pass by acting as a decoy for the enemy. Yuga shoots his naval laser directly into the air, and it acts as a beacon of light to attract everyone to them. He explains that Tenya will fail if he keeps trying to protect him. He plans to lure in enemy students to Tenya can use his speed to eliminate 2 of them in an instant. An ambush arrives almost immediately, but it's interrupted when a giant flock of birds enters the battlefield. Koda looks on from atop a cliff and orders the birds to continue circling the area. Takoyami hides within the flock of birds and activates his black ink technique. Then he uses his Gloom of the Black Arms super move to take down several nearby opponents. Midoriya arrives and expands his aura, making people freeze, and the tail guy uses his tail to knock students down. Tenya is ecstatic to see that all the UA students are banding together again. Invisible Girl uses her light refraction move to blind several students before tagging their targets to pass the exam. The tail man passes as well, and Aoyama looks confused as he watches his classmates fight. Mina arrives and tells Aoyama that everyone was panicking and acting recklessly before they saw Yuga's light. Sugar Quirk Guy carries a rock with someone stuck to it, and Mina blocks incoming projectiles with her acid veil shields. Mina explains that everyone was able to meet up again thanks to Yuga's beam and thanks to him for the beacon of light. Mina eliminates someone and passes the exam. Midoriya dashes around knocking people out and passes a swell. Takoyami, Koji and Sugar Guy follow suit. Tenya and Yuga run to find 2 more targets, and Tenya tells the latter that it's thanks to him that everyone in class won a pass. They eliminate 2 more people and fill up the final 2 spots to pass the exam. Midoriya and the others watching from the waiting area are excited to learn that everyone from UA passed the first phase. Everyone who passes the exam meets in the waiting room. The announcer draws their attention to a monitor that shows the entire arena is turned into a disaster zone. He announces the second and final phase will involve conducting rescue operations. 10 minutes after the final phase of the licensing exam begins, most of the students appear to be doing well thanks to their training. The announcer comments that the test will include more adversity, alluding to the No. 10 hero and his gang preparing to enter the arena. Midoriya and the others were doing fine, Izuku especially. He had saved 10 people in the last 10 minutes when he had spotted someone. We would dash over and say, "It's fine now because I am here. You no longer have to fear the inevitable. I can take you to safety." Once he had lifted rubble or had picked the person up, he would hold them in his arms like a child with a pleasant aura. Someone of them had fallen asleep by the time Izuku got to the safe zone. Gang Orca and his men interrupt rescue operations and abruptly bursts into the arena using a large explosion. The students taking the exam are tasked with juggling rescue operations alongside suppressing the villain's presence. Gang Orca is curious how the students will handle this dire situation. Makeshift villains appear right next to the first aid station and threaten to destroy it. Many of the students notice the invasion right away and rush to protect and evacuate the first aid station because it's the cornerstone of the rescue mission. Right as the explosion happens, Izuku turns and dashes towards, appearing in front of Gang Orca and punching him in the gut, sending him flying. The makeshift villains try to shoot Izuku with the sticky balls that their guns shoot. Izuku walks through these with ease and knocks most of them unconscious. Everyone can hear the shockwaves of his dashes and strikes. The sight of Izuku doing this himself makes most of the students watch in awe as if he was the #1 hero and they were helpless. Shoto arrives and sees Izuku dealing with them and leaves him be, knowing his abilities. The Wind Guy try to help but instead is sent flying by Izuku's shockwaves, making it so the rest of the event of this final stage never happens. Shoto passes because he had gone off to save more people instead of being distracted with Gang Orca. The battle and the exam both come to an abrupt end. Yokimaru explains that the students were judged by proctors from the Hero Safety Commission as well as the HUC employees. They were graded based on how few mistakes they made. He instructs the participants to change and recover before the final results are revealed. The names of the students who passed are put up on a board showing that everyone in the class passed except Baku for his behavior against the citizen. Gang Orca's sidekicks apologize to him and say it's hard to move with their protective restraints. Restraints aside, Gang Orca reveals that they had no chance this student was on par with the top heroes. The students had returned to their dorms while everyone else unwinds from the exam. Katsuki walks past Izuku and calls him out. He tells Izuku to meet him out front later so they can have a talk about his quirk. They both leave the dorms in the middle of the night. Izuku is concerned about being out past their curfew, but Katsuki ignores him and leads them to Ground Beta. Katsuki mulls over their childhood together, remembering when Izuku used to be amazed over Bakugo's quirk. Bakugo reminds Izuku that Ground Beta is the same place where Izuku defeated him during the battle at the beginning of the year. Bakugo tells Midoriya how he feels about him. He was always annoyed at Deku for being quirkless, and week after their first battle he realized that's not the case anymore. He couldn't believe what Izuku had become. He had gotten strong and strong. Throughout the whole year he didn't understand why he has gotten stronger ever since All Might appeared. It's gotten to the point where Izuku passed the licensing exam and Bakugan didn't. Izuku tries to explain it's not a matter of skill, but Bakugo cuts him off and tells him to listen. Katsuki admits that the Kamino incident helped him understand. Izuku knows what's coming. Katsuki asks him if he got his quirk from All Might. He made the connection that All For One and All Might know each other and both have the ability to pass on their quirks. Izuku changed after he met All Might. Katsuki already asked All Might about it, but he didn't answer, and so Katsuki now asks Izuku. Izuku tells him no, this power is his own, and wonders how he had connected that he had one for all passed down to him if their quirks are completely different. He replies that they both wanted to be like All Might, but Izuku is the one who got acknowledged by him. Frustrated, Katsuki tells Izuku they need to fight right here, right now. Izuku keeps trying to explain that he doesn't have All Might's quirk, but Bakugo doesn't listen. Izuku tells Kaken it's a bad idea to fight because they're already breaking the rules and says they should fight during a training class. Katsuki ignores Izuku's pleas and states that if they fought during a training session, the teachers would keep them from going all out, and foes in to say that he wants to see for himself why All Might had chosen Izuku. Katsuki stretches his arms to prepare and warns Deku to put his guard up or else he might get hurt. He disregards this after remembering that Deku fights like Kirishima now. Izuku's Saiyan blood kicks in and gets into a fighting stance. With a smile, he was excited to see what Bakugo could do. Izuku is met with Katsuki blasting himself into striking range. Who will win this clash of titans? Bakugo is rushing in with blind rage, but Izuku seems calm and collected. Find out next time on What If Deku Was a Saiyan. Bakugo wants to fight to release his pent-up transgressions, not used correctly. Now they must battle to communicate their feelings. Bakugo blasted himself towards Izuku in a blind rage. I'll kill you, damn Deku. As Bakugo approached, Izuku activated his new form, got into a battle stance and stepped forward to punch him in the gut. Show me your true power, Kaken. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's arm and threw him upwards, which sent him flying. Izuku was surprised by this, as Bakugo had been the first person to not be stunned by one of his punches. Bakugo exclaims, I heard you started using closer ranged fighting like Kirishima. Joke's on you, I've been training with him since the sports festival. Bakugo released a huge blast as Izuku was in the air. Izuku was sent even further upwards. As the smoke cleared, Izuku dived straight down and kicked Bakugo, which was eerily similar to the Manchester Smash. Bakugo blocked Izuku's blow. However, it broke through it, leaving a bright red mark on his arm. Bakugo threw himself forward and grabbed Izuku's face. He blasted him into the ground as Izuku countered him with a kick to his face, making Bakugo to stagger slightly. Izuku continued his attack and punched his side, launching Bakugo into a building. Bakugo flew back to Izuku and tried to blast him away, but he barely managed to dodge the explosion. Izuku grabbed him by the shirt and threw him into the sky. He powered up once more and bounced back and forth between walls, similar to how Gran Torino fights. Every time Izuku would go out of Bakugo's point of view, a massive blow would hit Bakugo, knocking him off the ground. Izuku was hitting Bakugo so many times that he looked like a ragdoll. One of the robots patrolling the area reported back to UA that there were students fighting. Aizawa heard the alarm go off and headed out to stop them. However, All Might stopped him in his tracks and asked if he could go. Aizawa nods and All Might leaves. Bakugo launched himself further into the air to dodge Izuku's bombardment of punches and kicks, then quickly shot down towards his now vulnerable opponent. Izuku evaded Bakugo's retaliation, but Bakugo propelled himself to spin continuously so that one of his attacks connected. Bakugo misses and starts to descend down to the ground. Bakugo redirected himself off the ground, then used more explosions to flank Izuku from behind and delivered a powerful punch to Izuku's side that sent Izuku flying into a nearby railing. Bakugo didn't give Izuku enough time to recover and leapt to the railing. Izuku dodged the initial explosion, but Bakugo used the momentum to spin himself around and grappled him. He tossed Izuku away and landed on the rail himself. Izuku started to recover and realized that his reaction time has improved considerably as a big smile ran across his face. Bakugo got annoyed by Izuku's self-confidence and lunged at him with an explosion. Izuku juked him and returned an attack right back at him. To protect himself, Bakugo unleashed his stun grenade technique to blind Izuku. It successfully obscured Izuku's vision and he followed up with a punch in the jaw. Expressing his disdain with Izuku's attitude, Bakugo grabbed Izuku by the shirt and blasted both of them up. Bakugo barraged him with explosions, leaving multiple burn marks on Izuku through the smoke created by Bakugo's attack. Izuku's clenched fist appeared with all his aura covering it and clocked him in the face. Bakugo clutched Izuku's shirt again and tried to blast him onto the floor while trying to keep him restrained. It failed as Izuku ripped off his shirt, not letting him be thrown to the ground. Izuku once again put all his aura around his fist and charged it with excess power. He used his non-charge hand to counter Bakugo and turned the tables, which put Izuku in the perfect position to punch him in the gut, sending both students plummeting into the ground. "Stop, Kakin. This power is mine. I fought to get here and I'll keep fighting until I reach number 1. It doesn't matter that All Might acknowledged me. I rejected his help." TCH, shut up, nerd. Only because you're this powerful doesn't mean you're gonna be number 1. After all the hard work he did just to get to UA, he got outdone by someone who he thought was beneath him. He was different, more confident, and able to talk to him without stuttering or stumbling his words. Shortly after, All Might arrived and told them both to break it up. Bakugo asked All Might why he admired Izuku more. All Might told him that even though Izuku was practically powerless, he was still very heroic and selfless and believed that he had the ability to grow stronger and to compete with others. He then told Bakugo that he was always strong and had a quirk and didn't pay attention to him due to him already being talented and strong enough to become a top-ranking hero. Emotional, Bakugo admitted that he's weak. All Might embraced him and apologized for making him think that. Bakugo broke out of the hug and All Might told him that a hero needs the desire to win and to save people as well as to uphold justice. Izuku always admired Kakin's strength and Bakugo feared Izuku's heart. Now that their feelings are out in the open, they both realize that they can make each other stronger so that they can win and save people. Somewhat relieved, Bakugo sat on the ground and told Izuku he shouldn't lose with All Might's guidance. Izuku replied that he will get stronger. As 3 of them left ground beta, All Might reminded Bakugo that he was both of their teachers, so he would be willing to take him under his wing, just like Izuku. He replied that he still has the desire to surpass the number 1 hero and so would be okay with working under him. He then told Izuku that he will focus on improving to surpass him. Izuku replied to Kakin, saying that he'll surpass even that. They started to go back and forth about it, while All Might realized that the 2 of them took a big step and finally became proper rivals. Back at the dorms, Shota Aizawa restrained both his students for fighting past curfew. All Might tried to calm him and explain part of the situation without giving away his idea of making both of them his protégés. Aizawa let them go but decided to punish them accordingly by asking who initiated it. Bakugo admitted that he hit first while Izuku said that he also fought hard and retaliated. Bakugo got 4 days house arrest while Izuku got 3. During that time, they must clean the common areas every morning and night and submit a written apology. Aizawa told them both not to go to Recovery Girl because they need to deal with the injuries they created without relying on her quirk. The next day, both of them cleaned the main lodge while their classmates went to the second term opening ceremony. While vacuuming, Izuku asked Kakin how his hardening technique was to fight against. He didn't expect an answer and was surprised when Bakugo talked to him normally. Bakugo told Izuku that his motions were too wide when he went for direct punches. One day as Izuku went out to throw out trash, he spotted a face on the wall looking at him. He noticed it was Mirio Tagata, the current user of One for All. He jumped in shock and asked him what he was doing there. "Oh, I'm just taking a look at how the troublemaker was doing." Izuku rolled his eyes and Mirio smiled. "How's the training with All Might and One for All going?" he asked as he put the trash away. Mirio told him not to change the subject and continued to scold him about his altercation with Bakugo. Izuku knew better than to argue, so he explained how his body wanted to fight and that he couldn't stop till he won. Mirio gave him a lecture about how your body moving in to save someone in need is what makes a great hero, but someone who rushes into a fight isn't. He also told Izuku to prepare since we would be coming over to Wano in a few days and warned him that he has improved from before. Izuku nodded and told him the same thing. 3 days had passed and Izuku was able to go back to class. As he was walking into class 1A, Ida, Uraraka, and Kirishima came over to ask what he was thinking. Kirishima told him that the under-house arrest softened Bakugo up a bit and nudged him a bit. Ida told him that it was a horrible idea to get into a fight and that now that he is out of house arrest, he could talk to him since he hadn't over the past few days. Uraraka backed Ida up. As class started, Aizawa walked in with 3 other students. Izuku saw Mirio and was surprised. He had thought Mirio was kidding a few days ago when he said he was going to visit them. Aizawa explained how they were there to talk about work studies. Tamaki Amajiki was too afraid to speak in front of the class while Neji Hato got too distracted by Shoji's mask. Mirio tried to break the ice with a joke but got an even colder response. Mirio figured the first-year students had little ideas about what's going on, so he decided to explain by showing rather than telling. He challenged all of class 1 to fight him all at once. Before we continue with this what if, this video is sponsored by Comax Customs, a brand new clothing line made for the wearer. Comax Customs puts the customer first, offering a variety of clothing options ranging from casual to business casual. If you're looking for comfortable, easy-fitting clothing at low prices, check out Comax Customs today. Everyone changed into their gym clothes and ran to Gym Gamma. Tamaki tells Mirio not to kill the younger students' spirits. Kirishima and Takoyami suggested that they don't need a handicap from Mirio. Mirio told them to attack whenever they were ready. Kirishima tried to attack first, but Izuku stepped up to the challenge and activated the Super Izuku model. Hardening. Members of Class 1 specializing in close combat decided to surround their opponent. Everyone armed themselves with their quirks until they were taken by surprise when Mirio's clothes suddenly fell off his body. He rushed to get his pants back on, which led Izuku to try and kick Mirio's head. Izuku's foot phased clean through Mirio's head, but Izuku switched from another kick aimed at Mirio's head to a punch directed at his gut. This took Mirio by surprise as he got sent backwards 10 meters and clenched his stomach. The other students cheered for Izuku. Mirio said, "You weren't kidding when you told me you take notes on every hero you meet." They both smirked at his comment. Mirio was attacked from behind by Aoyama, Zero, and Ashido's quirks. Their attacks slipped right through Mirio's body, and he disappeared in the ensuing explosion. He suddenly reappeared behind the class and said, "I'll take out the long-ranged fighters first." Takoyami uses black ink to try and attack Mirio from behind, but he slipped through the ground and hit Takoyami in the gut with a powerful surprise attack. He quickly moved in and knocked out Zero and Minta with 2 quick punches. Aoyama, Ashido, and Asui tried to subdue him together, but they ended up knocked down by his quick attacks. Using a combination of his quirk and technique, Mirio defeated half of Class 1 within a single minute. Aizawa shouted to Class 1 to use this great opportunity and learn from it because as he knew it would be invaluable. He also revealed that Mirio was the closest hero to being the number 1, including the pro heroes, having dealt with the long-range combatants. Mirio turned his attention to the close-ranged fighters and brawlers of Class 1A. Kirishima was shocked that Mirio had a quirk that could make him invincible, but Izuku told his remaining classmates they needed to wait to counterattack once Mirio came to them. Whatever Mirio did, he would always use a direct attack, and during that precise moment, they should counterattack. Kirishima thanked him for the tip since it might work. Mirio fell into the ground again, leaving the students angsty. Izuku predicted that he would try an attack from behind again. He popped up exactly where Izuku anticipated and launched up to counter him. Mirio was unfazed by this, knowing that Izuku would have most probably caught on to his strategy. He then released one of his super moves as Izuku was next to him, about to connect with a kick. Blinder touch eyeball crush. Mirio phased his arm into Izuku's leg and used his index to poke him in the eye. Izuku closed his eyes to protect himself, but he felt no contact. Mirio had activated his quirk to go through Izuku's head, which made him blind to Mirio's true attack, which was a wide hook into Izuku's gut. Izuku fell straight down onto the concrete. Mirio decided to continue his trajectory and go forward and finish off the class. He went through them like a breeze, shouting his popular catchphrase, "POWEER." He turned around and saw one student still standing. It was Izuku. He got up from the concrete crater and assumed a fighting pose. Mirio thought to himself that he should just get it over and done with. He started to run at Izuku. As Mirio approached, Izuku charged up to his Kai-enhanced form. Mirio pulled back his fist, ready to do the same super move again. Blinder touch eyeball crew. Izuku had hit Mirio in the gut with a Kai blast, halting his progress and forward momentum as well as creating a small crater beneath both of them. Because of the Kai blast, the other students started regain consciousness, huddling together to watch the fight. This sent Mirio back a few meters, although he couldn't see Izuku's face. He resolved that the only way to win was to go all out. He built up one for all in his body, increasing his power level. He took a few steps towards Izuku until he was close enough to activate his quirk and attack him with another one of his super moves. He then started to bounce from surface to surface. His speed increased and the distance between himself and Izuku decreased. Mirio got ready to throw an assault. He noticed that Izuku had remained motionless. Mirio thought that he'll win as he sprinted towards Izuku. He stayed motionless. He swung his arm to strike him in the face. Izuku still didn't move. He turned around to see Izuku, who was facing away from him. His fighting spirit grew exponentially, passing his will to beat Mirio in a 1-versus-1 fight. Rubble around them from when Izuku hit the wall started to levitate as the air around them grew denser and denser. The atmosphere around him seemed calm, frighteningly calm. Izuku turned to face his adversary. Face to face, his eyes were burning with anger. Izuku felt that his classmates have been disrespected, all their hard work put to shame. Mirio saw this and starts to charge one for all around his body, glowing with golden lightning, recognizing that his normal state just won't be good enough for his next challenge. I will not let you win, Izuku shouted with all of his passion and might. Suddenly, Izuku started shouting as his Kai expanded into a blazing inferno surrounding him. All his classmates looked in awe as a wave of heat hit them like a truck, pushing some of them back a couple of feet. Others landed on their butts due to the immense pressure in the facility. The class peered up through the glass panels on the ceiling. Black clouds revolve around the facility. Without warning, a bolt of lightning impacted the building, which shook everyone inside. Izuku's hair started to flash golden, his dark pupils gone from his eyes. His aura changed color also, matching his now golden locks, his eyes now a piercing blue. His demeanor has changed, his face supporting a more vengeful look, staring daggers towards Mirio. Aizawa-sensei, get everyone away. Make sure they're at a safe distance, he called out to his teacher, not too sure on what was happening. Now Saiyan. Izuku now demanded of his teacher. He had no other option but to comply. That kid is gonna get a lesson on how to respect his elders when we get back, Aizawa thought, as he pulled all of his students back with his capture gear. You better know what you're doing, kid. If not, then you'll be put under house arrest again until the end of this semester. Yes, sensei, Izuku replied. Aizawa thought about using his own quirk to stop the fight, but his curiosity got the better of him and let the fight continue. He sent a message to Principal Nezu to set up a meeting between himself, Izuku, and the principal. Mirio felt a cold chill, sensing that he was in imminent danger. He set his fighting pose and got ready to brawl. Izuku followed suit. Both stood there, waiting for some type of movement. Mirio's hand twitched slightly due to the immense pressure Izuku was producing, and he rushed in, leaving a crater in his wake. Mirio saw him for a second until he vanished right in front of him. A high-pitched sound cut through the air as Izuku somewhat teleported behind Mirio and hit him with a right hook. Mirio tried to brace, but the punch was far too quick for him to react defensively. He went flying into the next wall while Izuku kept up the pressure. He tracked him down and hit him with a flurry of shots. His limbs were moving so fast, to the spectators watching, all they could see were the afterimages of Izuku's attacks. He was moving too fast for Mirio to even activate his quirk and dodge. Damn it, Mirio thought. If he keeps this up, I'll be knocked out before I even throw back a punch. I need to increase the charge on one for all through my entire body to keep up with his speed. Izuku then uppercut him, sending Mirio upwards 30 feet. Mirio, shocked by Izuku's devastating power, looked back down to Izuku. He then realized that he wasn't there anymore. He searched for him, looking at everything in front of him. He came to a conclusion that Izuku was somehow behind him. Before he could even react to launch a counter, Izuku's double hammer punch sent Mirio into the ground. He saw this as his opportunity. Mirio activated his quirk, which sent him hundreds of feet underground. As soon as he shut off his quirk, he got sent straight back up at an immeasurable speed. He resurfaced and propelled towards Izuku, who hovered still from when he attacked Mirio, still glowing with one for all. He sped up on his ascent towards Izuku. Improvised ultimate move, Phantom Menace. Air missile, shouted Mirio as he spiraled, which built up to a powerful strike. Izuku put up a block, but it was no use. Mirio's kick warped through his arm and struck Izuku in the face. This sent Izuku into the wall, denting it. He fell to the ground as rubble collapsed on top of him, creating a dust cloud. Mirio landed and cautiously walked towards Izuku, knowing full well that his kick wouldn't be able to knock Izuku out, especially in his powered-up state. The rubble began to move. Mirio halted, scanning to see if Izuku was still in a fighting spirit. He heard the high-pitched whistle again. However, the sound kept repeating. He stumbled back and bumped into something. He felt his aura. Suddenly, Izuku started screaming. Mirio turned to face him, but only to get hit with a large energy burst from both of Izuku's hands. It was the same as the ultimate move he was practicing, but due to his current power boost, he is able to control the recoil and not fracture his bones. Mirio was blasted away and landed on the rubble that had already fallen from his previous attack. He tried to get back up, but he couldn't move. He noticed that his arm might be broken and his legs are underneath heavier pieces of concrete. He looked back up. Izuku staggered towards him. For the first time in a long time, he was truly afraid. Izuku inched closer and closer while Mirio tried to find a way out of his demise. Izuku stood victoriously over Mirio. Hurt my class again and I will hurt you more than today, Izuku threatened Mirio. He didn't respond. Izuku turned around. His hair returned to its natural black and dark green hue, to its messy hairstyle. His eyes regained their bright green color. He took a few more steps away before he abruptly collapsed. Aizawa rushed to the aid of his student and Mirio. The other students of Wana as well as the other two members of the Big Three trailed behind. Najire kept on bugging the students, asking what was that and have they seen it before. All of them were dumbfounded, not sure at all whether that was truly their classmate or not. Tamaki Amajiki sprinted to get all the rubble off of Mirio, still trapped under all the debris. Aizawa once again switched his phone on, but this time to call for transport to take Izuku and Mirio straight to the nurse's office. The rest of Class 1 were urged to go back to class. That damn nerd. How does he always power up when I close in on him? Bakugo grumbled, pissed off that Izuku most probably surpassed his current limits, though he wasn't at the fight. Everyone returned to the dorms talking about it. Don't worry, Bekubro. You're awesome as it is. I'm sure you'll be number 1 in no time, Kirishima said, trying to cheer up his always angry friend. Bakugo just grunted and walked back towards his room. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. 2 hours after the fight and Izuku woke up from his encounter with Mirio, he got up in a panic, not knowing what had happened after the fight. He noticed that he's in Recovery Girl's office and calmed down. He saw that he was still in his school training uniform. However, the top was cut off with bandages that covered his torso and shoulders. He noticed a silhouette next to him, behind a curtain. He pulled the curtain back and saw Mirio in a bunch more bandages and a cast and sling on his right arm. Izuku immediately started apologizing over and over again. Mirio laughed. You did really well in the fight. Your quirk is really strong, but to be able to boost yourself like that is amazing. I thought I was a goner for a second, but it's good to know that you're on the hero's side, he replied optimistically. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. But that was before the door opened. All Might entered with Aizawa behind his massive figure. Young Midori, how are you doing? I hope you haven't injured yourself too much. From what I saw on the cameras and from Mr. Aizawa's account of the fight, it was amazing. How did you do it? All Might questioned, almost deafening everyone in the room. I don't know, All Might. I just focused on how Mirio easily defeated my friends, how all their hard work was dismantled, and how much it hurt their progress. I now see it as a stupid reason to get mad, but if I didn't, I wouldn't have known about this new power, Izuku replied, bewildered with this new aspect of himself. I'll take that as a compliment, Mirio chuckled, as he laughed once more, which helped Izuku get rid of any guilt. Well, it is an interesting turn. I'll be keeping a much closer eye to your progress, young Izuku, and young Mirio. I'll talk with you soon. There's much you need to learn also. All Might spoke as he made his way out of the office. Your classmates have written notes for you and I'll pick someone to get you once Recovery Girl has dealt with you, Aizawa said in his very bland voice, following All Might and leaving both Izuku and Mirio alone. You really are strong, Izuku. You truly have what it takes to be the number 1. I mean, look at what you did to me. I doubt many villains would be able to overpower me this easily. Now promise me this. Don't stop working. You beat me using this unknown power that you just grasped. But what says that that is your limit? Keep pushing yourself to work harder and strive to be the number one, because it'll be more fun to compete for that spot with you. Izuku was surprised, to say the least. He never expected to hear these things from someone who had just lost to him in a fight. All Izuku could do was nod. His eyes lit up with determination. Mirio stood up from his bed and started to go towards the door. Wait, Mirio-senpai. Where are you going? Izuku asks, worried over his very injured senior. Oh, recovery girl has already given me treatment. I was just told to wait until you wake up to leave. They didn't want you to panic over whether you injured me too much. Mirio replied in his always happy tone. He opened the door and bumped into someone. Sorry, I'm guessing you're here for Izuku. He's right around there. See ya, kid. Mirio waved at his junior and walked away. Izuku kept his eye on the door where Ochako Uraraka walked through. Hi Deku, are you okay now? You were awesome. How did you change your hair color? Is that your new ultimate move? Asked Uraraka, frying Izuku's brain with the amount of questions in succession. As Uraraka interrogated him, she got closer and closer. Izuku noticed this and went beet red, while Uraraka also went beet red as she noticed that she was talking to Izuku while he was somewhat half naked. Recovery girl came along and did a checkup on Izuku. She noticed that nothing was truly out of the ordinary and sent him back to class after he changed back into his normal school clothes. At the end of the day, Izuku went back to his home and started to train again as he was preparing for the next big step in his hero career. Work studies. Where would he find his place, and how would his experience in his work change him as a hero? It was the next day of school, and Midoriya was walking through the halls of UA but encountered some stairs while trying to get to class. He couldn't help but think about what happened the day prior, when he pushed his body to his absolute limit, then broke even further. This got Midoriya thinking that he could infinitely increase his power if he wanted to. He mumbled and brought on more stairs as he stood before the door of Class 1A. He opened it only to be met with a barrage of questions. Hey Midoriya, shouted Kirishima. That was awesome yesterday. When were you going to tell us about your new ultimate move? It looks so manly. Everyone get back into your seats. Mr. Aizawa will be here. Ada protested, but the volume of the room was too high for anyone to hear him. You were really scary. It looked like you wanted to kill him, but you were so cool, Mina shouted as her excitement levels skyrocketed when she remembered him fighting. Get to your seats, everyone. We don't want to, Ada pleaded, this time while he chopped his hands repeatedly and still no one would listen. Please, guys, Midoriya said. I just want to get to my seat. The group of students that huddled around the door gave way to Midoriya as he closed the door behind him. It seemed as though they were slightly frightened if he got mad again. He went to sit on his seat, however. The huddle still followed and continued to blast him with questions. Ada still demanded that everyone return to their seats. I'll answer all your questions after class. Mr. Aizawa is gonna kick our butts if you guys don't get back into your seats, Midoriya implored, but his plea fell on deaf ears. The door shuffled slightly and everyone then rushed to their seats, leaving Ada dumbfounded as he was the only student standing up. Ada, if I catch you being the last one to their seat again, I'll give the role of class rep to someone more fitting. Aizawa spoke with his cold and emotionless voice. Ada went to his seat mumbling something while Uraraka tried to cheer him up. Due to the complications that happened after the fight yesterday, he stared towards Midoriya. We weren't able to talk about the work studies and what it truly means to be in one. And since he insisted on coming back, Mirio Tagata is going to explain everything to you, and then you can ask him questions. Everyone turned their attention to the door. The smiling blonde that was Mirio walked in with a sling around his right arm and a small plaster on his temple. He stood next to Aizawa as he slipped into his yellow sleeping bag. Hello again. How's everyone doing? Mirio asked in his always cheery mood. Everyone would have responded as cheerily as he did, but most remembered how Mirio destroyed each and every one of them with just one punch each. No one responded and he received a few glares. Oh, okay. Let me just say sorry first. I'm not very good with words. I was feeling very energetic and thought maybe showing you what doing a work study can do for you. What do you guys think of my quirk? Is it strong? Yeah, it's too strong, shouted Zero, as he flailed his arms around. Yeah, it's not fair. My quirk is nothing compared to that, retorted Hagakure. Yeah, how can you phase through things and warp? Do you have two quirks like Todoroki does? Mina questioned him. A small bead of sweat could be seen on Mirio's forehead as he tried to answer the question without giving away his secret. And then nope, just the one, Mirio answered as he showed his best poker face. Just the one, Midoriya whispered, making sure no one could hear him as he chuckled slightly to himself. My quirk name is Permeation and the warping was. Mirio waited for someone to answer, but he just continued himself. You guessed it, simply an alternate application of that power. When it activates, I can go through anything. No sweat. That includes solid ground. So that was you falling through the floor of the gym? Uraraka queried. Yeah, that's right. And whenever I release my quirk while I'm falling, something super strange happens. Apparently things with mass can't overlap. That's called physics, and so I get repelled upward. Think of it this way. The ground spits me out and I fly out into the air. That's how my warp works, by changing the angle based on the direction of my body or the pose I'm holding. I can aim for where I get repelled to. Sounds like a buggy video game. Mina replied. You could say that. Mirio laughed. So you can avoid all attacks and move wherever you like in an instant. It is a really strong quirk, Suyu said. Most of the students agreed with her comment. No, I made it into a strong quirk. When my quirk activates, my lungs can't take in oxygen. In the same way, vibrations go through my eardrums and light goes through my retinas. I can go through everything. That means I can't feel anything. I just fall even while I have mass. That's all it is. Does that make sense? That's why. If I want to go through a wall, I activate everything but one leg, then I release the other leg and land on it. I then activate my other leg and go through, even for simple tasks like that. I have to put a lot of thought into them, Mirio explained. If that were me, I'd mess it up every time. Kaminari said. Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to move if I can't feel a thing. Minta added. That's right. I was always behind. In order to get to the top of this quirk, I had to start working on my mentality and increase the options I could use to win in a fight. I started to work on predictions and thinking faster than anyone else. Becoming tricky was my new #1 asset. I gained experience through training and fighting in a work study. When a pro invites us to a work study, we're not guests. We are treated as one of the sidekicks and as pros. That's really scary. Pros risk their lives and see death frequently. But through those scary and painful things, all of them are first-rate experiences you wouldn't be able to have at school. I changed my experience into power and took the top spot. That's why it's something you should do first years, even if you're afraid. Mirio ended. Wow, even though he said he wasn't good with words, he sounded just like a pro hero. I can't wait to see who I'll be working with, Yaoyorozu said very excitedly. I hope I get to work for a hero that kicks every villain's butt. Uraraka shouted as she threw a fist in the air. I hope I get a hot paw. Minda said in a creepy tone, only to be smacked by Tsuyu's tongue. Everyone started to talk until a cold shiver hit their spines. They looked towards the front of the class and Aizawa had activated his quirk as he showed his death glare. The students all returned to complete silence. You kids better make the right decision, just like the internships. I know quite a few third years who still regret their decisions. Class dismissed, Aizawa said, again in his cold and emotionless voice. It was now the end of the day, and most of the students had an idea or a recommendation from another student. Kirishima contacted Amajiki while Tsuyu and Uraraka asked Hato if they could join her work study. Midoriya had an idea, but wasn't sure whether he should have moved forward with it or not. He made his choice and ran down the corridors towards the third-year floor, and before he got there, he ran into Mirio Tagata. Hello there, trouble kid. Why are you here? Mirio asked in his cheery mood. I want to do my internship with Sir Night-Eye. I want to learn and grow alongside you, and I want to see what I can do to improve. What training you do for that and how different you are to me. Like that I can see what it means to become #1 at UA. Midoriya said this with so much conviction that Mirio had no other response other than I'll see what I can do. Midoriya had a glimmer in his eyes, wanting to be the best so he could become the next symbol of peace. They said their goodbyes to each other and Midoriya ran home. He knew that it would be a lot of hard work, and so for a week, he continuously trained to transform into his new golden form, which he was gonna call Super Saiyan. His quirk has changed a lot over his lifetime, from giving him a tail to turning to a giant ape, and now being able to power up and fight was the next step in his quirk's evolution. So after training on his transformation, it started to become less and less strenuous the more he did it. It was as though his ceiling wasn't broken, just elevated. He now knew there was more to this power-up than he first thought. However, one day he was training near Dagaba Beach, clearing some of the trash as well as doing endurance, stamina, strength and conditioning workouts in the water. This time there wasn't as much rubbish, but there were quite a few big pieces. He decided it would be better to reduce the bigger pieces by smashing them flat from above. He was successful with his first 2 big pieces, however. When he jumped above the third one, he slipped on his landing on the fridge. He started falling and panicked slightly. He activated his base mode form and did everything he could prevent injuries. He closed his eyes at the last second, waiting for the impact of sand in his face, but noticed a sense of weightlessness. He opened his eyes and he was floating slightly off the ground. He looked towards his feet and they were also off the ground. Shocked with this, He tried standing straight and to float back up towards the top of the fridge. As soon as he thought about it, he started going back up and landed softly on the fridge. Midoriya then practiced his new flying technique along with his Super Saiyan form. It was the end of the week and after school. Mirio was in the corridors of the first-year floor. The bell had just rang and Class 1 were leaving their homeroom. Midoriya was the last one out with Ida and Uraraka. He saw Mirio at the door and told them to meet him outside the school gates. Both walked ahead as Mirio walked in. So I've talked with Sir Nightai and he said that he'll accept your offer if you are up to his standards. Tomorrow, I'm going to the agency for my patrol. You should come with me after school. Like that, he can see for certain whether you've got potential in his eyes. Mirio told his junior. Just one small hint. He is really strict and so. Maybe because of his serious image, he holds humor in a high regard, so if you are able to make him laugh, you'll be accepted in seconds. Midoriya felt a cold shiver as he knew he was never a funny person. He definitely thought he was doomed, but he couldn't just give up. He walked with Mirio for a few minutes until they both reached the school gates. They agreed to meet at the gates the next day as Mirio turned back to go into school. Midoriya and his friends walked to the station and then split up as each made their way home. Midoriya told his mum that he would be arriving later tomorrow as he had a very important and very busy day. He trained for a small bit with weights, had a shower, ate and went to bed, happily anticipating what was to come. Izuku Midoriya was finishing his class, saying goodbye to everyone and kept his cheery attitude in front of everyone. But inside, he was more nervous than ever before. He was trying to mentally prepare himself for his meeting with Sir Nightai. However, no matter what he did to try to calm himself down, he was sweating bullets. He walked towards the school gates and found Mirio Tagata. He could clearly see that his junior was in no way ready to meet All Might's former sidekick. Mirio walked slightly ahead of Izuku as they made their way to the agency. Hey, there's no need to worry. I'm sure he's gonna pick you. You kicked my butt in front of your entire class, so I'm sure you pass on the technical side and you are pretty heroic from what I heard from other teachers. Mirio enthusiastically said a little too loudly as he got slight stares from the people around him. I'm not worried about meeting Sir Nightai. I don't have a joke for him. I've never been funny or social. What joke can I come up with in 5 minutes? Midoriya half shouted in a panic which dragged more attention. Calm down, I'm sure you'll be okay, Mirio asserted as he patted Midoriya's back. They both stopped in front of this large white building with dark green tinted windows. Mirio walked towards a keypad next to the door and managed to get the door to open. Both walked up a spiral staircase where they were met by a long corridor leading to a big wooden door. Mirio walked ahead and Midoriya followed. With each step, he did his best to keep his composure. Mirio once again tried to make sure that his junior was okay. Midoriya reassured him, walked ahead and opened the door. Sir, this is the first year I was talking about yesterday. Mirio, again with his loud voice, boomed across the room. The sight terrified Midoriya as he saw a blue girl imprisoned on a board being tickled by feathers. A tall, lanky figure stood before her and turned to the two boys. His sinister eyes met Midoriya's and he just froze. What kind of place is this? Midoriya yelped. It looks like Bubble Girl was unable to make him laugh, Mirio said, unfazed by the torture that transpired in front of him. Midoriya started to panic in his head. He lost the joke he had in his head. He then came up with a plan. Try to copy one of his favorite All Might faces, but before he could even contort his face, Sir Nightai cut him off. I heard that you defeated Mirio in combat. Still doesn't determine if you're a good hero or not. Just means you're a fighter. What proves to me that you're the right choice to have you as my intern and therefore a hero. Sir Nightai responded with a slight touch of venom to the end of his words, keeping his intense gaze on the younger student. While this was happening, Mirio walked around the two and freed Bubble Girl from her restraints. Hey Mirio, what's with this kid? Bubble Girl asked her younger colleague. He's one of my underclassmen, and even though he hasn't come up with a joke or anything, I'm sure that Sir Nightai will be amused by him, Mirio said with a big smile on his face. You can ask anyone in Class 1 and my teachers. I've done more than most other people my age, and I have fought for everyone in my class when I beat Mirio. Midoriya, determination in his eyes, replied. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos. He kept scrolling until he reached what he wanted to show. He held his phone out to him. This is a letter of a kid who I managed to save while our class was attacked by the League of Villains in our training camp. I fought so hard just to get to this spot, and if you reject me, it won't mean that I'll stop being who I am or continuing to be a hero. I came here because I know I can become stronger under your agency. Midoriya expanded. Sir Nightai was taken aback slightly by his reply. Is that so? You want to become stronger? Hand me your form. Sir Nightais intimidating aura shook Midoriya's spirit a bit, but he calmly complied. Midoriya pulled out a piece of paper from his backpack and handed it to the pro hero. As he held it out, Sir Night-Eye grabbed it as well as Midoriya's wrist. Their vision locked for a few seconds. Sir Night-Eye's eye went purple and black. Midoriya didn't know what was happening, but tried to stay poised as he didn't want to show any weaknesses. Interesting. All I need to do is stamp this and you'll be an intern at my agency, correct? Well, you'll start next week Monday on normal patrols with Mirio. If you're even a second late, I will end the internship and you'll be going back to school. You'll be missing classes for the next few weeks. If you're behind on your classes, I'll also end the internship. Do you agree with these conditions? Sir Night-Eye questioned Midoriya, seeing if he could back up his talk. Midoriya nodded, holding a stern face and squaring his shoulders to make him look more confident. Sir Night-Eye lifted his hand and stamped the form. Midoriya relaxed a little and breathed a sigh of relief. He thought there was going to be a test or a small fight. You better come up with a joke next time. There is no future in society if it doesn't have energy or humor. So if you don't come up with a joke by Monday, Sir Night-Eye spoke, which gave Midoriya shivers. A week passed and Midoriya was prepared for his first day on patrol. He wore his hero costume and walked next to Mirio. This was his first time in public, seen as an actual hero. Mirio kept telling him to keep an eye out on anything while just trying to walk and act as normal as he could, since Midoriya was caught up on multiple attacks during his time outside school. He never got the basics of patrols. Mirio told him that Sir Night-Eye and Bubble Girl were doing the real work since they were watching a specific target. Midoriya remembers back to a meeting he had with Sir. He told a joke to the pro hero to see if he was truly up to par. Sir Night-Eye chuckled for a second and returned back to his serious facade. Not bad but needs more work, he said in all seriousness. Yes sir, Midoriya shouted back. And stop shouting. We're in the same room. Now today you are going on patrol with Mirio here. Pay attention to this. I don't care if you forget half of what I said before, but this man. Sir holds up a picture of a man in a plague mask and a big green coat. Is very dangerous. His name is Kai Chisaki. He is the leader of a local yakuza called Shai Haseki. His quirk is known for destroying and rebuilding anything he touches. He came in contact with the League of Villains a few days ago and is likely to be linked with them. If you come in contact with this man, run away. We can't let him know that we are onto him. Mirio, make sure the kid won't do anything reckless. I trust you, Mirio, so I won't need to use my quirk. Go. As they walked ahead, some of the public noticed both Mirio and Midoriya. He was happy that he was recognized as a hero and as one of the best from the sports festival this year. They managed to check up on most of the local stores and they posed for a photo or two as well as check for any possible crimes. Halfway through a conversation where Mirio was explaining his hero name, they stumbled upon an alleyway where a small bandaged-up girl ran out of it and into Midoriya's legs. Her hair was white, which made her bright ruby eyes pop out more. She had a horn on her right temple. Midoriya crouched down to check on her since she fell after their collision. Sorry, that must have hurt, Midoriya softly spoke, moving his hand towards the girl's head. She flinched slightly, making Midoriya a little suspicious. Can you stand? Are you okay? He put his hands under her arms and tried to pick her up. He noticed that she was trembling as well as heavily bandaged and barefoot. Suddenly, a voice came from the alleyway where the girl came from. She flinched once again and Mirio took on a serious look on his face. Now, you know you can't go around causing trouble for the heroes, the man said as he stood tall. It seemed as though he was trying to tell the two heroes to back off with his smug body language. Midoriya knew who this man was. His dark green coat, his maroon and golden mask, white gloves and shoes, his kiwi-colored eyes and brownish-red hair. Kai Chisaki was in front of them and looked like he controlled the situation. I'm sorry about my daughter, Hiro. She likes playing around and keeps getting hurt. I don't know what to do with her, he said cheerily, which sent chills down Midoriya's back. He then started to plan on what he should do. Your mask and hood came off again, Mirio said, pulling Midoriya's headpiece back in position. Maybe the sizing is off, he said with a smile, like he was just saying a joke. Midoriya knew that Mirio could be analytical when he wanted, so he knew he had a poker face at that moment. We're sorry, too, for bumping into her. Midoriya then noticed that his face was very expressive and so changed his face to show indifference. He didn't want to ruin Sir Night-Eye's work with that lovely mask. You must be from the Haseki, right? You guys are famous around here, Mirio continued. Yes, don't worry about the mask. I'm sensitive to filth. It's my first time seeing you two heroes, Chisaki replied. As Mirio kept Chisaki distracted, Midoriya started to come up with plans for what to do. Mirio asked Midoriya to stand up. He held onto the girl and was about to stand, but the girl hanged onto Midoriya's costume very tightly. Don't go, she whispered to Midoriya. The air around them just got tenser as Midoriya held a hard-nosed face. What else could he do? What can he do to save the girl? Those were the only thoughts running through his head. Your daughter seems scared, Midoriya said as he tried to shake off the pressure. It's because she just got a scolding. he replied coldly. Mirio tried to signal to Midoriya that he was creating extra suspicion. Let's go. Mirio spoke loudly. Midoriya didn't reply. He instead put his hand on her head and held the girl closer to him. She wasn't letting go, and so Midoriya had no option but to continue his questioning. Her bandages don't seem like they're from playing around too much, Midoriya said. Now the girl had tears in her eyes and clinged even harder to Midoriya's costume. She falls a lot, Chisaki jokingly countered. For such a small child to be trembling like this without making a sound. I don't think that's normal, Midoriya retorted. Please don't force your own normal on other people's families. Chisaki shot back as he sounded more and more on edge. Everyone has different dispositions, right? Mirio added, again signaling to Midoriya to stop his heroic nature. The air got thicker and thicker as they were in a silent standoff for a few seconds until Midoriya broke it. What are you doing to this girl? He asked. The girl was now digging her nails into Midoriya. Chisaki's aura calmed back down. Almost like he was hiding it, he let out a sigh. Geez, you heroes are so sensitive to the subtle signs in people? Very well. It's embarrassing to talk about it. People are watching here, so will you come this way with me? Chisaki said as he turned and walked back towards the alleyway. Mirio and Midoriya nodded to each other, confirming that if worse comes to worse, they will fight him together, and contacted Sir Nine-Eye right away. They walked behind Chisaki but kept their distance just in case. There was a slightly awkward silence until Chisaki spoke. Actually, I've been having a lot of problems with Eri. She just keeps defying me no matter what I say. Midoriya was thinking that the bandages meant that he abused her whenever she stepped out of line. Parenting? It must be hard, Mirio said, not raising the suspicion on him or Midoriya. Yes, children are hard to understand. They feel like they can and will become someone. They seriously think that. Chisaki began to take his left glove off. As Chisaki removed his glove, Eri tried to jump out of Midoriya's arms. However, he held on to her tighter than ever. She was almost crying, about to scream, but she looked into the eyes of her savior. They were filled with determination. Please, sir, let me go. I don't want him to hurt you, she shrieked. Her eyes started to water. Eri-chan, it's all gonna be okay. You know why? Midoriya asked. He looked back into her eyes with a smile. Because we are here, Mirio finished. They both glanced at each other. Mirio took Eri out of Midoriya's arms and carried her himself. He then used his cape to wrap around the girl. Eri then put her head on his chest, hiding her face from the Yakuza. You're safe with us, but if anything happens to us, please run away and get help. Say that you need Sir Night-Eye to help you, and say that Lemillion and Deku are in danger, Mirio added as he kept her warm. She took her face from his chest and stared at Mirio's face. His smile comforted her as he then looked back towards Chisaki and showed his heroic nature as his demeanor changed. She saw the two strangers face off against the ultimate evil that she had experienced. You heroes just couldn't keep your nosy selves out of my business, out of my empire. Since both of you are young heroes, I'll let you have one last opportunity to turn around, forget all about this, and not suffer a horrific death by my hands, threatened Chisaki as he disintegrated his other glove. Mirio was slightly shaken from this. He put Eri aside and kept her as far away from Chisaki. Should they call back up and wait for help? He turned to his underclassmen. He could tell that getting reinforcements was futile. If he left, Midoriya would fight him alone and possibly kill him. He surveyed his surroundings. A narrow alleyway, a small run into the main street, and a door slightly ahead. This must be one of the side entrances to their hideout, Mirio thought. As he was trying to put his plan into action, Midoriya spoke up. There is no way we can forget what we have seen today. If we turn around now, are we true heroes or just a pair of cowards? He spoke triumphantly, getting into a fighting pose. Chisaki let out a sigh and bowed his head slightly, bending down to his shoes. Suit yourself. Suddenly, the floor broke apart. Mirio managed to put Eri away from the hole and kept her from harm's way. They kept falling until they landed and ended up in a white tunnel. Both heroes looked ahead and saw Chisaki. Eri, I know this is really difficult, but please, run, Mirio shouted. He gazed upwards and saw a small nod from Eri as she disappeared. He returned his attention to Chisaki. He started walking towards the heroes. Mirio activated One for All around his body. One for All, 20%. He faced his underclassmen. Midoriya then activated his base form as a white aura expanded around him. He then levitated slightly off the ground. Mirio would act really excited and praise his junior, but now wasn't the time. Their only focus should be the villain at hand. What's the plan, Deku? Mirio asked Midoriya, trying to prepare to fight. I'm not sure what type of quirk he has, but it is something to do with destroying with just a touch of his hand. That much is evident from him destroying his glove as well as destroying the floor of the alleyway. Our best bet is to not let him touch you. If he does, it's game over. I'll try to attack from above, Send out some blasts while you use your special techniques like when we fought. However, this time, don't hold back for a second, Midoriya asserted. Mirio was impressed that Midoriya could tell that he was holding back when they last fought until he transformed. Midoriya charged up a little Kai blast to conserve as well as to test what his abilities were. He fired the ball of energy. It wasn't as fast or as strong as it could be, but because of how dense it was, it packed quite a punch. As it approached, Chisaki crouched down again and placed his hand on the floor. A wide concrete pillar rose up from the floor and blocked the ball. Both Midoriya and Mirio were shocked as they didn't know about this side of Chisaki's quirk. Looks like he can disassemble and reassemble whatever he touches. Maybe he can do the same to humans. You have an advantage with your intangible quirk. I'll keep ranged attacks while you rush him. I'll try and cover your back with my blasts. But if you even need to switch out, let me know, Midoriya conferred with Mirio. Deku. Sir Night-Eye is gonna give you a lot of trouble once we're done with this, but keep your hopes up. Hopefully he won't torture you. Mirio smirked. Suddenly, Mirio ran straight towards Chisaki and went for a roundhouse kick. Chisaki lifted his hand to counter an attack. Such an open move. What do you hope you hit if your leg is, Chisaki thought until a big white boot hit him in his jaw. What? I thought I managed to get him. What did he do? Did he dodge my hand? No, he couldn't have. He was full of openings. It must be his quirk, he deduced. Mirio followed up with another kick, rotating his body fully to maximize his momentum. Chisaki then lifted both of his hands and tried to grab Mirio's body. As he reached, Mirio activated his quirk all around his body except for his foot. The villain's hands traveled straight through the hero's body. Chisaki's face was shocked as he received yet another kick to his face. Mirio then landed and ran back a few steps. A blue light cut through the air and hit Chisaki straight in his chest. It lifted him off the ground and burned some of the clothes he was wearing, leaving a sizable hole right in the middle of them. He lifted his eyes and narrowed them. Why do heroes always have to be so annoying? Chisaki said, venom coming through from every word he said. Midoriya was slightly taken aback. Chisaki got hit with one of his Kai blasts, and it seemed as if it just bothered him. One does the close fighting while the other sits back and covers. You really think some student-like strategy would work on me? And to show you the errors of your ways, I'll just say that your guard is down. Chisaki stuck his hand to the wall next to him and completely destroyed the tunnel. Mirio lost his footing and fell while Midoriya was hovering, trying to dodge all the debris around him. Mirio activated his quirk and managed to propel himself through each of the falling rocks to backtrack towards his ally. I got near enough for a few solid hits, but it seems as though he has figured out my quirk. We've lost the element of surprise. Mirio spoke as he now stood on top of the fallen debris. Then I guess it's time to stop holding back, Midoriya responded, his eyes slowly changing color. The Kai that surrounded him exploded outwards. It turned yellow, as so did his hair. The air around him got denser and hotter. Chisaki wiped a small bead of sweat from his head due to the immense heat Midoriya was now exerting. Chisaki wondered why he looked so different but thought it was some type of transformation quirk. His attention then turned back to Mirio. It seemed as though his aura was also expanding slightly. Lightning started to expel out of him as a bright energy rose up from his legs all the way up to his head. One for all, Phantom Phase, Mirio shouted, readying his battle pose. Deku. Let's show him R plus Ultra. His voice was more serious than Midoriya has ever heard before. He knew that the first time they fought, he was holding back his true potential, and that also, from that point on, it was going to be a fight for survival. Straight away, Midoriya rushed Chisaki. Mirio observed him as he attacked but lost sight of him almost immediately, and the loud wind whistles from their earlier fight rang through the now destroyed tunnel. Mirio noticed that the tunnel was now an open area, almost like the training grounds of their first bout with Class 1A. This wasn't a good environment for Mirio's permeation quirk since his only possible surface can be the floor, but this was Midoriya's best possible scenario for a fight, although he couldn't see his junior. The pressure that was emanating from him was debilitating. He tried to move forwards, but a bubble of pure heat stopped him. Midoriya wanted to test the abilities of his foe, and so he decided to trick him but push his speed limits and distract him. He halted his movements right in front of Chisaki. He charged a small beam of energy before he could even move and hit him again in the chest. But that's what he thought happened. Turned out that he created a small barrier in the time it took him to charge his attack and block the blast. Chisaki then bursted through the concrete barrier and almost touched Midoriya. He instead managed to touch a piece of fabric that fell off his costume and reduced it to nothing. Midoriya now knew what type of villain he was combating. He had to be smarter and try to push his limits even further. He was close to the ceiling of his ultimate mode at the moment, but he could sense that there was something more to it, something attainable. He charged up again and went for a much more aggressive attack. Midoriya once again whizzed around the area, this time through the air, and managed to get a solid hit onto Chisaki. His mask was now in tatters as his face only showed more and more anger. His eyes were filled only with his intent to kill and retrieve Yuri. He tightened whatever was left of his mask to his face. He now looked more horrifying than any enemy both heroes have fought off before. Mirio then charged himself. He couldn't keep up with Midoriya's, even in his phantom phase, but he knew that Midoriya would work around his slower ally rather than just blindly attack. He fell into the ground and rose up behind Chisaki. Falling again towards the ground, he landed and jumped straight to the villain. He activated his quirk once again, but fully around his body so he could deceive Chisaki into solely attacking him and leave himself vulnerable. Midoriya took this opportunity to counter and double hammer punched him in the back of his head, slamming the villain into the ground. Mirio then tackled Midoriya away, making sure he wasn't within his enemy's reach. Both fell a few meters away from the down villain, but they both knew he was a different type of criminal. He used his quirk to raise himself off the ground. You heroes are such a pain. You need to learn your place in the world and stick to being society's crutch and not its saviors. Chisaki shouted with pure hatred. Midoriya and Mirio felt their spines shiver as Chisaki put both his hands into the ground. A pillar flew from the ground and lifted himself higher than the two heroes. The ceiling got blown out as natural light seeped in. Spikes then appeared from the pillar and remained in a defensive position. The concrete lost its rigidness and flowed like water. The spikes sent multiple attacks towards both heroes. They kept dodging and dodging until Midoriya got hit with a spike across the ankle and Mirio got stabbed through his arm and his leg. He somehow was still able to move, but his mobility was impaired. He managed to hide behind some debris and Midoriya retreated back to him. Both then recuperated slightly and got ready for the next phase of the battle. Deku. This seems to be some type of tower defense. We need to take care of those tentacles-like things to get close to him. I could rush into the pillar, but I don't think I'll reach the top until I run out of breath. You can fly, but he'll be prepared for you. What do you think? Mirio conferred with his underclassman. He turned to see him mumble and not take notice that Mirio was trying to talk to him. We'll sort that out later. Deku, Mirio shouted this time. Focus on the task at hand. I know you're coming up with multiple plans, but we need a surefire one. I got it, Midoriya shouted back. Mirio was a little confused with his thought process, but conceded. Midoriya pulled Mirio in and started to explain his idea. They both stood up and returned to their base forms. Chisaki felt restless as to him. It looked like they weren't taking him seriously enough. Launching his defenses out, he noticed that they weren't on the floor anymore. He lost sight of them as he lowered his hand onto the concrete pillar. Chisaki couldn't find them. He couldn't even feel the large energy source from the green hero. However, he heard the wind whistle once more and prepared for another assault. Suddenly he felt an impact on his back. He turned and no one was there. He then felt the immense heat again, as well as the electrifying sound of the lightning. Chisaki could at least follow it and caught a yellow flash going right through his field of view. Midoriya was lifting Mirio around and bouncing from spike to approach the villain. Once he noticed this, he retracted his spikes and assembled all of them around himself. He then sent them towards the heroes. Midoriya then resulted to flying to save both Mirio and himself, which reduced his speed dramatically. But he had a backup to this. He started to swing around in circles and launched Mirio towards Chisaki. He thought that Midoriya was going to attack again, using Mirio as a fake, but he was wrong. Mirio cannonballed into Chisaki, knocking him off balance, which set up Midoriya for his ultimate blast attack. Tokyo Blast, he shouted at the top of his voice. Due to his increased abilities and power, the blast decimated the pillar and leveled it completely. It looked as though they had won the battle. Both landed hard on the ground and stood up slowly, recovering from their injuries. Mirio-senpai, Midoriya shouted, "Are you okay? Are you safe?" "Yeah, I'm okay. Just a little battered, bruised and bleeding, but I've suffered more before," Mirio reassured Midoriya. "And use our hero names. We're in public." Mirio lightly smacked Midoriya in the head. He then wrapped his arm around his junior's shoulder and used him for support. "You know, that was a really good plan. Really surprised that it worked. Pretty much used me as a bullet. You better tell everyone that I was the reason we won." Mirio chuckled. Midoriya replied with only a small nod and a smile. He then started to fly up slightly until he felt some type of resistance and an abrupt force. He looked to Mirio. Blood was spilling out of his mouth. He still held a smile. Midoriya was absolutely shocked. His face showed pure despair. He glanced down and saw one of the concrete spikes through Mirio's abdomen. He was tossed aside as his grip on Midoriya loosened. Midoriya landed on the ground and faced his adversary. Chisaki was again standing up with a sickly smile plastered on his face. "Show me your true side, hero. No one shows their nature until they are pushed beyond their mental limits." Chisaki spat as his eyes narrowed. Midoriya was broken. He couldn't move his body. He turned as he saw his friends lifeless, limp body a few meters away from him. He lowered his head. Looks like you aren't truly meant to save people. You couldn't even protect your partner. Now accept your fate and perish. Coward, Chisaki growled. A large spike swooped in and attacked Midoriya. However, the spike was stopped dead in its tracks. Midoriya powered up just before the spike hit him, but his energy and aura was heavier. Chisaki sent another spike from the opposite direction. Suddenly, the aura around him exploded outwards as he clenched his fists and shouted at the very top of his voice. Chisaki knew that this was Midoriya's last strand of strength. How dare you? Mirio-senpai is just a hero who does his best and gets stronger each day to protect everyone. Eri-chan is an innocent little girl who has done nothing to deserve any type of pain. You hurt people who want nothing more than to be happy. I just end up as a bystander if I keep doing nothing. And I won't watch this anymore. Midoriya belted with all his might, as his aura erupted outwards. The spikes which Chisaki sent towards him disintegrated. Chisaki had to use his hands to protect himself from the debris as well as the heat that Midoriya expelled. He removed his forearms from his eyes and looked forward. Midoriya wasn't the same anymore. His hair was much spikier than before. His eyes held more hatred within them. His aura was now twice as dense and many times larger. But what stood out more to Chisaki was that the fiery presence now crackled with lightning. What type of power-up is this? He thought, now preparing his spikes for defense. Even though Chisaki had always demonstrated how much of a monster he was by consistently destroying his allies as well as his enemies to reach the top, he felt truly scared. Like he was facing some mythical beast. Chisaki couldn't figure out what was happening as well as what would happen, even though the air around Midoriya is ferocious. His body didn't move an inch from his battle pose, arching his back and facing the sky. The ground underneath him crumbled and broke into pieces as dust was blown away. Another shockwave blew away more rocks and dust as the ground beneath him got more and more unstable. His muscles bulged as it looked like his body grew a couple of inches. His hero costume becoming tighter as a result of this. He lowered his head to face Chisaki. Tears were floating upwards, blown that way due to the immense pressure. His face was not one of anger nor aggression. His eyes only displayed the pain and the sorrow of his soul. Almost like a window to his soul. Chisaki was frozen in place. What was he to do against such a creature? A being that went against anything he has seen before. Out of the view of both Midoriya and Chisaki, Bubble Girl was carrying a small horned child, who was telling her directions until they reached their destination. Sir Night-Eye, who was trailing both girls, looked ahead and saw the hole that Chisaki created. He jumped down level to level, hearing faint sounds of a battle ahead. As he neared the sounds, the air got thicker and thicker, which made running tougher and tougher. He felt a presence that made his body pause for a second or two until he fought through it and continued forward. He then came to an opening to a large space, which was mostly destroyed with debris everywhere. He scanned the area and quickly saw Midoriya. It was like something he has never seen. What was happening? What was pushing Midoriya to go this far? These were the only thoughts running through his mind until he turned slightly and saw a blood-stained white body. He sneaked his way around towards the body. Midoriya noticed him from the corner of his eye and knew he had to do everything he could to keep Chisaki's focus on him. But what he wasn't prepared to see was Bubble Girl holding Eri in her arms. Bubble Girl had her hand on Eri's head, making sure that she didn't witness any of the terror happening right now. Midoriya, who returned his full focus to Chisaki, had steeled his resolve. He had to win and he had to put an end to Chisaki's reign. What things did you do to Eri-chan? Midoriya shouted, trying to keep Chisaki distracted. I think a better question is what didn't I do to her? You're better off asking her yourself, but I won't let you see her ever again. Suddenly, the spikes returned to Chisaki's side and flew towards Midoriya at breakneck speed. Midoriya simply walked forward and swatted away the spikes with ease. A high-pitched whistle was the only sound there was until a loud explosion quickly followed it. Midoriya was moving faster than Chisaki could keep up with. It was like he was teleporting around the room. The loud explosion each time he changed his position was the ground getting destroyed by each jump. You think this scares me? I've gone toe-to-toe with most of the local Yakuza. You're just an angsty teenager with emotional issues and a flashy do-nothing quirk. You can only imagine what I've gone through just to get closer to my goal, my dream. Then you will know what I do is just a no. You talk too much. Midoriya interrupted as he punched Chisaki's stomach, sending him flying towards the back wall. Sir Night-Eye was in disbelief. He's not seen this type of power in years. It reminded him of his old friend. You're gonna pay for everything you've done, and I haven't even started delivering the pain. You better hope that I'm feeling merciful after this or you're going to die. Midoriya threatened. His cold voice along with his monstrous presence terrified the villain. Chisaki was holding in the contents of his stomach as much as he could. Midoriya, with his fist still firmly planted in Chisaki's caved-in abdomen, crouched and uppercut him. which sent him flying upwards. Chisaki hit the roof and saw his opportunity. "You fool, now you're gonna die for your stupidity," Chisaki shouted. He placed his hands on the roof and sent more spikes of concrete than ever before at the young hero. He remained still, with his eyes of fury staring straight into Chisaki's soul. He abruptly lifts his arms together, cupping his hands. Midoriya screamed as a blue beam of energy exploded outwards. The concrete spikes disintegrated almost immediately as the blast neared Chisaki. He got as much of the concrete as he could around him, trying to protect him, but it was useless. The beam almost vaporized the concrete which encased Chisaki. No one in attendance could believe a thing. There was only smoke to where Chisaki was. All of the sudden, through the smoke, a figure fell. The figure impacted against the ground, creating a dust cloud around it. As it cleared, Chisaki stood up but with some struggle. The blast had injured him fatally. His left arm and leg were gone as well as parts of his hair singed and skin burned. His look of pure anger and pain almost amused Midoriya, bringing an almost half-smile to his face. "You think this is funny?" Chisaki screamed. He was too focused on Midoriya to notice a white silhouette rising from the rubble behind him. Electricity started to blast outwards and a white streak flew past Chisaki. A second later, a delayed hit caused the villain to stumble backwards. Chisaki, full of despair, looked up and saw both heroes triumphantly holding their fighting poses. Chisaki simply snarled at this and placed his remaining hand on himself and reassembled the left side of his body. He stood up and looked towards the teens. Their aura emanated from them, creating a barrier of heat that was almost impregnable. "It's good to see you're back. Now let's finish this once and for all," Midoriya jovially said. "You read my mind, troublemaker," Mirio responded, full of energy and life again. "You heroes would be nothing without your powers. Let's see how you fare without them." Chisaki spoke as he struggled for breath with each part of the sentence. He pulled out a gun from his inner coach and aimed it straight at them. He fired at both, but it was too slow for both of them as their quirks have amplified not only their speed but perception too. Mirio activated his permeation quirk and disappeared into the floor while Midoriya practically vanished from where he stood. Before he could even comprehend that he missed, he was punched from below as Mirio emerged from the ground. As he was suspended in the air, Midoriya fired another blast, launching Chisaki into the ground, making another crater within the massive craters all around the battlefield. He retaliated by firing 2 more shots at Midoriya, both of them missing. Chisaki was fighting out of pure anger and determination. The determination to get Eri back. That's when he realized Mirio now had no wound, almost like he was rewound. Chisaki mumbled. He lifted himself from the crater and searched the area, looking for the silver-haired girl. "Bubble girl, it's time. Get ready and follow everything I told you before. He's coming." Sir Night-Eye conferred with his sidekick. He then walked 5 steps back and turned while Bubble Girl held onto Eri and ran around Sir Night-Eye and turned the corner, running towards the exit. "MS, Bubble Girl, where are the 2 boys?" Eri asked the blue hero. "You're gonna be able to see them soon. Don't worry about it. We just need to get to this one spot and then you'll be safe and sound and the boys will come and say hi," Bubble Girl replied. Earlier, Sir Night-Eye used his foresight quirk to see the future of Eri's day and saw that they would return to an almost deceased Mirio and that they would be able to escape, but unsure whether both teens' heroes come out alive. It was a risk, but he knew that he needed to save both his student prodigies and their futures. Eri told them about her power, not sure what it was but what it could do. She saw Mirio in his dying breaths, praying for her to smile so she could be happy. She didn't accept that Mirio was dying and activated her quirk on Mirio, rewinding his wound and regaining his power. Mirio didn't skip a beat and returned to the fight. "Give back Eri," Chisaki shouted, changing the ground beneath him into his own concrete armor. "You are a despicable person, Chisaki Kai, and all the rewards you hope to reap will fall from your grasp. You have lost. Hand yourself to us or experience a truly horrifying end." This time Sir Night-Eye had something that the students lacked: the experience and knowledge of creating a killer aura, demoralizing their opponents. A silence befell the battlefield as all stood there, waiting for the villain's response. 2 gunshots rang out, dispelling the short quietness. Sir Night-Eye simply sighed and shuffled around the projectiles. Die, you stupid, blind heroes," Chisaki blared as he lashed out and fired his spikes all around. Sir Night-Eye just walked around the spikes while Mirio and Midoriya were starting to get close to their upper limits, getting scrapes and slight cuts as the spikes near missed them. "Where is that heroic spirit, Midoriya? Where is your smile, Mirio? Where are the 2 heroes I accepted into my agency with hopes to make them top heroes of the next generation? If I don't see those 2 again, I'm gonna have to replace you after all this is done." Sir Night-Eye rallied to his juniors. Midoriya and Mirio just glanced at each other and knew what had to be done. Guess it's time to go beyond, Mirio-senpai, Midoriya said, regaining his composure and holding a battle stance. Mirio stood alongside him, holding a similar pose. Plus Ultra, both heroes shouted as they began the final stage of the fight. Chisaki was unleashing all that he could, his last-ditch effort to salvage whatever he could save, though he lost himself slightly. He regained control and focused more attacks towards Bubble Girl, who was surrounded by the two teen heroes. Mirio had one trick up his sleeve, and this would be his only chance. Midoriya noticed he changed his pose, so he grabbed Bubble Girl and zipped all the way around the battleground to Sir Night-Eye, where he held onto both girls as they saw a bright yellow flash return to its origin. Mirio ran into the spikes and started to bounce from spike to spike, accelerating with each warp. Midoriya leaned slightly on his back legs and squatted. He held his hands together, almost like he was holding a ball. All of a sudden, a blue light appeared as focused his energy into both his palms. You think puny tricks like this are enough to beat me? Chisaki bellowed. Mita, Midoriya continued. He was now slowly approaching the villain. His spikes missed their target by centimeters. He picked up his pace. The ball of energy was growing, and his plan was working. All he had to do was hold his attention for a little bit longer. Midoriya was now running along the spikes towards the villain. The ball was now glimmering and shone brighter. It was jumping from spike to spike. Chisaki-ai, Mirio screamed from the top of his voice. Ultimate move. 1 for all 50%. Phantom Menace. Cannon Missile. Mirio used all the acceleration he built up to continuously spin and roundhouse kick Chisaki in the head. This almost knocked him out unconscious, however. He still had some fighting spirit and fired more spikes at Mirio, who phased through the ground. Chisaki completely lost focus on what was around him. He was ready to attack again, but that proved to be a costly mistake. He slowly looked up and saw Midoriya midair, holding a large ball of energy in his hands. You lost, hero. You can't dodge now, he roared out. Chisaki sent a large spike, aiming right at Midoriya's abdomen. Midoriya flew up slightly and used the ball of energy to slide forward on the spike. He was now within 5 meters from the villain. Chisaki had lost all hope. The ball from Midoriya's hands exploded outwards and hit Chisaki full power. This beam was different though. It had more weight to it, a solid force that acted as a giant fist. Chisaki was blown away and utterly defeated. The blue beam held on for a few seconds until Midoriya started to fall. He was losing consciousness and couldn't comprehend what just happened. His hair returned to its natural dark green and slight black. Mirio jumped just in time to catch Midoriya falling. You did well, Midoriya. I'm sure Sir is proud. Mirio was smiling until he realized that the fight might not be over. He looked up while holding Midoriya and saw the silhouette of someone walking towards them. Through a massive fog caused by Midoriya's last attack, he activated 1 for all around his body, but he was in no fighting condition. The 50% strike caused his leg to fracture slightly. He leaned heavily on his other leg and tried to brace. A hand moved out of the dust cloud and Mirio calmed back down. He saw the white sleeve of Sir Night-Eye's suit and relaxed. You did well, kids. Now stay down. I'll take care of the rest. The pro hero calmly delivered. But sir, what about Chisaki? What about Eri-chan? Mirio inquired, slightly alert. The little one is with Bubble Girl. She made it out safely and is en route to our agency. I placed Chisaki in Quirk erasing cuffs. He won't be going anywhere either. He's completely gone. White eyes and all. But he's still alive. He's going to be taken to the hospital under strict supervision from the police and some other heroes I call. The ambulances should be here soon. Sir Night-Eye responded. This led Mirio to smile before collapsing and letting go of Midoriya. They both landed on the floor, with smiles on their faces. Mirio was side to side with Midoriya, their arms outstretched, breathing heavily with closed eyes. Mirio put his fist towards Midoriya, fist bumping him. Hours later, both heroes woke up in hospital with minor injuries except for some damage to Midoriya's arms and the fracture on Mirio's leg. Although Mirio needed a cast and Midoriya had to be patched up due to the numerous cuts and a light brace on his arms, they managed to leave the very next day. Both students returned to school with small applause and many congratulations from their classmates and some of their teachers. Principal Nezu set a meeting between them, Sir Night-Eye and All Might. Even though the tensions between All Might and Sir Night-Eye were turbulent, both set aside their differences for this moment. Sir Night-Eye then walked up to Midoriya and looked straight into his eye, activating his quirk. They were there for a few seconds, Sir Night-Eye trying to gather and comprehend everything going through his head while Midoriya was slightly awkward, unsure of what to say or do. There was a deafening silence which was broken by Sir Night-Eye's small laugh. Izuku Midoriya, never give up on your dream. If you keep fighting and keep growing, You will become what you aspire to be and much, much more. Take these next few years as baby steps leading to your grand debut as an official pro hero. And then tell the world that I am here and that you're the next top hero. One last thing. I expect you back at the agency by the end of the week. We still have quite a bit of work to do due to your medical absence. You too, Mirio. We all expect great things from you too, Sir Night-Eye proclaimed. Nezu simply smiled and kept his almost unmoving face while All Might blasted a smile for all to see. This was the true beginning of the next top hero. This is the origin of the Super Saiyan hero, Deku. It was coming to the end of another school day. All of the students were getting excited for the upcoming school event. The school festival was one of the spectacles of the year, and it was rearing its giant head around the corner. There were plenty of discussions on what the students of Class 1A would do for their part of the festivity. They heard that Class 1B were planning some type of play that used the premises from multiple different stories and yet called it original. Ideas were flying left and right as Aizawa retreated into his yellow cocoon, while Ada was trying to organize the ideas. Tsuyu was trapping Minta in a duffel bag hanging upside down from the ceiling for trying to come up with a perverted idea. Kaminari joined in his antics with the idea of a maid cafe. The girls strongly objected. Midoriya suggested a hero quiz. Hagakure tried to get a fun house. Coming up with what to do was seeming like a success, however. No one could decide on just one of the ideas. Ada and Yaoyorozu did their best to control the class, but it seemed futile. The bell rang, which indicated the end of class. The door slid open and everyone's attention focused towards the tired teacher making his exit. Decide what you'll do by tomorrow morning. But if you don't, he half turned his head. His death glare sent chills down the students' spines. I'll make it a public lecture, he threatened. The class were now imagining what it would look like and agreed to come up with something so that Aizawa's dream of humiliating the class wouldn't become a reality. Hours later, and after much discussion, Todoroki brought up a video of a concert he saw online. He didn't specifically know the band or what was a concert, but he showed it to the class and everyone got behind the idea. As positions for the band were being filled, one question remained: who would be the lead singer? Of course, many tried and failed until Uraraka asked Jiru why she isn't the one trying to be the lead singer. Jiru tried to deflect, but Hagakure persisted with Uraraka. Yaoyorozu created a makeshift microphone and stand. Jiru couldn't not sing since everyone was waiting. Minda was making snarky remarks at Jiru as he was one of the hopefuls who didn't get the spot of lead singer. Kirishima, however, supported Jiru, giving her some encouragement. She had never really sung to anyone but her parents, and that last time she sang was a few years ago. She put all her fears behind and sang a small melody. To say that the students weren't moved by her angelic voice was an understatement. As soon as she ended her song, everyone erupted with cheers. It was then agreed that Jiru would be the singer and bassist. Yaoyorozu was on the keyboard, Kaminari on lead guitar, Takoyami on second guitar, Bakugo on the drums, while Mina would handle the performing and choreography side of the concert, and a small group of Shiro, Todoroki, Kirishima, and Koda would take care of the effects. It was 1 in the morning, so after all the incessant planning and chatting, Ada shouted at everyone to go to bed. Next morning, Mirio brought a surprise guest into the UA grounds. As everyone continued with their practice, the dance team was practicing outside. What they didn't notice was that someone was lurking in the bushes, spying on them. Looks like no one has noticed yet. Let's see. I'll make my appearance with a joke and make them laugh. The secretive person spoke until he was caught. Tagata, Midoriya shouted and waved towards his upperclassmen. Mirio was not amused that he was caught. Midoriya glanced to the right of Tagata. Wearing red overalls, a white blouse shirt with a small brown bag was eerie. Suddenly, Mirio decided to prod his butt through the bush as Midoriya, Uraraka, and Asui yelled out to Eri. Here's a peach, Mirio joked, slightly muffled due to him still being in the bush. The girls ran over to Eri, Midoriya slightly behind. Uraraka and Asui were melting due to how adorable they thought Eri looked. Ajiro was in a confused state as he thought that Eri was Mirio's daughter. Midoriya froze slightly, thinking back to the last time someone tried to link two people to each other as a family member, completely unnoticed to the students. Aizawa appeared behind Eri and talked to Midoriya directly. The principal has given permission, Aizawa, in his emotionless manner, said to Midoriya. The student remembered what his teacher was referencing to. A few days after the defeat of Overhaul, Midoriya and Mirio spent time with Eri in the hospital after all the checks were done. They tried to get her to smile, but she revealed something that broke their hearts. She didn't know how to. That's when Midoriya had the idea. His class had just come up with a plan for the concert the night prior, and so he thought it would be a nice idea for Eri to watch them play, for her to experience the festival in all its glory. Mirio was all for the idea also. Once Aizawa mentioned that she had approval to see everything in the festival, Midoriya was relieved. He had to take this opportunity to get Eri to smile. As Eri got acquainted with the dance team, She hid behind Mirio's leg. She had never been with so many people in such a small space, at least from what she could remember. I wanted to take Eri around the campus and show her a preview of everything as well as meet Principal Nezu. Midoriya. Would you like to come too? Midoriya was a little taken aback from Mirio's request. It seemed like he had recovered fully after the death scare both of them had. He held his smile, waiting for an answer. Midoriya glanced back at Mina and she lifted her arm, throwing up a thumbs up in her trademark smile. Yes, Midoriya responded. Just then, the doors to the main dorm building opened. Kirishima burst through them shouting out to the dance team until he saw the white-haired girl. Oh, it's Eri, Kirishima half yelled as he sprinted towards the group. You most probably don't remember me, but I was part of the rescue group. It's so nice to see you here. Why don't we all have a break? Yeah, Momo, prepare the tea, Ashido boisterously said. The two heroes in training and their special guest walked all the way around the campus. And one thing for sure was that it was pretty hectic. A lot of people were moving from place to place very quickly. Eri just observed as she tightly held onto Mirio's blazer. She was in awe of all the work that was going on. The trio bumped into multiple different groups. The third-year business students, Class 1B, which was somewhat unpleasant due to Monoma's arrogant antics. Fortunately, or unfortunately for Monoma, a waste from Class 1B hit him in the head with a full home run swing of a wooden pole. After the small altercation, they set off to go to the equipment room where Nejire Hato was doing her preparations for the beauty pageant. Eri is astounded with how Nejire looked. It reminded her of an angel. Amajiki kneeled over with stomach pain due to the thought of performing or presenting himself in front of a large group like Nejire was going to. Next was the support course. As Midoriya walked in, he was greeted by the pink-haired inventor Mei Hatsume. They talked for a little bit while she revealed her new baby until it started to shake aggressively and explode. Midoriya, Mirio and Eri then rushed out to the hallway and towards the cafeteria. They sat and ate some food while they asked how she felt about the festival. I don't really know. Both Midoriya and Mirio let out a sigh. But there are a lot of different people working hard, so I wonder how it'll turn out. Both UA students looked at each other again and smiled with joy. That's what people call getting excited. Nezu interrupted them. He was sitting next to Midnight as they were finishing their lunch. Nezu continued to talk about the efforts of each class and year group to push forward and keep everyone happy. Midnight, however, interjected his speech. She explained that the police had gotten involved this time around and had beefed up the security. And because the security is a lot higher, if the alarm goes off, even if it is a false alarm, the police will have no other option but to shut the entire thing down. Midnight warned. However, we released Hound Dog on the ground so any type of suspicious behavior will be caught instantly. Plus, Class 1A's performance is causing quite a stir in the teacher's lounge. Make sure you live your youths to their max. Eri asked Midoriya what he was going to do for the festival. He explained what a concert was and started to increase Eri's excitement for what Class 1A had to offer. It was just unfortunate that when Eri had to leave with Aizawa again and Midoriya returned to his classroom did he get the awful news. He learned that he wasn't on the dance team anymore, at least for half of the performance. He would have to carry Aoyama around and make him a living, breathing, moving disco ball for the rest of the performance. To say he was a little down was an understatement, but he quickly put it behind him and decided to do whatever it took. As long as Eri smiled at the end of the day, he was fine with doing any job. After a week of practicing, preparing and reshuffling, the class felt pretty confident with their rehearsal. It was the night before the big show and everyone was slightly on edge. Bakugo was still angry. This time he was mad at Kaminari for rushing the tempo while the electricity quirk user defended himself by saying that Bakugo had added too many drum fills. Midoriya was on his phone going through videos and news clippings until he accidentally tapped on a video. From his phone, a suave and sophisticated voice filtered out with a strange and quirky background song. He was talking about a certain brand of tea, one of his trademark traditions before he makes a video or commits a crime. Midoriya somewhat recognized the person in the video. Whatcha watching there, Deku? Uraraka asked, leaning over the sofa, with her head close to Midoriya's shoulder while holding a cup and saucer of tea. I just clicked on this video accidentally. IW was just checking to see if anything interesting showed up and saw this. Midoriya stumbled through his words, going red and trying to focus more on his phone rather than the girl that was almost on top of him. Who is that? Uraraka continued questioning. She leaned off the sofa and walked to the right of the sofa. Midoriya regained his composure to answer her second question. I don't exactly know who he is. He's some sort of villain vigilante. It's amazing how he keeps posting these videos and still doesn't get caught. But most of the comments are horrible and he literally has no likes on his video. He isn't as big as most other users, but he's gaining a small following. Sounds a little scary, but we shouldn't worry. We're all heroes here, Uraraka chirped, once again flustering Midoriya as she got slightly closer. Many miles away, In a small dark apartment, only illuminated by a blue light, a white-haired man looked over his laptop, figuring out his next plan of action, his next big video idea. A warning for all heroes to prepare as a great wave is coming and no one would see it coming. Morning struck and the students were making their final preparations. Everything was going smoothly. The band had tuned their instruments. The effects team were trying to get used to the timing with the band, and the dance team was ironing out the last details of the choreography. That was when Aoyama got Midoriya's attention. "Midoriya, I believe that the rope is frayed. It's proof of our friendship. Say non." Aoyama displayed the roll and it was at breaking point. "Yeah, wait, no. It's really dangerous. Maybe I'll ask Yaoyorozu to help." Midoriya walked over to the vice president, but she however hasn't digested her breakfast long enough to be able to create enough rope for the performance. Midoriya looked at the time and noticed time. It was 8:15 in the morning. "Hey, don't most stores open at like 9? And our performance is at 10. How are you gonna get the rope and get back on time?" Kaminari queried. "There's a convenience store not too far away from here. It's around 15 minutes from here, so I should be able to go there and back with a few minutes to spare before our final rehearsal," Midoriya replied back. With that said, Midoriya then paced through the hallways until he was out of Ida's vision and then ran towards the store. He wanted to make it there and back with more than time. This was his shot to make finally Eri smile, and he wasn't going to throw this opportunity away. He rushed into the store and went from aisle to aisle, trying to find some rope. He couldn't find any but noticed some ingredients that kept playing through his mind. He was talking with Eri and Mirio about the festival when she was still in the hospital. He explained all the different sweets and food while she looked dumbfounded. She then asked what a candied apple was. It slightly broke Midoriya's heart that she has never even heard of such a staple sweet since she had never taken part in anything like the festival before. Midoriya then found some sugar in some apples and bought them. He then ran to the next convenience store and found the rope that he needed. He left the store at around 8:25. It should give him plenty of time, but he still ran to get back to school. As he turned the corner just outside the store, he saw an old brown house next to it. Nonetheless, he kept running until he almost bumped into a tall, white-haired man. He was wearing a beige trench coat, sunglasses, a bowler hat with a mask and walking stick. Next to him was a short lady with a violet poncho, white summer hat and sunglasses too. "Oh, sorry." Midoriya immediately apologized. "Please be careful. You were about to ruin the aftertaste of the Golden Tips Imperial." The stranger spoke, although his voice was calm and collected. Inside his head, the man was freaking out. His cover was almost blown. The couple then started to walk away from Midoriya until he remembered that Yaoyorozu had made some tea of the same variety as the one that the stranger mentioned, as well as an offhand comment about the house maybe being a cafe or something. What ensued was a small altercation between the two. Each one tried to read between the lines and try to figure out each other's identities. Midoriya was certain that the white-haired man's voice sounded very familiar, while the gentleman started to notice that if he knew a friend that had made the tea, that he was from an elite school, and the only elite school around was UA. Midoriya thought back to the video. He was now certain. He remembered a line that stuck out from the video. He based the type of tea he drank to how big the job was, and he also remembered how the tea that Uraraka was drinking the night before was a rare tea that was hard to get. It was called Golden Tips Imperial. "Now if you'll excuse us." The stranger started to turn away and took a few steps before. "Please wait." Midoriya pressed. He clenched his fist around his two plastic bag handles. "Is this like a ritual for you?" The stranger had turned around slowly, and as Midoriya finished his question, he lifted his hand and started to remove his face mask. Midoriya lowered himself slightly and placed his bags on the floor. Midnight's words had flashed through Midoriya's head in a split second. He knew that this man was going to attack UA. He knew that would end the festival. He knew he had to stop him. "Ritual? What are you talking about?" questioned the trenchcoat man. He was now facing Midoriya. His mask and glasses were now off, revealing him as gentle criminal, the man Midoriya saw the night prior. Midoriya started. "La Brava. Start filming," ordered gentle criminal. Stop it already." Midoriya exasperated. "Please stop. Don't you dare make a move on my school." The time was 8:33 a.m. "Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description. So feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates." Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video. So goodbye and have a divine day.